Then as the draft starts at 2, we really have no idea what's going to unfold over the first hour or so that we're doing this.
Regardless of what you think about the level of players in this draft, teams are expecting chaos. Teams are expecting multiple trades in the top 10 and then overall in the first round, which is going to make it really exciting. So, yeah, it's just exciting to be here. And finally, instead of talking about what might make sense, we're going to talk about fit and how does this match up. And so really excited to get going.
I mean, I'm in a spot where it is kind of a down year. It's kind of a down class. But one, there's still incredibly cool players at the top. Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Jeremiyah Love, all guys like that. But also the first draft I ever did was 2013. I'm in a spot where, like, you can't hurt me. Like, I started at the bottom. Like, this is better than that. And so I'll take it.
Just looking at after what Dane said, I mean, you're talking about, I feel like there's very few really elite players in this draft. There's a bunch of really good ones. But if you're looking at, you're taking outside the top 8, do you move into the top 4? Because maybe there's 4 guys who are really special. And I think that's, if the price is right, I think that's where the draft gets fun, where you see those big moves.
And on top of that, going back to what Dane alluded to, I mean, I love you, buddy. I hope you're so wrong. I hope your stack is dead wrong. And we're, teams are valuing guys at completely different rates and being in love with players that maybe we haven't been talking about that way. I mean, if it's as close together as we think it might be, and if it's not this elite talent at the top, then it's up to everybody to decide how they feel about this. And I'm hopeful that that's going to lead to a lot of surprises as we move further down the board.
More chaos is better. I mean, that's why we love the draft, is it's very unpredictable. And I think the trades are going to help mix things up. So maybe like the top 4 picks are probably going to be the same 4 players we've been talking about, but the teams might be different. And I think that theme will continue throughout the first round.
Yeah, obviously, the intrigue is about what's going to happen at number 2. It's been the conversation all week about where the Jets are going to go with that pick. Is it going to be David Bailey? Is it going to be Arvell Reese? It's almost inconsequential in terms of how the rest of the top 10 might unfold, because whoever doesn't go at 2 is going to end up being a prize at 3. And that's where things get really, really interesting. It's what the Cardinals and what's happened over the last month or so is they've leaked out that they love every single player that might be available in the top 5. It almost reminds me of like a Wayne's World where he's like talking to the camera. It's like, can we have our money now? Like, I love Jeremiyah Love. Will you trade for my pick now? Like,
Can we have our picks now?
That's what the Cardinals have been doing. And so obviously there's smoke about a bunch of different teams. Are the Saints going to be the team that trades up to number 3? Are the Chiefs going to be the team that trades up to number 3? And so that second and third pick, no matter who goes at number 2, I think we're going to have a lot of interest at who might even be picking when the third pick is on the board.
And I think that's what is going to get us started and it kind of set the tone for the night, because I do think it's not going to slow down just with that top 3 or 4 picks. But no, you're right. The draft does start at number 2 with the Jets. I understand David Bailey, Texas Tech edge rusher. Understand Arvell Reese, the more of a hybrid edge rusher from Ohio State. Understand both sides here. And we've talked about it for how many months now, the strengths and weaknesses. It'll just be interesting which way the Jets go, because with Bailey, you have the more proven pass rusher, led the FBS in sacks last year, 14.5, 81 pressures, 21.3% pressure rate. But with Reese, you might have the better upside. But are the Jets in a place where they're going to bet on upside, or are they going to want the more immediate player? And so how does that factor into their decision-making?
I also wonder too, like, if Reese or Bailey is there at 3, depending on who's there, like, we're never going to be privy to this, but like, does the price change a little bit? Like, are more teams, if it's Reese that's available and the Jets, for whatever reason, because of what you're saying, feels a little bit of an easier projection, we just need pass rush right now, and it's Reese at 3, do you have like 6 teams calling instead of 2?
Well, I also think that he's a little bit more, Reese, I think, fits more schemes in terms of like the amount of teams that might be interested in him, right? So with the Chiefs, for example, the Chiefs have seen these players where we have these stack guys that play on the line of scrimmage, like Leo Chenal was that for them. I think he makes a lot of sense for what the Chiefs might do, even with their off-ball linebackers. You have some of these 3-4 teams that need a stand-up linebacker, like the Saints, coming into play if it's Arvell Reese. I honestly think not only the upside of the prospect, Dane, but the amount of different ways he's deployed and how many different teams that would fit does make Reese more of a prize if he ends up becoming available at number 3 for some of these teams.
And that's why I think the conversation, when people call him a tweener, I think they're off, because this is not a player stuck between positions. He's a whatever you want him to be. He's a chameleon. If you want him on the edge, you can do it. If you want him to be like he was in college and play that joker role where he can play stacked, he's going to blitz from different angles, he can do that too. And He's 20 years old. And I mean, Derrik, you've mentioned it, how he could probably put on 8 pounds and 12 pounds. He's not done growing if you want him to become more of a true edge presence. And so just that, I understand some of the trepidation about it's a projection involved, but this is the draft. It's about projection. You're not drafting guys for what they've done. You're drafting them for what they're going to become. And I think with Reese, I think it's easy to get really swept up in the idea of what he could be, not just now, but 2 years from now, 3 years from now.
I'm saying this in the wrong room because I know how we all feel about Arvell Reese, but if the player left available after the Jets pick changes how much the phone is ringing, shouldn't that dictate who the Jets should take?
You would think,
like, if you're like,
simple.
Hey, this guy's going to have the phone ringing off the hook. It's like, well, maybe he should have been the pick at 2 then. And obviously, I don't know what's going to happen, but that's where my brain went.
If a deal happens, there's a reason it hasn't happened yet. It's because we have to find out what happens at 2 first, because it's not just we'll take whichever one's left. It's we want a certain player.
Sometimes, Bruce, when we have these guys that are maybe a little bit more of a projection, they are these upside plays coming into the draft. There's a disconnect between the college football community that watched these guys all season and what the NFL world might expect of them. And with Arvell Reese, that's not really the case. It's not like he's this nebulous idea that maybe will turn into something. When we were talking about him a couple weeks ago, he was one of those guys where you're like, no, Arvell Reese is a fantastic player. Like, this is not solely about projection. We've seen him be special.
Yeah, I remember Dane and I had a conversation in September, and it was one of these things where, like, I go back every year, I do the Freaks List. It's in August, and I got a call the day it came out from James Laurinaitis, former Rams linebacker, really great linebacker at Ohio State, and the linebackers coach. And so we used to work together at Fox when he was there on the announce side, and he was like, hey, I think you missed somebody here or whatever. And I wanted to be like, well, blame Mickey. That's the strength coach, because he's the one I kind of rely for. And, because Sonny Styles was there. But when you looked at how quickly he came on, Big Ten coaches were raving about it. They were like, he's the best player on the defense. It's not Caleb Downs. He's the one who's causing havoc, and he can do so much. He's such a violent player. And people can talk about, his rush numbers, they're not great. He had 6.5 sacks, but it was like, look at the impact he's making. I mean, Washington has a really dynamic running quarterback, Damon Williams Jr. He made him look slow. He was like, just completely shut him down. There's so much you can do with him. And to me, he's like, I think he will be the best defensive player to come out of this draft. But, Bailey, could he be some version of Von Miller? If he's like, I feel like this is a pick the Jets cannot screw up unless somehow they don't take one of those 2 guys, which it's the Jets.
I'm glad you mentioned Bailey, because as much as we are talking about Arvell Reese, the pick at 2 very well may be David Bailey. Yeah. And he's a good player. There's no doubt about it. At Stanford, as an underclassman, you worried about the run defense. He was more of a sub-package player for them because they didn't trust him on early downs. But that all changed at Texas Tech. And that burst off the edge, his ability he flashes power. And then he did hold up better versus the run this past year as a senior. So I don't know there's not a comp I love for him, but I still think he's going to be a really solid pro. And in this draft, you can make the argument that he could be the second pick.
He's the best pass rusher in this draft right now, I think, in terms of like what they are at this moment. And you watch what he was at Texas Tech. I mean, it's not even just the burst off the edge, like the inside counters, the spin he brings to the table. Like, there isn't a lot of projection for what he can be as a pass rusher. I think it's going to be how much power can he play with at the next level, and what does he look like on early downs. But in terms of purely being a pass rusher, I think he's pretty much a fully formed product already in a good way.
And you can throw in the Utah tape and see him do it against Spencer Fano. Yeah. And now he didn't do it. The Big 12 beat up the Big 12 too much, but you can throw on some worthy opponents, and he more than held his own. And you see that speed and what it means. He's strong enough, so it's not easy for tackles to get him off his path. And I'm really encouraged by the steps he took as a run defender. So he's definitely worthy of the conversation here at 2.
Let's keep moving through the top 5. Derrik, after the Jets go at 2, what is the next pick that is really at front of mind for you? Like, what are you really curious about how 3, 4, 5 is going to unfold?
I mean, it kind of feels like Jeremiyah Love is going to be somewhere in that mix. It feels like that's going to happen. To me, it's kind of like, what do the Giants want to do at 5? Because I think we've talked about this a little bit before. it feels like they are more inclined to take a player like Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs, or if Jeremiyah Love is still there and they really want to do that, take him at 5, where you're just not going to get another player at that position deeper into the draft, or even at 10. Like if they don't take Caleb Downs at 10, somebody might take him at 8 or 9 or whatever it's going to be. But at 10, with them needing offensive line help, or if they want to get another receiver, like there's going to be 2 or 3 receivers left. There's going to be 2 or 3 tackles left if they want to take him. So which direction they go there, and then whoever trades up into the Browns pick right after that. I think that to me is where a lot
You're
of the
just not
dominoes
even
start to
giving the
fall.
Browns a chance to make that pick. Like it's going away.
I feel like we'd all be shocked if that would happen.
Well, you think about that range of Styles, Downs, and how quickly those guys can come off the board. The Browns, when you go through the exercise of which team, like what are the needs for each individual team, the Browns are the easiest team. It takes 2 seconds to figure out what the Browns' biggest needs are. It's wide receiver and tackle.
Left tackle.
And so with all these other teams wanting to come away from the top 10, Dane, with one of these elite defensive players, the Browns are clearly a team where it makes a lot of sense for them to move down to 11, 12, something like that, because that's the stretch of the draft where they can find the players they desperately need at tackle and wide receiver.
And it's an organizational mantra in Cleveland. Like they believe in more picks, and we saw them do it last year, moving back away from Travis Hunter. And if they move back in this draft, it wouldn't be a surprise. But I will say there's plenty of buzz about the Commanders wanting out of that pick at 7 and maybe being a little more desperate just because they have so few picks in this draft, and they have they have holes in that roster they want to address. So maybe the Browns might not have the deal in place that they want, where the Commanders maybe take a little bit less and teams are more willing to work with them.
It's an interesting point because I've been refreshing myself on everything yesterday and today, just who's working with what positions do they need? And you look at the Commanders and you're like, yeah, they could use this, that, and the other, but holy crap, they pick 7th and then they don't pick again until 71.
They have 6 total picks in this draft.
And that gap is terrifying when you think, not that the Commanders roster is bad, but to your point, there's just stuff you want to do here.
It is old though.
Not as old as it was last year.
That's
I don't
true.
think. But yes. And so to think that if they weren't to do that, I was going through it today and I was like, man, it feels like it's got to be a weapon. Because if you don't pick until 71, who's helping Jayden Daniels in this receiver core outside of Terry McLaurin? I don't love it. And so that's an interesting solution if they were able to get out of it and add some picks, just because I think they got to want to have more than just that one big bite at the apple.
2 picks in the top 146 picks. Like that's not good enough for what they want to be. And so I think they would love to have a Carnell Tate. And, Jayden Daniels, I think, actually came out and said he would love to have Carnell Tate on the team. Sonny Styles makes a ton of sense for them, that Dan Quinn defense. But, yeah, I think moving back might be the more realistic scenario for them.
I'll bring this up. The Brandon Ayuk thing is still lingering out there.
That is your thing this
I'm just
offseason.
saying, it's worth bringing up.
Yeah.
Like if they do end up going defense in the top 10, it's not like there's no other wide receiver move that they could potentially make. Like Brandon Ayuk is still out there if they felt like we need one more piece for Jayden Daniels. Speaking of veteran receivers that might be on the move, the bit of news that came out before we started recording this, or before kind of the draft side of this really got going tonight, is that George Pickens has signed his franchise tag, which makes me do the Brian Windhorst sit back in my chair thing, be like, all right, what does this actually mean? Because now that George Pickens has signed his franchise tag, Dave, he is eligible to be traded at any time by the Dallas Cowboys. So I would call the timing of this curious, to say the least.
It is a huge alarm bell. And I guess if we want to be completely clear, I don't know for sure that George has officially signed it. I think he's expected to. And I'm just imagining David Mauigoa and George Pickens sitting there with like DocuSign open, and just like, hey, who called? All right, we'll send it over right away. Like that is the mental image that's in my head. I mean, starting yesterday, Stephen Jones said at the Cowboys introductory press, or their draft press conference to begin the draft weekend, we're not doing a deal with George Pickens. And that right there is a Windhorst thing where you're like, we're just saying this on April 22nd. Like the Cowboys love to drag this stuff out until Labor Day. What are we doing? And so for them to say they weren't interested in doing it at all. And if you're curious why this is interesting, George Pickens would have to sign the tender to be traded. And so if he does sign it or has signed it tonight, that makes it easier to happen. And so the Cowboys, there's the Cowboys are doing damage control and saying like, well, we want him here. We're not doing that, but that's just a matter of what happens during the draft and how does that change our opinion? Because you might want him on your team right now, and in 2 hours that might not be true anymore. So I'm watching that like a hawk.
And there are two sides to this. The first side is who would be interested in trading for George Pickens and what the price would be. The second is if the Cowboys trade George Pickens, Dane, they almost have to draft a receiver early in this draft. Because if you look at the current makeup of their offense, George Pickens was one of the most valuable players in the NFL last year, full stop, and what he gave the Cowboys offense. And if this team is going to try to thread this needle and be a contender this year, they need that other receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb. And so if they do end up trading George Pickens, that brings a guy like Jordyn Tyson into play at 10 maybe or 12 where the Cowboys are drafting. Like it just changes the entire conversation around Dallas in the first round, where for the last, 2 months, as we've talked about the Cowboys, it's been defense. And that could change very quickly if George Pickens happens to be on the move.
Especially because Dallas doesn't have that second round pick.
Yeah.
They have the 2 picks in the top 90, and that's 12 and 20. And so they don't have to do it at 12 if the right receiver, or say Tate and Tyson are off the board at that point. They could wait till 20 and Omar Cooper Jr., Casey Concepcion, and they'll have options, but that will get interesting quickly. And maybe the pick happens before a trade. I think that the timing of this will be interesting because what do you think the asking price is for Pickens? A second?
It's a wonderful question. I mean, I would want a 1.
I would
for
too,
a guy
especially in this draft.
I would want a 1 too.
yards.
Is that realistic?
I feel like probably not, especially for a guy that's already been traded and was literally just traded a year ago.
Right.
It just feels like he's in such a particular scenario.
He was traded for 3 a year ago.
Right.
And then he had the season that he just had.
And the team he just had that for is willing to trade him again.
And has already said they don't want to pay him anytime soon.
We
It's
know,
very strange.
They're throwing their chips on the tip. Like they're kind of already throwing their chips away.
Pickens is a very unique individual and player and situation. And yes. So I think it's tough to guess where, which team would want to make that trade at this point, and then what it would cost. And so that's another wrinkle of all this. And if a trade's even being discussed.
Which teams make sense? Have you thought about this?
I mean, I made a joke on Twitter before we went on air. We've been speculating recklessly about a mercurial NFC East all-pro receiver getting traded to New England. What if we just had the wrong guy? I mean, that's where my brain goes immediately. We know New England's been after a receiver. It's the worst kept secret in the NFL right now. I mean, Washington, but interdivision trades for a player that big. I don't know.
And they don't have any picks.
And they don't have a whole lot of capital either. That's a great point. New England is just the easiest one. Am I forgetting somebody obvious, Dane? I probably am.
Well, I'm just thinking about teams that in this draft that could be looking at receiver, like the Saints, or would they trade their second round pick, which is pick 42? Is that something that they would look to do? The Chiefs.
Look, I know George Pickens is seen as a headache, and I think the Cowboys would probably say he had a great year, but he is a little bit of a headache. I mean, you think back to the curfew issue that he had last season. The Detroit game was just such a weird performance from him. So I get it. Getting a 2 for a 25-year-old who just had that season would piss me off. I would rather not.
I hadn't thought about it, but we talk about a team that has dealt with some headaches and is open to dealing with them and has the 29th pick in the draft.
Trent McDuffie for Pickens, basically?
Well, now that the entire process, I've been like Denzel Boston going to Kansas City, Denzel Boston going to Kansas City, just because even going back to free agency, Derrik, I think we've been clamoring for the Chiefs to trade for a receiver with that skill set.
Just someone who can win the ball.
Just a big body ball winner outside the numbers. And so in my mind, that was Denzel Boston at 29 this entire time. George Pickens in that spot. The problem is I don't know exactly what the Chiefs cap situation is right now. I know that it's not healthy.
It's not $27.5 million healthy.
And that's going to be part of it, is that if you're going to trade for George Pickens at this point in the offseason, you've kind of handled your finances already. Your cap is set in a way where you're going to have to give him an extension in order to get that cap number down this year.
Vegas is another team that we keep saying needs a big-bodied ball winner. Yeah. Like he could make a little bit of sense there.
I absolutely think he makes sense there.
Yeah.
You're looking at the 36th overall pick from the Raiders, and all the different ways you can try to help out a number 1 pick quarterback that you're about to take, whose name we have not mentioned yet on this show so far, which I think is very telling. But
Vegas has a very good player that didn't have a future there for a while that the Cowboys were a little bit interested in. So, I mean, if we want to get real wild with it, let's just go for the
George
gusto.
Pickens for and like whatever small like maybe the 3rd round pick or whatever, because I don't think you can trade George Pickens straight up for Max Crosby. Max Crosby got traded for 2 first-round picks like a month ago. I think you'd have to have a little bit of a sweetener in there, but essentially trading George Pickens for Max Crosby would be one of the more fun player trades that's ever happened. That's like Champ Bailey for Clinton Portis.
I wouldn't be pissed about that. Put it that way. Like,
wouldn't you have to give up a lot more than I mean, just not knowing the money involved, but wouldn't you have to give up a lot more? Like you just said, it was a 2 first rounds, and all of a sudden
you'd have to give up something.
I think the
else.
Cowboys would have to send something.
But they wouldn't have to give up like their 20th pick.
I don't think so.
I don't think it would have to be 20 and Pickens. That would seem like a lot.
I think that would be. I think that would be a lot. And they're only their 3rd because they don't have a 2nd round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a 3rd round pick and George Pickens for Max Crosby. I don't think that's like a crazy.
The 3rd round pick, which
terms.
You didn't have because you traded for George Pickens, and then you got a 3 back for Oso Odigizua.
Right.
So you never really had that to begin with. Just send it off to Vegas, get Max Crosby. So you get 12. So you have 12, 20, Max Crosby, and then you don't pick again until Saturday. I think I could live with that.
I hate this, by the way. I watched Dallas's offense last year, and
that's so fair.
For years, I had been clamoring for a version of the Cowboys offense that just did like a league average amount of all the things I wanted them to do with a real player on the other side of CeeDee Lamb. We got it for a year. They were a fireworks show for an entire season. And now it's like, we're good.
What if they won 7 games and it just didn't matter?
What if it's Jordyn Tyson and CeeDee Lamb?
There is a very, very small chance that Jordyn Tyson is as good of an NFL player in 2026 as George Pickens was in 2025.
Well,
a very, very small chance.
I think it's worth saying. I don't think this is like a fait accompli. I think this is like a Schrodinger's trade where if the right circumstances happen, that's such a nerdy thing to say. I'm sorry. If the right circumstances,
like 20 minutes into this, you're really letting it fly.
If the right circumstances happen over the course of the night, then this could go down. And like if the receiver Dallas covets is gone, who I do think that would be Jordyn Tyson. If that doesn't happen, then maybe this whole thing is off. You know, like I think some things have to go right for this to go through. I don't think it's a done deal quite yet.
Robert, on the Pickens, like compared to Jordyn Tyson not being what Pickens was last year, that might be as good as, you know, like I feel like Pickens, given his history from Georgia to the Steelers, it was like, I don't think it's a given you're going to get that every year from him. Like that might be the high water, and then it's going to be some problems.
And that's why they haven't paid him, right?
Yeah.
I just think I'm of the mind typically where if you can incentivize a player again because he's playing on the franchise tag, I would be willing to bet on getting a version of that season again because he's in another contract year. Like he's playing for another deal if he plays on the tag. And obviously you're dealing with disgruntled players when you're doing that. And that is worth keeping in mind. But I would, if I were the Cowboys, I would just be trying to squeeze everything I could out of this version of the offense, even if that's kind of a short-term way of thinking about it, because the way that it's constructed right now, what it looked like last year. And I think that they could be even better this year because the offensive line could be healthier. And you didn't have Cooper Beebe last year. Tyler Guyton was banged up. Like, I just had such high hopes for the offense in Dallas as currently constructed that I'm like holding on to it very tight and don't want to let it go.
And it's almost like the offense could be better if the defense is better. Like if they're not in 2-score holes by the middle of the second quarter all the time, the offense might be in a power position where they can just do whatever they want on every single play.
Yeah, the whole thing's very galaxy brained where you're just like, wait, this wasn't the problem. We're creating more work for ourselves. I think I'm numb to second guessing Cowboys nonsense. You can just kind of count on it happening. So,
Bruce, there are a lot of guys in this draft in the top 10 at non-premium positions that were like real stars in college football, like the Jeremiyah Loves, the Caleb Downses, the Sonny Styles. Among all those guys that were the marquee players at the college level last year, whose landing spot are you most interested in the top 10 among that set of players?
In the top 10 or in the top 20?
Let's do top 20 if that's where you want to go.
Yeah, like one of those guys who was a big star in college and was a fun player to watch. And I'm curious to see how his game translates because he's a little polarizing, is Makai Lemon from USC. I know a lot of guys in the NFL who think he can be a really good slot. They don't think he can win outside consistently. There's some guys who think he can. He was a really special player at USC. And you kind of look back at where this draft is. I think people look at a really high floor in Carnell Tate. I think you look at probably more talent, a more dynamic player in Jordyn Tyson. And then it's like a bunch of guys from I feel like once you get past that, anywhere between, we mentioned Omar Cooper Jr. I'm not as big on Omar Cooper as a lot of other people are, but there's a bunch of guys where it's like, okay, there's some traits guys who you could get maybe and may go in the top 60. And I just feel like there's a cluster of those receivers in terms of who fits best for what you want to do and what your expectations are. Whereas Makai Lemon to me is kind of a wild card player in terms of where does he go and what's the fit? If he goes to the Rams, does he end up being a guy that we're talking about going, oh man, this guy turned out to be way better than we thought because he's with the Rams, and the Rams, it seems like a real sweet spot for a lot of receivers. It kind of, McVay is able to bring out the best in them. You obviously got, a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback throwing to him. And you got, who knows where Puka's going to be, but like you got a lot around there. That's why of all the players in the top 20, he's the one I'm probably most curious about, just because I'm not saying he's going to be boom or bust, but he's a guy who's kind of polarizing.
He's been polarizing on this show. I think over the last month, as we've talked about players on this show, I think there's probably the most disparate opinions on Makai Lemon.
It's all on the field stuff. There's nothing off.
Yeah, just all on the field.
No,
because
Derrik just doesn't think he can play.
Derrik thinks Makai Lemon's a bum.
It's what you said at first, where it's like he could be a really good slot, and I think that is absolutely true. I think for me, it's like I don't know if I want to draft a guy who is potentially a pure slot, like in the top 20.
15, yeah.
I think that's a little bit tough. And I think some people have compared it a little bit to like, oh, well, Justin Jefferson only played in the slot in college. And it's like, well, Justin Jefferson is bigger and was an elite athlete when he came out. And so obviously there's some hindsight. He went, 20th or whatever it was. But I also Makai Lemon's film outside is like nice, but I think to me it would take until year 3, year 4 for him to be like a really good outside player. And that's I would rather take guys who their film outside already is a little bit better.
I would like to bring up a player that just won Offensive Player of the Year and had a very similar trajectory to the one that you're talking about right now.
One who's really good down the field. Is Makai Lemon good down the field?
How was Makai Lemon down the field this year in terms of like the opportunities he was given?
I mean, he was fine whatever you asked of him. He wasn't asked to be a true deep threat in that offense.
Neither was JSN in college.
Fair.
I mean, I guess that's also fair, but I don't know. I do not feel like Lemon can run that way. And I guess we didn't think that JSN could at the time either, but we know now that JSN can run.
A lot of hand-wringing about JSN's 40 time when he was
I also
in that
just
draft
thought
site.
JSN's film in college, even if you thought he was a slot, I thought was a tier better than Makai Lemon. So even if we're projecting them purely as slots, like I thought JSN was
the last game I remember JSN playing in college was that
Was it the
He
Utah
had like
game?
330 yards. It was insane.
He could do no wrong.
I will say the similarity between them, though, is if you're looking at the analytical profile for both of those players, it's really, really good for Makai Lemon. Like he averaged 3 yards per route run last year in college. Slot or not, to produce at that level in major college football.
He was the one guy they could count on, right? Because you had Jacoby Lane, who has a lot of talent, not the most reliable guy. And they had the running game was all banged up. Now, say what you want about Lincoln Riley. Like, I feel like he could scheme Dave to like 700 yards receiving.
Let's not get carried away.
500 yards receiving.
Derrik would hate you.
Oh my God.
He would
Get this guy off my
screen.
screen.
The Makai Lemon thing is interesting. We have not talked about Makai Lemon. You and I have not had a Makai Lemon conversation pre-draft here.
Yeah.
So where do you land on this? If this side of the table is open to the idea that in the modern NFL where slot and outside have become a little bit blurrier, we're playing with all these condensed splits. We've seen guys with this sort of profile become elite players in the NFL, let alone passable players in the NFL. And you have Derrik, where anybody under the 6'1" shouldn't be allowed to live. Where do you fall between those two poles here?
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, I think when you're drafting a receiver, especially in the top 20, there's something about their physical profile I think you want to point to and say, okay, well, he's big or he's fast or, and he's 5'11", 190, ran a 4.50, very average size, speed profile. Yeah, I get it. But he doesn't drop the football. He had a 2.8% drop rate in college for his career. And he was I'm going to make the quarterback right type of receiver. Regardless of where the ball was, for a smaller player, he would go make the play. And so the play strength that he has is really unusual for a guy that size. But I think it is fair to question, if you wanted him to line up outside, what is that going to look like in the NFL? And how quickly will he be able to adapt? The Amon-Ra St. Brown comparisons makes sense. But it's just a fine needle you're threading there. And obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th-round pick. And the value of where you have to take this risk is much greater in the top 20. But I think Amon-Ra St. Brown is the path to what it could look like with Makai Lemon.
Can I ask you this? Not arguing with this on this point, but like, so you just mentioned Amon-Ra, and that was where I was going. And we were talking a little bit about Pickens. We know where he got drafted, and now what we think he could command maybe as a trade. If you know what you know about Amon-Ra and how he has been, like, what is he worth at this point? Like, is he?
We asked this exact question a month ago.
So they asked me on the podcast one time, what was it, top 15?
Yeah,
or like at the 15? Was it
like,
like, would you take Amon-Ra St. Brown if you knew he was going to be that at the 15th pick? And I said, like, barely. And the reason I said that was like, in my because in my mind, it's like, okay, if we're playing that game, does that mean the tackle I'm taking at 15, is he going to be guaranteed to be like Jordyn Mailata? And like, that's kind of the game that I'm playing. And I would rather have that almost every single time. Like, if we're playing the game of guarantees. I love that you
used Mailata, the 7th-round pick, as your example.
Well, I mean, he's like a complete. He's
so
like
I think your answer is yes, though. I think you're saying yes.
I would
begrudgingly saying yes.
I would begrudgingly get there, but I just, players of his profile don't go in the 1st round.
But
there's reasons those guys go in the 4th and 5th round.
My counter to that, and that's fair. And I think if we're talking about scarcity of talent at receiver specifically, it's a shifting conversation, because the profile players who can be elite guys in the NFL, it almost becomes more like the way that we talk about safeties. Right? Where you don't need to be these crazy height, weight, speed athletes to be all pro players. You can be a 4th or 5th round pick like Amon-Ra St. Brown or Puka and end up getting there. And should that change how we think about where you need to find your receivers? But I also think on the other side of that argument, players like Makai Lemon are now able to be elite players in the NFL because of what we've changed and what we ask of our receivers. And so I almost think it's pulling from like 2 different directions in terms of, is Makai Lemon worth a top 15 pick?
And I think it's one of those things that, like, he can maybe get there in the right situation and stuff like that. I just think that, like, if I'm getting a 9 out of 10 outcome from either Denzel Boston or Makai Lemon, what the 9 out of 10 outcome is for Denzel Boston is a more valuable player to me.
Sizes him.
Because to me, that's like, because the player I bring up for this is Amon-Ra St. Brown is a fantastic player. I would rather have like a T. Higgins. So I think in a lot of people's minds, it's probably like a half a tier below that. But like that style of player and that what he brings to your offense, to me, gives you a little bit more.
I need him to land with the Rams.
Just
so you have to talk about,
because I would immediately have to eat shit, and I'd be like, oh, well, he'll get 1,400 yards as a rookie.
Larry David meme, like the moment that Makai Lemon gets drafted by the Rams. That's one of the best parts about the draft, and I'm sure we'll do this 30 different times over the next 5 hours, is that you have an opinion of these guys. For Dane, it's for years.
Right.
You're developing what is this guy and how do I feel about him and can he be in the league? And the moment you see the logo next to that player, it shifts your understanding of who he is. It happens immediately.
It was Emmett Warry last year. I did not like him as a prospect. And then Mike McDonald takes him, and I'm like, oh, maybe.
Okay, that was Bo Nix for me. When the Broncos drafted Bo Nix, okay, this might work. Yeah, okay.
To be fair to Derrik, on the flip side of that, like, is there a place Makai Lemon could land where you would just be like, shit, this is gonna be tough for him, at least in the early going?
I mean, if he's the number 1 receiver for the Dolphins, I do feel a little bit bad about that.
Schematically, it makes sense. 16, right? Like,
yes,
yeah.
There are some places where I wouldn't be excited,
right? I mean, like, at least that's happening. The fact that they're in Miami, you'd be the guy. But again, Miami is one of those places now with Bobby Slowick where they're going to be in all those condensed formations, and there are going to be that kind of blurry line between what an outside and a slot receiver are in a way that could work for a guy like Makai Lemon. Just talking through what we're seeing on the screen right now, Cam Hayward, and one of the many times I'm sure we're going to have a 12-minute preamble after Roger Goodell walks to the podium. We have every Steeler that's ever played professional football in Pittsburgh now joining Roger Goodell at the podium.
I think he just, Hines Ward just threw up a Sun Devils for Jordyn Tyson.
I was going to say, Jordyn Tyson's
coach.
Position coach. Yeah.
That, speaking of, if a guy gives you a vote of confidence, if an organization gives you a vote of confidence, the fact that there were toughness questions about Jordyn Tyson, and then like 2 weeks before the draft,
I would separate. There's durability questions,
but there were toughness questions. Whether they were real or not, people were asking, "Is Jordyn Tyson tough?" And then Hines Ward came out 2 weeks ago and was like, this is nonsense.
Yeah.
The fact that it was Hines Ward that came out and said that almost matters more than like any other person
Carries
that can
weight.
vouch for Jordyn Tyson's toughness.
Dane, how do you factor in with all the evaluation of guys who have injury history with like, because I to me, the toughness thing, and obviously I'm dealing in college football all year round, but it's just not, it was like, okay, this guy's had a bad injury history,
Right.
but I don't look at him going, he's a soft guy based off of how he plays.
I was always taught the greatest predictor of future injury is past injury. And so if a guy has a track record of getting hurt, that is going to follow him. Now, obviously each case is different. And, you know, if you have a bad knee, you have a bad knee and you keep getting, it's, you know, but this is a little different because he had a knee, then he had the collarbone, then the soft tissue. And so it's like, okay.
But when Peyton Wilson came out, it was all like it came out of NC State and felt like he was held together by glue. Like I don't think anybody who was like, and maybe I'm wrong, but like thought, oh, this guy's not tough. It was just
I don't think
that kind of thing.
I mean, if anything, he was playing through stuff and I think at the end of that Texas Tech game, right? I mean, Jordyn Tyson was the reason they were in that game late.
Yeah. That sold me on him more than a lot of other stuff where, you know, he's been playing through stuff all year. They used him sparingly. They went to him sparingly in that game. And then with everything on the line in the last 5 minutes, they just over and over and over again went to him. And he delivered with one hamstring.
Yeah.
The Raiders are on the clock, about 7.5 minutes until they pick. For those of you guys watching in the stream right now, we have the NFL Network stream going on. So if you want to sync it up, that's where we're at right now. So if you want just a little bit of context as we move through this here. We have not mentioned Fernando Mendoza's name since we started having this conversation. And I think that's been a consistent theme throughout the draft coverage, just because it's been a foregone conclusion that he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Let's just provide a little bit of context, Dane, for how you see Fernando Mendoza as a prospect. Because you stack him up to other number 1 picks and you try to let Raiders fans know how excited they should be about having the number 1 pick in this year's draft when Fernando Mendoza is the prize. Where do you land with that?
I think with the way that like Mendoza coming into the year was my 19th overall player in my August top 50. So a player we thought was in that first round conversation, a future NFL starter. It took some time for me personally to get on board with him being considered at number 1, but he left zero doubt that in this draft, especially with the quarterback situation, he deserves to be at number 1. Now, that doesn't mean he's a can't miss prospect by any means. I mean, there are elements of his profile that give you a little bit of concern, that RPO heavy offense in Indiana, the fact that I don't know how many real full field reads he was asked to make. And it's not that he can't do it. It's just that was the offense at Indiana. And it was an offense that believed in balance. And so the run game was a big part of what they were doing. So there are some questions, but I'm going to bet on the quarterback with the intelligence that he has, the toughness, the intangibles, the accuracy, and let's let the results fall or see what turns out. And I think with the Raiders, especially a team that's been in the quarterback wilderness here for a minute, this is the type of player you take, you bet on. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you make this bet every time.
There are holes in Fernando Mendoza's game when you compare him to like elite quarterback prospects and elite quarterbacks, period. He is not a creative player. When things break down, if he's not scrambling, there isn't a lot late in the down that he's doing that's beneficial to your offense. That's full stop. He takes a lot of sacks. I do think that's a weakness to his game. The RPO element, absolutely think that's worth mentioning. Derrik, what I've been a little bit surprised by after watching Fernando Mendoza and then hearing the conversation around him, you're an arm strength snob. We can. I think that's fair to say.
I am.
Right?
I am.
And so when you watch Fernando Mendoza, how would you categorize the arm that Fernando Mendoza has?
I mean, there are multiple throws on film with him where we all focus on like the throwing outside of the numbers, and that's a huge thing. If you've got the arm to do that, that's incredible. The ones that blow my mind with Mendoza are he's throwing like 50 and 60 yard post routes with velocity on a dot, on a rope. The arc is incredible. And I'm like, that's what it looks like when maybe not Matthew Stafford, but like Jordan Love or Ben Roethlisberger has peaked like that caliber of arm strength where it's not quite in that like S tier special, oh my God, but that next tier of like truly he can make every throw. And I think when he's on the run, he's very comfortable. Actually, so like he's not a creative player like you mentioned, but when they boot him, when they roll him, sprint outs and stuff like that, I think he throws comfortably and you see him get a lot of RPMs on the ball. And so he to me is like, there's no question that he can make every single throw.
I think there are times where we watch guys that put every ounce of their body into every throw and they get those RPMs. We think that guy has a strong arm.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield is somebody I was thinking about. JJ McCarthy is somebody I was thinking about. Fernando Mendoza never does that. And the ease with which he can get stuff on these throws and the ease of which he's always throwing, that to me is what sticks out. And that's why when I watch him, I am impressed with the arm that he has, because there isn't a lot of oomph that he needs to be putting into these throws to be getting this sort of velocity. And so I actually think that aspect of his game has been underrated in the conversation because, again, he just does it so smoothly so often.
I also don't think people realize how big he is.
He's
in
huge.
person.
Totally.
He is, and some of it I think might be because when you see him on a podium, he's got this like happy howdy doody face smile.
Yes.
And so there's like, obviously there's a nerdy quality to him and that he has kind of embraced. And I think people don't give him the credit athletically. You know, he runs better than I think a lot of us thought he did when he was coming out of Cal. The other thing is the toughness and the willingness to stand in and just get his teeth kicked in to make a throw. The biggest plus factor for me with him is the resilience, and it's like the mental quality, because we saw this so much in college football last year. At Iowa, good defense, tough place to play, throws a pick, bounces right back, next series goes out, leads them to win. Next game, they play at Oregon. It's a game that at that point, that program had not won. You know, they made the playoffs, but they didn't beat anybody that good. Now they're in a tough place to play. He throws a pick six, and I'm just thinking, here it goes. They're going to crumble. And he leads them on a touchdown drive the next series.
12 plays.
Yeah, amazing, right? And then even at Penn State, throws an great pass, great catch, Omar Cooper Jr. They win in a tough place to play. And then at Miami, they pummeled him, and he was able to.
So many shots in that game.
And so there's a play where, fourth down, they're going to kick. And Cignetti calls timeout and sends the offense, and he runs it in, and it was like the Miami linebacker he ran over was the same guy who basically concussed him a year earlier when he was at Cal. So I just think his toughness and his resilience are as good as you can get.
It's very interesting to me, like the career arcs, not comparing them as players, but the career arcs between him and Joe Burrow are very similar. But Joe Burrow had this aura, like smoking the cigar, Joe Cool, just
being around him a lot, was as smart a football player as I've ever been around. Like he was a coach on the field. He's a former basketball player who was really good. And I think you got that athleticism in the position where he was just in total control. And obviously had better players around him, especially the receivers were off the charts. But I just thought Joe Burrow, when you said can't miss, I'm like, man, there's almost nobody I would say is a can't miss. Like I thought Andrew Luck was, Joe Burrow was the guy I was highest on, and I wouldn't go this far with him, but both really, really smart who were doubted. This guy was a 2-star guy. And then, Cal came in on him late. He was committed to Yale. Yeah. So
my comp for him was Bernie Kosar. And so Derrik, Bernie was this quarterback. Bruce, I mean, I'm sure he
moves better than Bernie Kosar.
Yes, he's a better athlete. But I think a quarterback that relies on the toughness, the intelligence, and the accuracy. It's a little awkward at times, but he understands his strengths and he gets the job done. And it'll be really interesting to see how this works out in Vegas with this quarterback that's just a little bit different than other quarterbacks we've seen go number one. Well,
and I think personality-wise is also part of that. And the fact that he's landing in that quarterback room with Kirk Cousins, there's just something so perfect about that. I do think that I did a story about this a few years ago, and I remember talking to Chase Daniel specifically about it. The role that veteran quarterback plays in the quarterback room for a highly drafted guy. And one of the things that he told me about in working with Justin Herbert is that Justin's kind of reserved, right? And so when you become the starting quarterback in an NFL building, and you are now in those meetings going through all right, what's the game plan look like? What do I like? What do I not like? You have to be assertive in communicating what your likes and dislikes are in order to make sure that the offense is tailored to what you are most confident in. You have to find your voice as part of those discussions. And I think that having a guy like Kirk Cousins that's personality-wise might be a little bit similar to Fernando Mendoza. I honestly think that that's a path to him finding his version of his voice in the NFL in a way that a quarterback who's very different than him might not be able to model early in his career. I just think there are a lot of benefits to Kirk being there and being able to kind of show him the ropes early on.
That's a good point, because I think that who's in that quarterback room is a big part of a quarterback's development. And I think we need to pay attention to that on day 2 and day 3 of this draft to see how the quarterbacks come off the board. Because if a team is not convinced that as a backup you're going to be an asset to the quarterback room, you're going to be bumped down a little bit, which might help a Carson Beck, or we'll have to see how it plays out. But
It'll probably help Garrett Nussmeier out because people like coach's
potentially,
kid.
yeah.
right?
Think he'd,
Exactly. So
in.
that's something to pay attention to with the rest of the quarterbacks in this class.
I hadn't thought about it until right now, but it's funny that this is the second time in Kirk's career he'll be in a quarterback room with the Heisman Trophy winner who was drafted highly to turn a moribund franchise around. Obviously, he was a rookie back then, and
he
now
was competing for that job.
And he was, and he was after that job.
Way different personality.
Yes. Very slightly, yes.
He's had a lot of other first-round pick quarterbacks drafted around him and near him.
A couple different things to get to here. Obviously, we knew what Fernando Mendoza was going to be the pick. That's why we didn't tell you the pick was in. For a lot of these, we will be letting you know when the pick is in and what it is. Also, if you're joining us for the first time on the Athletic Football Show YouTube feed, would encourage you to like this video, but also subscribe. We do the show every single day during the season, 4 times a week in the offseason. We'd love to be your home for NFL coverage on YouTube. So if this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Speaking of the picks being in, the pick is in for the New York Jets at number 2. You still feeling good that it's going to be Arvell, Reese?
Oh, I don't feel good that it is. It's a coin flip, really. I mean, I have no intel about which way they're going. And I mean, we're not tipping picks here. So we're going to find out with everybody else who the pick is going to be. I feel good it's going to be an edge rusher.
It's
I know
funny.
that.
I wasn't looking. I like we have it on TV here in the back of the studio. I wasn't looking during the whole Mendoza thing because I didn't whatever. I've known that since January, and now I'm just like glued in on this thing because I have no clue what it is.
The last thing about Mendoza, Derrik, I wanted to ask you, his fit in that offense and working with Clint Kubiak and kind of going to that more, I mean, this has been the offensive meta in the league now for like 30 years because of the guy's
The
dad
entire
that's
time
now
that
the
I've
head
been doing
coach.
this,
Yes.
yeah.
And so he's going from a very college-heavy offense to a very pro-heavy offense. That's often overstated now, I think, in the way that we talk about the jump. In this specific case, I do think it's pretty real. How do you think Fernando Mendoza acclimates to that sort of offense early on as they try to figure out when it's right to play him?
I think, one, the fact that they have a guy who's been in that style of offense and literally worked with Clint Kubiak before, I think it's in Kirk Cousins, obviously. I think that is going to be a huge help for him. And then to me, there are just a lot of similar things about Mendoza that are like Sam Darnold, the athleticism, throwing on the run, all that stuff that to me, the transition I don't think is going to be that hard. I think Kubiak should have an easy time of fitting him into the offense.
All right. Goodell is at the podium here with the Jets pick. Let's see what it is for the New York Jets here at number 2. It's David Bailey.
Okay.
David Bailey going to the New York Jets. Dane, how you feeling?
No 30 visit needed.
Yeah.
This will be the first time he goes to the facility, which, look, we talked about it before the show. Like, this is the more polished and pass rusher. And for the Jets, a coaching staff that needs this team to produce now, I think it makes sense that they go this direction over the player that's probably has better upside, but is more of a projection than Bailey. So totally understand why they went this direction here.
I don't know if this is a fair comparison or a fair point to make, but like last year, the Giants took Abdul Carter at 3. I think he's a better player than Abdul Carter.
Ooh,
oh, really?
What makes you say that?
I think he's just a better edge rusher. He's got a lot of polish. He's really, really explosive and twitchy. Like, I know guys who've worked with him, and Von Miller's name has come up with NFL people I know in terms of just like some rare get off in what he can do. And he's strong. I think he's stronger than people gave him credit for. Like, he's not a 239-pound, edge rusher guy. Like, he's been in the weight room. He's physically strong. I think he's a really bright kid. And again, a little unfair probably to go to, Carter spent a big chunk of his career as a linebacker. It's probably the more like compare him to Arvell Reese, a little bit. But that guy went 3rd and he was really good for the Giants. And I'm not saying he's not really good. I think that's how good I think he is. Again, I don't think the Jets could screw this up. I think they have two guys who are both going to go to a lot of Pro Bowls, either him or Reese.
What I've said about David Bailey, I actually did the Beast Breakdown video that we did for him, and he was one of the first players I really studied in this class. And talking about strength, to me, he's powerful. He's not strong, because to me, strong is in tight areas. Like, his torque strength and his ability to kind of hold up in a phone booth, especially as a run defender, you don't really see the strength until he can get going. But when he has a little bit of a runway, he's so explosive that he becomes powerful. When you see him have a couple steps and then put his helmet into a guy's chest and convert speed to power. He can do that. And so it's not just like he's a speed guy.
Right. And that's fair. It's interesting comparing him to Abdul Carter, because I guess, I don't know, I had a higher grade on Carter, but I totally get it. And with Bailey, it can be tough when you talk about Big 12 and the competition he faced, but I'd say in the playoff game, it felt like a one-man wrecking crew.
He was the one guy who got after Oregon.
Oh, yeah, he did. And I mean, no matter what the score was, I mean, the offense couldn't put points on the board for Texas Tech. It felt like Bailey was one of the few keeping them in that game, even in the second half, because of his ability to put pressure on the quarterback.
I think what you said, Robert, about strength versus power is a good way to put it, because I think what separates, like, there's a lot of things that separate Will Anderson from other players, but he is very strong for a guy who's his size, who's only like barely over 250 when he came out. He's probably not that much bigger than that now. Maybe closer. He's probably closer to 260
defender
now.
in Alabama than we did as a pass rusher.
He was playing like 4-eye at Alabama,
but he's not as switchy. In fairness, he's not as switchy as Bailey.
Yes.
Like,
I don't know.
I think coming out, that's true. I think what Will Anderson has turned into,
right?
That to me is the difference.
Which maybe if Bailey can find another notch the way that Anderson did, then you're getting into a special category where he is like a Von Miller. Bailey was a player where I think he can be good, but it's funny that he goes to the Jets, because my comparison for him has been like Will McDonald, who's a very good pass rusher, like I think he had like 12.5 sacks this year. Like, he can get you a lot of pass rush. I do worry a little bit more about the run defense and what that's going to look like, especially if those two guys are out there together.
I will say, the way they've built that room, I actually do think that Kingsley Enagbare is a good complementary piece to
and
guys.
Osai.
And Osai. I think those guys, if you can play them on early downs, and have a guy like Enagbare kind of take those bullets early on, while Bailey is a little bit more situational early in his career, they've completely remade that room. I mean, now with Osai, Enagbare, and David Bailey, they have 3 new guys out of the 4 rotational pass rushers they're going to have after trading Jermaine Johnson. And now you add T'Vondre Sweat to that. Like, we have an entirely new front seven for the Jets heading into this year. They needed a new team.
Yes.
Yeah, and everybody in the Jets need to be swapped out.
You add up the sacks in this room, it was comparable to the sacks the Jets had last year.
We had more interceptions.
He's done a lot of work between all the work on as a receiver and now this. He's an edge rusher.
He's a two-way player.
Yeah.
Everyone talked about Travis Hunter being that guy last year. It was actually Dave Helman.
No, he's such a talent, though. He actually had the highest miles per hour at the combine among all front 7 defenders, so including linebackers.
He's crazy,
including Sonny Styles and those. Yeah, it was 22.91. So it's interesting. Cardinals, they're not trading out.
I was going to say they have made a pick. They were celebrating like a team that was about to turn in a card. So
I'm fascinated by what this is, because every fiber of my being says it should be Arvell Reese.
Right.
Every fiber of my being.
But
and based on what we've heard all week, could it be Jeremiyah Love?
What if them screaming about a trade was just not thinking that Reese was going to be there and being like, we don't like David Bailey enough that we want to get out of it. But now that he's there, they're like, I guess we will stick and pick.
Yeah, it's possible.
And I think that this is a team where it's happened in bad ways, right? Like, there have been so many hybrid players that the Cardinals have drafted over the last 10 years.
Yeah,
like
I wouldn't blame a
one from
Cardinal fan for
Clemson
being
who
scared.
Was like, they didn't know what to do with him.
The Cardinals fans are just scarred.
Zaven Collins, Hassan Reddick,
De'Ami
Buchanan.
There have been so many of these guys. But I will say, they converted Zaven Collins being a full-time pass rusher. He was more useful there. And then when you combine the fact that Nick Rallis, they're going to blitz a lot. And I think in this system, even if this franchise and its fan base have a lot of scar tissue when it comes to these hybrid sort of players, I do think Arvell Reese in this spot for the Cardinals is a very worthwhile decision, if it is Arvell Reese.
No doubt. It might be the running back, though. It might be Jeremiyah Love.
My tone will be different if it's Jeremiyah Love. That's what I'll tell you right now.
I'll fight for it. Look,
we're gonna find out in a minute.
Jeremiyah Love might be the best player in the draft. So
I think when you tell me it's over Arvell Reese, it's hard for me to get there. I think if he was gone, I could probably, but that would be tough.
Here's Goodell. It's Jeremiyah Love. Wow, man.
All right, so here's my pitch.
Wow.
The Cardinals just got the player in this draft who impacts the scoreboard more than any other non-quarterback in this draft. So
does he do that if the rest of the offense isn't up to snuff?
I think even with the situation in Arizona, I think he will impact. He will have more of an impact on the scoreboard than anyone else they could have drafted here. And I love Arvell Reese. He's the best player in this draft, in my opinion. But that would be, you're coming away from this draft with the most explosive player in the draft. And this is a team that, regardless of the rest of the roster, they needed a presence like this. And so I agree with you with all of you in terms of the timing about how you are going to drop in this running back in terms of where the roster construction is. But it's just a hard player to pass on.
A couple of good other things with him. The Notre Dame coaches I know said he could have been a wide receiver. That's how good he is at that. Best pass protector in the draft. He also, if you look at him compared to Genty, who went 5 last year, Genty had more carries in his last season at Boise State than he had in his last 2 years at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And to me, he's so much more dynamic than Genty. If you just watch him, like if you said he's even not a touch better than Bijan Robinson, I wouldn't argue with that.
He's in that class with Bijan. Yes. So
I can't get behind this.
I just can't. No matter who the running back is.
It has nothing to do with Jeremiyah.
It has nothing to do with Jeremiyah Love. And I think for other teams, I think it's easy. We've had a lot of conversations about running backs in the top 10 over the last month. I've really softened my stance on this in a lot of ways. I think this is where you find difference-making running backs if you look at the league currently. You find them in the first half of the first round. The real special guys. I just think for Arizona specifically, they are so far away and they need so many players at premium positions. You can still find workable.
The Eagles adding Saquon.
Exactly. You can find workable running backs in the second round. If you don't have a right tackle, you're never going to do anything anyway. And you could say, well, they can't draft a right tackle in this spot. You don't think a team would have come up for Arvell Reese? You don't think they could have done that? Like, to me, this is we trade out of here and find a player at a different position. I can't get on board with this.
I think the offense is closer to good than we give it credit for. Like, we were excited about it in 2024, and it's a lot of the same pieces. They had a lot of weird stuff.
Seumalo's there.
Seumalo is a better player. They do still. The right tackle situation is atrocious.
Fovo is a free agent after this year. They need 3 starters along the offensive line after this season.
They do, and like they will need to address that at some point. But again, they weren't going to get that here. Maybe they could have traded out and done that. But like, again, I would not have done this. I would have taken Arvell Reese because the defense is terrible and they just need so many players on that side. But the reason they were picking 3rd is because the defensive roster was young and kind of weird going into last year. And then they just were decimated by injuries.
Yeah.
And then just the weird quarterback situation. And so obviously the quarterback situation is going to overhold for this year, but maybe next year you find your guy, or maybe you can trade for a veteran, whatever it's going to be. Like, you weren't going to address quarterback right now. I'm doing the draft thing where, like, now that the pick is in, I'm like, it's not as bad. I still would have taken Reese.
It's so hard for me to get there.
I know the answer. I know the answer for all of these guys, Bruce. It's just you and me. What if they add Ty Simpson later on? Like, I'm skipping way ahead. Oh no, that doesn't do anything for you. I'm on an island here.
I'm not banging the drum for Ty Simpson tonight.
Okay. It's just you, Dave.
Then I run out of it. I run out of ways to get excited about this. Just because really, I think you make a good point, Derrik, that I think the injuries that happened in Arizona and the fact that they punted on quarterback after they cut Kyler Murray just make it hard to get excited about this team. If you gave me a modicum of confidence in the quarterback position, I could probably jump onto this bandwagon.
I want you to go look at the state of the offensive line and talk yourself into that again. I want you to go take a look at that.
Okay.
I just want you to go look at it and talk yourself into it.
It does need work, but it's already, to me, better right now than it was last year. Like, the drop in right tackle is not, to me, as bad as the jump they're getting from left guard.
The right side's a disaster, so we just run to the left. That's fine. We'll just run. We'll run off left tackle.
Just don't tell the defense.
Yeah.
You want to hear my super cynical view on this? This is my super cynical.
Yes.
This is how bad decision. This is how bad teams stay bad. This is a GM on the hot seat.
Totally.
Who needs a player that is at least going to be fine.
He can say that he drafted a top 5 running back in the NFL.
And when at the end of this year,
that's not something you should brag about. Like,
I don't think he's bragging. I think Robert's just pointing it out.
I think this is there are incentives if you're a general manager to draft a running back in the top 5 because I absolutely
it's
think
self-preservation.
He is safer.
I totally agree.
He is a
that
safer
point makes a lot of sense.
And I think that is a bad way to look at this. I just think when you're in a situation where the Cardinals are, you need foundational pieces. You find foundational pieces at more positions that value at this stage in the draft than you do running back. I truly believe that, even if I do think there's a lot of recent history that shows us the benefits of taking a running back at this high.
6.9 yards per carry the last 2 years. I think what he can do as a pass catcher, I agree. He's the best pass protector in terms of as a blocker. All right, Tennessee's up now. Is this going to be an Ohio State defender, either Styles or Arvell Reese?
It's a nice
It's
choice.
not Arvell Reese. I'm going to be like, where are we going with
Nice
this?
If I was a
choice to
Giants
have
fan, I'd
fallen
be
into their
over the
laps.
moon if Arvell Reese fell to me.
Mm-hmm.
Carnell
Really?
at number 4.
Told you it's Ohio State.
Cam Ward and Joyers.
Wow.
We are up.
They said, we're helping Cam Ward come hell or high water.
Yeah.
Who gives a crap if Jeremiah Love's not there?
So here's I understand this because I was going to ask you this, Derrik.
Mhm.
Arvell Reese in this defense,
Mhm.
I don't think this defensive system is as well suited to get the most out of Arvell Reese as other defenses might be. I think they look at Arvell Reese and they're kind of like, what do I do with this in this exact sort of defense? And so if that's where you're sitting and you really need another outside receiver for your young quarterback, this isn't as crazy as it seems, given how much you guys love Arvell Reese, in my opinion.
Gus Bradley would have just put him at weak side end and say, go get the quarterback, which like maybe he can be really good at that. And maybe he just turns out as good as Abdul Carter. We don't know, but like it would not have been as cool as him landing in other spots potentially. And so this is one where I get it too. Like Tate's a good player. He's a player that I don't think typically would go top 5, but just looking at how bad the pass catching core was in Tennessee, it's like, I get why they feel like they need a guy who, even if at best Tate is like a 1B and not a true 1, they just need anybody at this stage. And so I kind of get this one.
I think this is going to be fantastic. And watching Cam Ward throw vertically to Cam Tate or Carnell Tate, I mean, I think it's something that he's a 3-level threat, but that vertical pacing and the way he tracks the ball has a chance to be really, really good in the league. And so I don't know that Tate's ever going to be someone we look at as a tier 1 receiver, but for the Titans, I like this fit.
It's kind of how we talked about Calvin Ridley at his best.
Actually,
It's kind of like
they
that
are pretty
tier of
similar
player when
players,
Calvin
yes.
Ridley was at his best in Atlanta.
And why I would say I really like this is my biggest frustration with watching the Titans last year is Ward would make these like really smart, aggressive throws and just hits it. Hits it in the hands, doesn't get it.
Twice a
or
week.
he doesn't come back to the ball correctly, whatever it's going to be. I am so certain that every time the ball is near Carnell Tate, he's going to do the right thing to make it easy for Cam Ward.
Oh, yeah.
And if they can just sleep at night knowing that he's got that, I think this makes everybody
He had
better.
the best contested catch rate among all receivers at college football this
And
year.
Ward will test that.
No doubt. He had 0 drops. So I just think this is a player that is, we mentioned with Jeremiah Love being a little safe. I think this is.
Is this the highest
safe.
floor guy in the draft?
You can make that argument, sure. Yeah.
Like, who would-
Love is probably.
I mean,
I think those two and Downs are to me where like I'm positive I have a good player here.
Yeah. Downs is a good one to bring up too
Yeah.
in that conversation.
It's such a funny transition from what they did at receiver last year, where they had all these young guys, but they had all these young projecty guys. It's like, I don't know, Elko Io Manor, let's see how it goes.
Right.
And when you watch Carnell Tate, it's like the exact opposite. His feel for the position, what he's bringing to the table. I brought up that play against Texas a million times that I've talked about him, where he's on the right sideline and he comes back 7 yards to the ball, and just how friendly he is to the quarterback and how much easier he makes it on the quarterback. Watching a guy like Carnell Tate, putting that with Cam Ward after what Cam Ward had to deal with last year, I completely understand doing that if you're Mike Borgonzi.
I'll borrow Dane's phrasing. He's got the go-go gadget arms, and he just attacks the football. I feel so much better about Cam Ward right now than I did. And I let out a bit. I freaked out mainly, and it goes back to what we said at the top of this. It's just not what we were conditioned to expect for the last 2 months, and the league is already telling us. I mean, I thought about this heading into today, where I was like, obviously the Titans like Jermaine Johnson. They traded for him. You have one of the best line wreckers in the league in Jeffrey Simmons. If you don't feel like edge rusher is that urgent, help the quarterback. I really have no problem with it.
To try to make this, he's going to be your franchise guy. He desperately needs it,
And they paid for Wando Robinson. There's very, very different players.
Yeah, there's no overlap.
There's zero overlap between those two guys. There's more overlap with what Calvin Ridley is, but Calvin Ridley's not going to be on the Titans after this season.
Similar to the way we were talking about David Bailey and the jump he made from Stanford as a junior to a senior at Texas Tech. I mean, Bruce, it was kind of the same thing with Tate, where he wasn't, obviously Ibuka was there and he wasn't asked to be the guy, but he took a big step between what he was as a sophomore to what we saw as a junior.
I think a little of that too was you probably had a more,
right.
Julian Sand's a more polished passer than Will Howard. The offense was a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Chip was going to run it. Chip Kelly was going to run it a lot more, certainly with the quarterback, with Will Howard. I think what they did, and obviously, and this is no knock on him, and obviously went in top 5, but people would be like, oh, he was never a 1 there. Well, the guy who's still there would have been a 1 no matter what Ohio State receiver. You could have stuck Joey Galloway in his prime back there, and Jeremiah Smith's going to be the number 1. Like, he was just that, special. But again, I go back to it, like a couple things. Like, when was the last Ohio State receiver that was like a disappointment that's come out?
Devin Smith.
That's
probably
the answer.
You got to go back a long way.
You got to go back a lot of receivers then. Not just a long way, but there's like 11 guys who feel like they got drafted in the first round in that or second round.
And some of them were not necessarily like the clear ones. Like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave like kind of shared that. Right, exactly. Like a lot of those guys have been good despite not being like the clear alpha in that room.
And I think to that point where if a criticism is, he's getting, or Jeremiah Smith's drawing all the attention, so he's getting more one-on-one matchups, there's enough examples on film where, I think about that touchdown against Wisconsin where he catches it over, 2 different defenders. There's enough on film where he has to create his own spacing, and it's not just, okay, we're so focused on Smith that Tate's getting a free ride over here. I don't think that's the case.
I mean, you'd say he was the most polished receiver in this draft?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And 3 level too, short, intermediate, and deep. He's one of the best sideline receivers I think I've ever scouted. And I think his ability to tightrope the white and then how long he is, like what Dave was saying, he's rescuing some of these balls and bringing them back in bounds. I mean, that's just one of those things that I can't say that I noticed with every receiver, but with Tate, I noticed it almost every game. It was really impressive he was doing that.
Really feisty player too. Like he's not afraid to mix it up with some guys on the, on the second, third level of a play.
The verticality to me is what separates him from a guy like Jordyn Tyson. Like you watch Jordyn Tyson and that, like the route running and the explosion, like you see all that stuff, but he just didn't threaten guys down the field in the same way that Carnell Tate did. Even if Tate's time speed isn't overwhelming, he's got that really smooth acceleration. Like he knows how to pace it. Like his ability to attack people down the field, that to me is what were the tiebreakers in terms of like how you would stack them up? That to me is what put Carnell Tate at the top of that list.
Tedero McMillan went in the first top 10 last year. All he did was a 40-yard dash the entire process, 4.53. Carnell Tate, all he did the entire process was a 40, ran a 4.53. They're different players, but I think teams are focusing on their strengths and maybe not just the average speed with these players. So
the Giants pick is in, and this now becomes fascinating.
It's got to be an Ohio State player, right?
It probably has to be, right? But so now we'll see what the pick is, and then we can talk about what you're weighing here if you're the Giants, because now you have 2 off-ball linebackers, and I think you can make an argument that Arvell Reese is as good of an off-ball linebacker prospect as Sonny Styles is.
I've said that. Like, there's a little bit more of like, Styles is bigger, but like in terms of quality, like I said, I would take Arvell Reese as a top 10 player purely as an off-ball guy.
Mm-hmm.
So how they end up making this decision, and then obviously Caleb Downs is in play here. We've talked about Caleb Downs here.
Offensive line probably, or
you can't rule it out. Yeah. Sure,
but they have that pick at 10. Right. And so that changes the calculus here if you're the Giants.
John Harbaugh, it's a wild card here.
I can't wait to see what this is. Because also with the Giants, often if you're looking at Arvell Reese compared to a Sonny Styles, they're going to run a defense where you could use a edge rusher like Arvell Reese. That's the one area of the Giants roster where you probably don't need another guy.
But they could just trade Kayvon too.
They absolutely could.
Yeah, which there's already been talks about that. And so
we knew the Giants would be the intriguing team. I didn't think this would be what we were talking about with Arvell Reese still on the board here. Yeah, so the Giants are picking at 10. So obviously, the wide receiver. And there it is.
There we go.
There it is. So we get Arvell Reese at 5 here. And you could have gone this. You've done this a million times.
Yeah.
Did you ever in your mind think that Arvell Reese would be going to the Giants at 5 as you went through all these mock scenarios?
Thought there was a chance he would, if he did get past Titans, maybe he would fall a little bit. I think the Giants would be the landing spot. It just, and that's why I think, people screaming at me the last 4 months about mock drafts and, they don't need that, or that's not their top need. That's not how teams draft. Teams will draft based off of impact potential more so than Madden looking at your depth chart and saying, okay, we need this or need that. Arvell Reese was the best player on the board, and that's what they're coming away with here. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how they use this all together.
Kayvon Thibodeau is in the final year of his contract. I also don't think Kayvon Thibodeau should be preventing you from drafting Arvell Reese if you think that Arvell Reese is a special player.
Oh, absolutely not. He was already a rotational player for them. Like, you should. I also think, like, they're probably in a position where if they like whatever the package is going to be and they don't want to extend him, they should probably trade him. But, like, having 4 pass rushers, if you think that you are closer, then, like, it's not really a bad idea.
We just saw a team win the Super Bowl because they had like 6 edge rushers.
7 million of them.
I would never blame a team for just continuing to do this.
We could see it's, Thibodeau be dealt this weekend as possible. Now that this is what the direction the Giants went.
Dane, from a usage standpoint, like, we know what Ohio State and Matt Patricia did with Arvell Reese.
Right.
If you're the Giants, would you use him as an off-ball linebacker on 1st and 2nd downs and then cut him loose on 3rd down?
This year specifically, that probally is the thing to do.
I say that's
Isn't
part
that
of the
what the
appeal.
Cowboys did.
Yeah, the Cowboys did that early on with
Yeah.
Micah Parsons.
Absolutely. I mean, even with the last year he was in Dallas, they would put him over the A gap. They would do these different things where that's the appeal with Reese is you can stand him up as a stack, or if you want him to put his hand on the ground, he could do that. It's just the movement skills, the power, the violence that he plays with. It's so unique. And so he is very much a chameleon and a player that whatever you want him to be, he can do that for you. And I think there's a ton of value in that.
Imagine 3rd and 8. And you have Arvell Reese lined up over the center. You have Abdul Carter bumped inside. You have Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns out
Good
there,
luck.
like 3rd and 8.
I love this pick. Just, I mean, like Brian Burns, it's crazy. You have that kind of, that kind of pressure you can get on quarterbacks in passing situations. Those guys. I mean, that's crazy.
And he's 20 years old. Not even scratching the surface of what he can be. 1-year starter, basically. He had 2 starts as a sophomore, kind of filling in as a linebacker. And all of last offseason, he practiced as a linebacker. And then as the season got going, they started to let him loose more. And it started in the opener against Texas, where he's forklifting a 300-pound guard because he just has 3 steps of a start where he creates that explosion. And I mean, the best things that he does as a spy, where you see that closing burst and he just flies to the quarterback, it could be a difference-making part of your defense if you use him correctly.
Yeah, I know guys who worked with him this offseason and talk about just how raw he was as a pass rusher and stuff, where, like, literally, you hear the terms just scratching the surface. Like, it seems like that's what he is on that, but you just see the rare traits with him.
Is Arvell Reese and Tremaine Edmonds the biggest pairing of off-ball linebackers in the history of professional football?
It's very, like,
If that's where they play him, it would have to be pretty close. I mean, like, Hightower and Jamie Collins felt like they were big, but I don't know if
back in the day when the Steelers had when Chad Brown was there, they had Levon Kirkland, and I remember Chad Brown was like, Levon played at like 320.
I'm talking about pure height. And there we go.
Oh,
the Chiefs now on the clock at 6, trading up with the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns get out.
We knew the Browns would get out.
That's
right.
Called it. So now
we get a 3rd and a 5th.
So a third and a 5th to move up 3 spots, which is actually not too bad if you're the Chiefs here. So who is this for?
I would be shocked if it's not Caleb Downs, specifically because of the Spagnuolo defense. We've seen how important it is to have safeties who can really move all around and they can be like the commander of your defense. Like, that goes a really long way in Spags
Chiefs
defense.
Fans killed me when I put Caleb Downs there.
And that's so crazy to me.
Killed me. They don't draft safeties.
But that you have felt the difference.
Like that don't come around.
Right.
You have felt the difference on that team in a world where they have not had that type of safety. And even after signing Alohi Gilman in free agency, Chamari Connor and Jaden Hicks are the 2 other guys there. Neither of them should be preventing you from doing this, especially with how often Connor has played in the slot for them. Like, Connor's in the final year of his deal. Like, Caleb Downs in this defense specifically, if that is the pick for Kansas City,
well,
I think makes a ton
what
of
other
sense.
options? I mean, with Sonny Styles is here. I don't think they go offensive line.
They wouldn't take him out. They wouldn't take
I
him
don't
out.
think they would trade
surprising.
up to do that. Yeah.
So here we go. Pick is in. Mansoor Delane.
Okay.
Interesting.
after 2 months, myself included, I'm not talking shit, but after 2 months of people saying, the Chiefs get their corners from anywhere. They don't need to do that. They'll go get the next McDuffie or the next.
Did you have to
Jamar
move up
Conner.
to get him there?
They thought so.
It's a great question.
That's interesting.
I mean, I would
the
say
Saints were ahead of
the
them.
Saints-
and
the other-
Saints,
the Saints-
Well,
need-
the Commanders too. The
Commanders
Commanders
as
need
well.
corners.
Yep.
So
And on top, I mean, they could be worried about a team like Dallas coming up for
Right.
him. I mean,
Dane, just from, we talked about this a little offline with Jermon McCoy, really talented, athletic cornerback from Tennessee, but with knee questions. Do those questions boost the stock of Delane, you think, because there's just a gap now between him and the next corner?
probably, but I also think he had the best cornerback tape of any player in this
Just really
draft.
clean.
I mean, the graphic is up there. You had him at 6 on your big board. You were higher on Mansoor Delane
Yep.
than the consensus was. He was your 6th overall player.
And it's just the tape is so clean, and it was, no offense, it was hard to watch that LSU defense.
brother, you don't have to tell me.
I know, but it was enjoyable because of watching Delane and how, I mean, it doesn't matter if zone, man, press, off, whatever you asked him to do, his route anticipation and ability to understand exactly what the offense tried to do and his ability to close and make plays on the ball, so impressive. And so I don't think he's a 4.3 athlete like he had at the pro day, but I don't think he's well above the bar of what you're looking for at the position. So this is a really clean player. And I guess because the Commanders at 7, the Saints at 8, those are 2 spots where we could have seen Delane go. I give the Chiefs credit for being aggressive to go get him.
I know when there was a time in the middle of the season where I felt like people were like, I don't know how fast he is. There was that question. And I remember talking to one of the LSU coaches. He was like, we got fast dudes here. It's like a track team. Now, those weren't great receivers, but they could really run. He was like, nobody's running by him here.
I heard from my own people at LSU that, like, I don't want to bill it as a concern. Clearly, it's not a concern. The guy just went 6th overall. I think if he had freakier speed, we would have been like, well, yeah, of course, you're going up for Mansoor Delane.
Longer.
Or he is very similar to Caleb Downs in the sense of, like, he is not a bad athlete. He's just not a freaky athlete that would guarantee you get drafted in a slot like this. But
Dane, I know this is probably not apples to apples, but like, who do you like more coming out? He's more polished than Witherspoon?
I mean,
similar size guys,
right? Witherspoon had this
edge to him.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was just the moment he met with Pete Carroll. That was it. The pick was done. Like, they knew how different he was. But just in terms of like what's on tape,
Similar,
right? I can understand why that is a name that would would pop up with Delane. I mean, what he did, Virginia Tech tape was good. He popped up in my top 50 2 years ago as, hey, watch out for this guy. And then his junior film was just kind of up and down, goes to LSU, and he was the first unanimous All-American they had since Joe Burrow. So he had a heck of a season.
he's so cool. Like, there's no panic in his game whatsoever.
Exactly.
The feet and the hips are just so smooth that it never feels like he's out of position. And we're at a position where if you're out of position for a quarter of a second, you've lost the rep. For him to never feel like he's grasping at guys or stuff like that, it's just incredibly impressive.
Actually, we talked about it at the top of the show too. Like, and again, not the freaky speed, not this crazy athlete. Maybe that gives you a little bit of pause. If Spags wants him, I'm like, okay, cool. He's probably pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
So the pick is in for Washington here. If I were Washington and I was making this pick, I'd be doing backflips if Sonny Styles is still available.
Yes.
Like absolute backflips. When you look at the makeup of that linebacker room for Washington right now and the skill set that they do not have, Derrik, it is Sonny Styles.
It has to be Sonny Styles. And like, I love Leo Chenal. They signed him, but he's still kind of like a better as your third linebacker, a strong side linebacker,
It's
a
him
guy
and
that you
Luvu
put
right
on.
now. That's all they have.
Both of them are like weird players,
yes.
kind of.
Can I
And Sonny
interest-
Styles can call your defense.
Jordan Tyson, can I interest you? And Carnell Tate's off the board,
Dane's
but
zagging. Dane hears you and says, shut up. No off-ball linebackers.
I wouldn't blame them, but I just look at what Sonny Styles is and what that defense has, and it's just hard for me not to imagine that being such a good fit for what they need.
it would be, no question.
Keep in mind what we said, though. Like, they didn't trade this, so they probably don't pick again until 71.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, with this pick, you want to come away with who you think is the best player available. And I think you can make the argument that it's Sonny Styles. I mean, you just don't find guys that are 6'4", 240 pounds and have his combination of athleticism and intelligence and just turned 21 years old. Like, just a really impressive player. It's hard to find weaknesses in his game.
And still so new to the position too. And
There
there he
you
There
is.
he goes, Sonny
Yep.
Styles.
Sonny Styles to Washington at 7. It just made too much sense.
Yeah, it did.
Like when you think about that defense, again, Frankie Louvu and Leo Schnall are fun players, but neither of them can move backwards.
And they are like, you have to weaponize them in very specific
Yes.
ways. Sonny Styles is just like, put him out there.
I mean, I remember the breakdown you did of Sonny Styles, Derrik, when you were talking about him before the draft. The play that you picked to me is like a perfect NFL play. He reroutes a vertical and then he comes off of it to come downhill on something underneath him. In a world where we're playing all this zone and these linebackers are playing in all this space, to me, it's a perfect example of like what he can be as a player in the modern game.
And because that play, it had everything. One, he's like, does a great job of rerouting the tight end because he's long, strong, and he's able to do that. And it helps the safety out behind him, which those are like the hidden things that you get with linebacker coverage. Just like Roquan Smith is great at this. Fred Warner is great at this. It's not just the picks. There's that. He immediately then runs to the flat to get under where like a hitch route from the number one might have been, because he had actually defended that exact route earlier in that Tennessee game. This was back in 2024. And then obviously hitch route's not there. He goes and just murders the running back in the flat. And like that's modern linebacker play in a 4-second clip.
What is the comp for him?
I said Demario Davis-ish. And Demario
Okay.
Davis is
But
a little
he's-
bit smaller.
right, yeah.
Like Styles is more if you stretched him out. But I just think that the way that Davis sees the field, the way that he could come downhill when he needed to, and a guy who can run, but is not necessarily like freaky speed, the way that some of your like truly elite runners might be. It felt like a little bit that style of player.
I mean, one of the names I wrote down was Rolando McClain, just that big,
man.
oversized.
I felt like he was more of a thumper as I remembered him.
Yeah, I mean, I think Styles
I think
can.
he's a better one than people give him credit for.
Yeah, I
Styles.
think he can do that. It's just I don't know that he was necessarily asked to do that.
Yeah, just a 6'5". Like when you see him in person, he just looks like almost like a basketball player.
Mhm.
He had basketball offers out of high school. Yeah,
He looks like a power forward. When you see him walking around in a suit, like I remember seeing him at Big Ten Media Days this summer, and everybody's walking by. I was like, "It's a good-looking guy." All the players were saying
it's hard to believe he was a safety.
I know. I
For
know.
2 years, he was a safety, and then his junior year, he moves to linebacker. And the jump, we talked about it with Tate, the jump he made sophomore year to junior year, the jump Styles made from his junior year to his senior year was really impressive. Like I think coming into the year, he was a top 30 player for me, but that was based mostly on the physical traits and what he could be. He really earned himself into that top 10 with how he played.
So that was going to be my question to you, is that some of these guys, and I just have Devin White in my mind, and I know I shouldn't ascribe that to all top 10 linebackers, but I think one of the reasons that the history of linebackers drafted this high is a little bit treacherous is that we're drafting them based on traits. That's what puts you into the top 10. And I think we have a lot of evidence that that's not what makes great linebacker play. But it seems like Sonny Styles is one of those guys that actually does have enough between the ears when you think about his feel for the position where you potentially are getting the best of both worlds here.
I think the thing ultimately that sets Sonny apart is the sub value, like what he can be in nickel and dime. He can line up man to man and cover. He can do all these different things that you would want a linebacker to do. He's so versatile, and I want him to. I want to see him make more plays in coverage. That's kind of one of the nitpicks that you would have is go get me an interception, go get more hands on the football. But I think that's going to come as he continues to grow. I think that'll be a part of his game.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. And it's funny that Washington's not going to need this, but he can play on the line a lot. Like him and Arvell Reese played closer to like their split of on the ball and off the ball more than people think.
I was going to look that up when you said it. Not quite as many as Arvell, but he played on the line 130 plus times last year.
Yeah,
I mean,
with
he
like
can do
probably
that stuff.
10 times a game. It was a lot.
The one name I brought up to an NFL coach I know when we were talking about like the traits and the comparison, it was like, he's not going to be Isaiah Simmons, is he? Or whatever. Because I like in terms of like the measurables, they are similar. But in terms of like how they were used, Clemson's defense is so different what he played in Ohio State.
To me, that's not the type of player he is.
Yeah.
I think he's very different.
I think his absolute floor is like Tremaine Edmonds. Because I just think he's more physical than Edmonds.
Yeah.
Like you could tell me that
Edmonds, a guy who came in at like 19.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But like 6'5", like pretty freaky athlete. And so I would say like physically that to me feels like the floor. But again, like what's always held Edmonds back a little bit is he just doesn't want to hit guards the way that you would probably want from your $20 million linebacker. I'm not really worried about that with Sonny.
You're right, though. Linebackers traditionally don't go this early. It's Devin White. It's Aaron Curry.
Roquan Smith went in the top 10.
Well, didn't
Yeah,
Simmons,
he didn't go top 7 though.
No,
He
he went 8th overall. Yep.
12
Yeah.
I
or
thought
So-
Simmons went in the top 10.
he went like 12 or something maybe.
Simmons went outside the top 10.
He
I think,
did?
I believe.
But it was that's close enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say
Simmons
7.
was.
Oh, 8th. He was drafted 8th
Oh,
overall.
okay.
Yeah.
Good
So
call.
hey, man, that's right. I thought it was later than that.
No, but not top 7. I mean, the list of top 7 linebackers is a very small one over the last 25
Devin
years.
White was good his first couple of years,
Devin,
though, right?
Devin,
And then he just kind of ran out
Devin
of
White
gas.
was a good player in the early going, and I
But he
wonder
was
if
a
there was more
specific
there.
kind of player, though.
Yeah.
He was a
Yeah,
moving toward
he
the
was,
line of
for
scrimmage
sure.
sort of player.
He was a good torpedo.
He was a converted running back, by the way, who was playing that position.
And he kind of
hit the
played it
hole.
like it, where
Yeah,
he was just go hit the hole. Which was when Levante David could cover as much ground as he did, and Vita Vea could just eat as much space as he could. Having Devin White to just like send him forward and say, "Hey, buddy, go hit somebody," worked.
When did
And then
Micah
that
get
started to
drafted?
fall apart.
12th.
12. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now with the Saints at 8 here, I'm really curious what happens because they were in play for a pass rusher potentially. I thought that Mansoor Delane would make sense for them based on the current state of their cornerback room. If you look at their safety room right now, Jonas Sanker played pretty well for them as a rookie last year. And then Justin Reed has this year and one more year left on his deal. Quincy Riley is penciled in to be their slot right now. So could Caleb Downs play in the slot for them? I wonder, like, is this a fit for Caleb Downs in the same way it might be for a lot of the other teams that we've talked about?
I mean, I think Caleb Downs is going to fit every team, but I do think it makes sense for the Saints. Jordyn Tyson, when you look at that wide receiver depth chart, besides Olave, no one's scaring you.
I kind of love that too.
Yeah.
Well, because
Yeah.
I think the Jordyn Tyson with Olave, we've talked about this, like the skill set and how complementary it feels. I actually really like the pairing of those
As long
two
as they
guys
can stay on the
together.
field.
Yeah, that's
Right, yes,
that's
exactly.
I just keep
So
it
long
going.
as they're out there together.
Listen,
But
Olave was healthy last year. It's all that matters.
And
He's
I
gonna be
love
healthy
that too
forever.
because Olave is your just put him outside the numbers, our vertical X, kind of your Z sometimes if you want him to be. Whereas Tyson, I think, is a little bit of you just put him
He's
where
a
you want him.
slasher.
And I
He's a
love,
slasher.
I've said it before, I love his like power slot tape. Like I think it's really, really good. And so if you already have a guy who's good outside in Olave, you can fiddle around with him, putting him in the slot a
You
little
think he's
bit
going
more.
to get them more than Devon Vele?
I would guess. I would hope. Maybe not more than Juwan Johnson at tight end, though. He had like 1,000 yards last year.
Can we throw Ruben Bain in the mix too?
And that would be the other one.
yeah.
That would be
That's
the,
the
that
one.
would be the other
Dennis
one.
Allen
Yes.
is out of town, so.
I was gonna. That's a fair point. I was gonna say, like, I feel like the Saints want these big, long guys.
That's
but
my team now.
not
my
anymore,
my
yeah.
team would never draft a guy with under 33 in
no, I
terms.
don't think so.
And that is a Dennis Allen special, but that absolutely I think makes a ton of sense. Right now, the guys they have behind Chase Young and Carl Granderson are Fadil Diggs and Chris Rumph. I mean, their edge depth is non-existent right now, and so them finding a third guy, I think would make a ton of sense. Right now the needs I have stacked up for the Saints: wide receivers number 1 and edges number 2. So
Yep.
Tyson or Ruben Bain, I think, would both make a ton of sense, and
Or-
their pick is in.
Go the luxury pick with Caleb Downs. It's 3 interesting names here.
I just wonder how all the pieces fit together if it's Caleb
Right.
Downs. You make it work, but
Right.
it gets a little bit more crowded and a little less clean than it is for a lot of other teams picking in this range. It's a good looking setup out there in Pittsburgh. I'm
Sure.
not
The
surprised. I'm
crowd
not
looks
surprised to see that the
amazing.
turnout's been amazing. I mean, that place
Looks
is.
like New Year's Eve or something. Just a sea of people.
I like the aesthetics of the stage makes sense too. I think they did a good
Right.
job with that.
Mhm.
Here we go. Pick is in. Jordan Tyson.
There it
Tyson.
is.
They almost had to take a receiver.
Makes
I mean,
sense.
looking at that wide receiver depth chart, and Chris Olave is a good player, but in his contract, there's
Yeah.
some questions
Yep.
there.
He's a plan as 5th year option this year, I believe. And
Right.
I would assume they make something work, but you never know.
Right. But regardless, this gives, and let's be frank, you have to figure out what you have with Shuck. You have to figure out
Yeah.
what you have in your quarterback. And a way to do that is to add a talent like this where you're going to have a better idea after this season what you have at the quarterback
And you're
position.
not even stretching yourself. It's not like,
Right.
we're taking the receiver because we need to make sure that we have get the most out of the quarterback, but we need other positions more. They don't need other positions more. Like this makes total sense.
It's
Right.
very similar to what we just saw Tennessee do, where and
Yes.
I don't know how contested it was. Maybe they were unanimous, but if you're fighting, if Brandon Staley loves Caleb Downs or Ruben Bain or whoever, and you're trying to find a tiebreaker, why aren't you trying to help
Yeah.
Tyler Shuck and
I
figure
think-
out if he's the guy?
From what I heard, if they had all the options available, if Tate was still up, I think they're taking Tyson.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's not surprising.
There-
I
to me,
think
there were
actually.
there were a few
multiple
teams that
teams.
felt that way.
Yes, with Tyson as their number one. I think the Giants, the
They
Raiders.
felt
there were a
like he
couple
was the
teams.
most talented receiver in this draft.
Is it the
Yeah, I
yak
think-
ability?
with Tyson.
Yeah, compared to Tate, like Tate can do a little bit for you. But
Tyson didn't really do a lot of
I-
that in college.
That was one of my big question marks with Tyson. Is,
Okay.
can he give you enough after the catch? I mean, really, the big question was the durability. Can he stay on the field consistently? Because coming into the year, he was my wide receiver 1, and he was a top 12 player for me through the combine.
I was gonna say you've been through an adventure with him.
Yeah. And I mean, those of everyone that listens to Building the Beast with Dave and I throughout the season, I mean, we touched on Tyson extensively, especially in September when he was playing at a high level. And then, of course, the injury bug.
This is a really cool moment, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
clearly, I mean, obviously, it's a big night for all of these guys, but with everything Jordyn Tyson has been through, I can't even imagine the
I was
emotions.
kind of limping a little bit. Is that the hammy or?
Be nice. Be
Dane's,
nice.
Dane's scouting the walk to the podium. And you cannot turn it off.
I think he's strutting because this is a proud moment for him. That's awesome.
We talked about it in terms of the fit with teams and kind of how it changes your perception of a player. And I think sometimes the fit with who else is in that room can do the same thing. And like with Tennessee, I could understand liking Carnell Tate more than Jordyn Tyson. But if you're the Saints and you had them stacked up and you like Jordyn Tyson more, I think in part because you have Olave, that tracks to me. Like I just do think that they are very complementary type of players. And I say that as somebody who didn't love Jordyn Tyson. But part of the reason I didn't love Jordyn Tyson is that I had questions about the verticality to his game.
Mm-hmm.
In a room with Chris Olave, that just matters a little bit less.
Mm-hmm. And like kind of what you were saying a little bit, Dane, they're leaving no doubt about what they're going to find out with Tyler Shuck.
Yeah.
Like they signed Travis Achan this offseason.
And the line is like
And
pretty
they-
put
right, they
together,
signed
man.
David Edwards, and the line was already kind of good.
Yeah.
And now you bring in David Edwards, who was kind of the cream of the crop in terms of the free agent guards. Like, if Olave can stay healthy and Tyson is who you think he is, like, this is if Shuck takes a step, like, they could be a pretty good offense. And you're going to know if he's going to take one or not.
There is no unit that I think about more differently on night one of the 2026 draft than I thought about on night one of the 2025 draft in the New Orleans Saints
Yeah,
offense.
that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I mean, look, my comp for Tyson is Stephon Diggs. I think that he can be that level of player if he stays healthy and stays on the field. And that's obviously a weapon that could do some damage in that offense.
You think he's as good of a down the field weapon as Stephon Diggs?
I think he can be. He wasn't really asked to do that. And then part of it was the quarterback. There were limiting factors.
Quarterback's
with
a running quarter.
Yeah.
Levitt was a running
And-
quarterback. And
now at LSU, Sam Levitt. I mean,
Congrats.
Throwing shots at me all
You-
night.
you-
I
you
stated
really
a fact.
this whole show.
We're
Jesus.
only 8 picks
I
in.
stated a fact. But look, he's a good player if he's on the field, and hopefully he can stay on the field because it's a lot more fun to watch him play football. I know that.
The
I don't
route
wanna say-
running makes sense, right? Like that comparison.
yeah, I don't want to say to put words in your mouth, but really the reason for hesitance for you is strictly availability.
That's really the only thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
If he was healthier, I liked him the most in this draft. I think he could have gone where Carnell Tate did. I think the world of him. I think he can separate at will. Oh no, Dane's getting dread about the Cleveland Browns
No,
here.
just the Browns brought back the matching T-shirts. They're making all the scouts wear matching T-shirts. I won't say any names, but yeah, that's funny.
The Browns pick is in here at 9. And this, I mean, we knew that this would probably happen, but if the Browns really did want an offensive lineman here, moving back from 6 to 9,
Yeah.
the linemen were going to be there. There are
Add
going
a
to be
couple-
so many different
Add a couple
options.
picks and you have your choice of all of them. That's not.
Can you pass on Caleb Downs?
They could use a safety.
Oh,
They
absolutely
absolutely
could
do
use
safety.
safety.
Ronnie Harrison, I believe, is slated to be a
Ronnie
starter
Hickman.
right now. Ronnie Hickman.
Yeah.
And Ronnie Hickman's in the final year of his deal. And so
Mhm.
there's nothing preventing them from taking Caleb Downs other than the fact that who is going to play left tackle for the Cleveland
Right.
Browns this
Correct.
year?
I mean, I had him going Fano at 6 in the mock.
I think they got to go offensive line.
It would
yes.
make sense.
The value part of it is just so hard to
Yeah.
ignore.
So the pick is in for the Browns here at 9. And it's Spencer
Spencer
Fano.
Fano.
That's
Spencer
nailed it.
Fano, the first offensive lineman off the board.
I think he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. Now, maybe he doesn't have that traditional tackle frame that you look for, but you watch the tape and the way he moves and the way he plays. I don't have to sell you. I know that.
I loved. I mean, it's one of those things where I acknowledge the questions about him. He's just built differently than a lot of other elite tackles are built. He has a strength. He's kind of narrow framed, but when you watch him move, I was just enamored by the way that he moved, the athleticism, the explosion, the balance. I mean, it was really special, like what he is as a player, even if I can acknowledge where some of the limitations are.
It's what I said about Mansoor Delane, where he's just like never out of position and is always the first to his spot. I Spencer Fano was very similar to that to me. This is also a player where we kept saying where are you going to play him? I don't know if he can stick at tackle. The Browns have a very we're going to find the best five however we get there, because Elton Jenkins can kind of play a few different positions. Titus Howard can play a few different positions. They're going to figure stuff out wherever he lands.
Let me ask you this, Dane. He was a right tackle in college, and we talked about him playing everywhere else. Left tackle is the obvious spot here. Is that okay?
He played there as a freshman before Caleb Lomu.
And that was partially because Lomu was a left tackle only, correct? That wasn't because of Fano. It was because that's where Lomu had to play.
And I think that's fair to characterize it that way. But it'll be interesting to see. But I think, your point is, I think, spot on. You bring him to camp and you figure it out.
One of the coaches who played him had an interesting comp for him, and this is a guy who spent a lot of time around the Packers. He was he reminds me a lot of David Bakhtiari.
That's
that's
the name I can bring him to. A guy that's a little more slight. Bakhtiari is a 4th-round pick, but I think
The Giants pick is in at 10, and it's Francis Mauigoa going at 10
I
to
thought
the
we
Giants.
had that one the entire time.
This one to me makes all the sense in the world, Dane. I think for so many different reasons. I think the biggest one is you thought that Francis Mauigoa was a guard. Throughout the process, you thought that he was better suited at guard. And you look at the current state of the Giants offensive line, you slot him in at right guard next to Jermaine Illuminor, and that's very likely where he's going to play for the Giants.
Right. I think it depends on the situation, whether you keep him a tackle or move him inside. But I do think his highest ceiling as an NFL player is at guard. That boxy frame, the way he plays, he's very controlled, strong. He's 330 pounds. Nothing on tape would say he has to move inside. It's more, I think if you just look at his strengths as a player, it makes the most sense. And so now, does he need back surgery? That is something that we still don't have an answer for. It might be something in his future, but at least it's
How's
not
he walking.
We'll have to. Can I get a clicker and rewind a little bit? This is something that makes sense. Now, Caleb Downs is still on the board, and so they passed on Downs to go with kind of eat your vegetables, right, and take the offensive lineman. But
He's
after taking
one of the
Arvell
youngest
Reese,
players in the draft,
right, and a 3-year starter,
and he got better and better, throughout. And I think that was something that turned some heads there.
That's true. I liked him a lot. He was personally my favorite offensive lineman in the draft, just because. Him and Fano, it was so close. But there's just the guys who are a little bit bigger and have a little bit more meanness to them. I absolutely love it. And it's hard to find.
Traditional frame.
Totally.
And you like the grip strength he plays with, the power that he plays with, the torque that he plays with. That's why I just envision him as a guard, because you watch what he is as a run blocker and you look at that frame. I actually really love him slotting in next to Jermaine Illuminor on that Giants offensive line. I think for a franchise that I do think is resetting a little bit who they want to be and the types of players they want to seek out, them going with a guard in the top 10 potentially is not the least bit surprising.
And maybe you kick him out to right tackle in a few years when
Jermaine Illuminor's only got a 2-year deal. He's in his 30s. To me, it's a very reasonable development plan for this spot specifically.
Well, it's a great for that family too, because his older brother was drafted by the Jets last year, so it makes sense.
That's really easy for them.
Yeah, exactly.
This quietly too, the Giants have retooled their offensive line year by year over the last 3 years ago. They were horrendous.
Yes,
and
one of the
since
worst
then,
offensive lines I've ever seen.
It was truly abysmal. It got Daniel Jones killed for the 3rd time, and they've since drafted John Michael Schmitz, who's a solid center. Jermaine Illuminor comes over from I can't remember if they were Vegas
or Raiders, I believe.
Right, I can't remember if it was Vegas
their
or
offensive line. Carmen Brasillo was their offensive line coach, I believe, was with the Raiders when Illuminor was there, and then he came over. I think that's right.
And then at the guard spots, they'd been getting by with some guys, and so to now presumably go and put a guy like Mauigoa at that spot, it's if Andrew Thomas can stay healthy, it's this. Yeah. They've retooled this thing in a pretty cool way.
Do we notice the difference in the order up there?
We sure do, Dane.
So the Dallas Cowboys are now on the clock at 11. So they moved up one spot.
They haven't made the announcement yet, but it's there on the ticker.
So what do we think? Do we think this is for Caleb Downs?
I mean, Ruben Bain is there, but I'm gonna.
You said yesterday that you didn't think they would take him.
No, I don't, and I do. So, I think it's Caleb Downs. Yeah. I think I could be wrong here in a couple minutes, but they love Caleb Downs. I think it's a guy. I think they liked Mansoor Delane. I think they love Caleb Downs. And I think if Christian Parker if he could have waved a magic wand and gotten a guy onto his defense, I think it was Caleb Downs.
2 5th rounds.
To move up
2 5th rounds.
Wait, how many picks are the Dolphins going to have? I think that puts them at 13.
Think about if you're the Cowboys and their war room is on TV right now. Wow, so many people I know. it's like you navigated this minefield, right? Where like you had the 2 offensive linemen go off the board right in front of you. Caleb Downs is sitting there. You kind of had to hold your breath through the Browns and the Giants. I don't blame them one bit, especially it was 2/5. That's what they paid.
Yeah.
And you just don't know who else was going to try to come up there.
Absolutely. And you're not losing your 3rd round pick to get Caleb Downs on your team. And like I said, I think this is the guy that Christian Parker had circled. And
it won't be surprised if they try to trade back from 20 to maybe get another day 2 pick.
I would guess that's going to happen,
right?
Sure. If at all possible,
right?
Because now I think that the 2 other positions you're going to be looking at if you're Dallas: defensive line and linebacker. And you can get a linebacker deeper into the 2nd round if you want to move out of there. If there's a position that people want to come up for at 20.
Yep, I think that makes sense. The run on edge rushers specifically in the 20s
and linemen and offensive tackles, right?
Yes, right. And it's interesting. I thought we'd have a little more chaos up to this point, but Browns trading back and the Cowboys trading up. It's kind of what we thought would happen, right? Just
Cowboys just didn't trade that far up.
No, they didn't.
It looks a little different than you thought it did. It's not number 6,
right.
It's number 11.
And the players that they traded up for, maybe Delane with the Chiefs, we thought maybe be an edge rusher with them. So that's interesting. So I think we have more chaos coming, but it's just interesting so far through 11 picks. It hasn't been that crazy.
Malik Hooker is a free agent after the season. And I just think everything that we've seen from the defense that Christian Parker has been a part of with Philadelphia and just like the types of safeties that they're after, like living in that split safety world and what Caleb Downs can be, it makes all the sense in the world to me that they wanted him as they kind of transition into this version of the Cowboys defense.
And we talked about a guy, like you want somebody in the spine of that defense who can, Downs might not necessarily call the defense, but someone who can be like your commander out there. And I do think that Downs absolutely has that.
Probably more so than any safety who's come into the league in a long time, right?
But right, because he's, I mean, you would know this, like the guys that can start that early in Saban's defense safety specifically, those guys
are about like 30 tackles.
Yeah, not only start, but
excel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, immediately be the best player on the Bama D. Like
you don't have to like look for him. Right away.
It's him and Minka who were just like, those guys came in and it was like, oh, that's what like a proper Nick Saban safety looks like.
I've heard people at times in this draft process be like, where are the coverage plays? I'm like, go watch Alabama. Go watch the Bama tape from a couple years ago. It's there.
Oh, he's a 3-level player.
Yeah.
Anybody that's arguing different, they're just not watching enough of the tape.
He is a phenomenal football player. And I guess we haven't seen that this is officially the pick on TV, but assuming that's the pick, it's a hell of a tone setter for Christian Parker's
The only reason he's still on the board is he plays safety.
Yes.
The only reason. He is one of the best players in this draft, but they're getting him at a little bit of a discount because of the position that he plays.
Safeties, for the most part, when they go in the first half of the first round, there are 2 things that drive that. One, some sort of freaky physical trait. They're either super explosive or they're super big. They're Kyle Hamiltons of the world. Or 2, you have crazy ball production. Crazy ball production. He would be the first guy to go in the top half of the first round that has neither of those things at that position in a very long time. But he's a special player.
But even the crazy ball, like Ed Reed was the best defensive back I'd ever seen in covering college football. Ed Reed didn't go this high.
He was in the late 20s. Yeah. It just doesn't happen very often.
Troy Polamalu was like that too.
Yeah. So here we go. If it's not Caleb Downs, this is going to be hilarious.
We just wasted 5 minutes.
Hilarious.
If it's not Caleb Downs, then we'll have a hell of a surprise to react to.
They signed Jalen Thompson in free agency too. And so this would be a complete remodeling of the back end of their defense if it is Caleb Downs. Which it is.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah. Like you're getting a perennial top of his position player in the NFL. It's kind of like what we said with Jeremiyah Love in terms of Love has a chance to be a top 5 running back in the NFL at some point during his rookie contract. It's the same thing with Caleb Downs. He has a chance to be a top 5 safety at some point during his rookie contract. I firmly believe that. I think he's someone that's a multi-contract player. Like he's someone that's going to be a face of the franchise. And a big part of what he did at Ohio State in that Matt Patricia scheme was play different positions so he could unlock everyone else.
And I've said it on the show throughout the spring, and I'm not suggesting this. I am saying this. He will play nickel for the Cowboys.
I think that makes sense.
He will, and not exclusively, but he can do that, and he will do that. And I think that's part of the appeal. He can do several different jobs, and depending on your sub package, depending on where you are on the field, he can wear so many hats for you. And I think that's why it makes sense as kind of that foundational piece of what Christian Parker wants to do.
He played the star position that you can put it on tape and see how he did. I mean, he was the rat in cover one. He was like all these different things. It gives you flexibility in the back end. So, because that's what the NFL is about. It's about mismatches. The offense is trying to get you out of position and take advantage. And a guy like Caleb Downs helps prevent that because of all the different ways you can align him and use him. And so hearing teams talk about his interviews is just unbelievable how smart he is. And that's not a surprise at all based off of what you've heard the last 3 years, right, Bruce?
Yeah. And it's two different stories. One from his old defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, who's in his 60s and, Ivy League guy, super smart. He had said the hardest interview I've ever had was actually when he was recruiting Caleb Downs, because Caleb Downs was like grilling him on everything. And then the other one was a DB coach said when he came in, he knew all the adjustments to our defense. And like he knew our defense as well. Like it shocked him how well he had already learned their defense.
When he came to Ohio State.
No, this is an NFL coach who was like said,
yes. Oh, wow.
We were
we
like,
may have talked to the same person because, yes, I heard that as well.
It like blew his mind. And he was like, this is a conversation that had come up with a bunch of DB coaches who liked Dylan Thieneman a lot. And there was a couple of them who were like, wouldn't surprise me if Dylan Thieneman went higher. And this particular DB coach was like, I ain't seeing that. I like Dylan Thieneman. He's a first-round pick. This guy is way different in terms of just intelligence.
In interviews with NFL teams, Downs is literally telling them, okay, this is exactly what you do, and this is how I can make it better, and explained it in their language, which about to be rookies don't do that.
How do you even prepare for that?
That's his superpower. That is his 40-yard. That's his 4.3 in the 40-yard dash. Is that right there?
And at that position specifically, how often do we talk about like it's a mental position? You can't always see that on tape. With him, you can, but like the fact that it's also corroborated by all these other stories.
And that's the argument for why you can find safeties a little bit later, because it's that. But if it's cranked up to such an extent, then that's the justification for how you can draft a safety 11th overall.
Why I love this is think about, and I know this comes, you have to weigh a little bit the Micah Parsons trade, but like think about how much better the spine of the Dallas defense is now. Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, Jalen Thompson, Caleb Downs. The middle of their defense compared to 12 months ago is way, way better than it was.
Think back to last year's Cowboys defense. And the amount of explosive plays allowed, whether it was like an explosive pass play where the back half of the defense looked completely lost and confused, or just explosive run after explosive run, you have a guy who can stop both of those things from happening with reliability.
It's fun. His dad was drafted 95th overall. His brother, talking about Caleb Downs, his brother was drafted 79th overall. Caleb wins 11 overall. So he's got that at the next family get-together.
Part of the reason that when we were talking earlier in the beginning of the show about the Cowboys trading George Pickens and why I hate it is because I do think that there's a needle to be threaded here where if they get the right defensive players with a new defensive coordinator, it could just look so drastically different than it did last year, combined with the upside we realized on offense that they could surprise some people. And I'm not saying that they're going to be the 2024 Eagles, but like you think about what those two corners were for the 2024 Eagles and what Cooper Jr was in the nickel for that team and how different it felt. I just think that there's a world where the Cowboys feel a little similar to that in the right circumstances.
I want to be clear. I want George Pickens on the Cowboys. I'm just prepared for any possibility.
Dolphins pick is in,
Whoa.
and it is Caden Proctor going to the Miami Dolphins, 12th overall.
Over Ruben Bain, the local kid. Interesting.
Dolphins have had a history of not taking guys.
Yeah, well, and
for a long history.
Sometimes it's better just change the scenery. But Caden Proctor, if teams felt better about the consistency, he'd be top 5 lock in this draft. He's just such a rare talent. Not many 350 plus pounders can move like he does, but the consistency was a factor. And that was something that, you worried about with him. But I think the talent is too great that you roll the dice on him and hope your coaches can make a difference.
With Proctor, I was curious what the landing spot would be, in part because I do think that there's a real argument to be made that he could play guard and that he could survive a little bit better at guard. And you look at the current makeup of the Dolphins offensive line, Austin Jackson's in the final year of his deal. Austin Jackson shouldn't prevent you from doing anything. But the most open spot on the Dolphins offensive line right now is at right guard.
Or tight end. I mean, and Kadyn Proctor. I mean, very well could do that for them.
So the idea of him playing guard early in his career and potentially transitioning to tackle, I think a lot of those spots, Philadelphia, places like that were interesting. I think there could be a similar sort of path for him with the Dolphins.
There's nobody I respect more when it comes to offensive line than Brandon Thorne. And hearing Brandon talk about, he was with Proctor when he was doing his warmups at the combine before on-field drills, and hearing Brandon say he's never seen anything like that before, that says something.
Well, his testing numbers are so they're so like muddled because of what his weight is. If you adjust it for the weight, he's like an all-time athlete, and I don't think people have been doing that properly.
32 and a half in the vertical. I've never seen that before.
Last year, you guys remember LeJohntay Wester? He came out of CU.
Colorado.
He weighs like 144 pounds. That was like his vertical.
Yeah.
He weighs like, there's like 3 LeJohntay Westers who probably weigh like what Proctor is.
How do you feel about this as a landing spot? Because for Proctor specifically, I think where he landed was going to be huge.
Right.
How do you feel about the Dolphins in this situation being the spot to get the most out of somebody like this?
When we talked about the Dolphins could go in any direction, it'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so I don't think it's a surprise that a new regime, for sure head coach, for sure general manager, would start on the offensive line. And with Proctor, it all comes down to, do you feel like your coaches can help him get there, become the best version of Kadyn Proctor? If you feel good about that, I totally understand why he's a top 12 pick. There were other teams also believing that, and we thought maybe we see the Lions move up and potentially go after a Proctor or one of these other teams. But this is the offensive line run we've been talking about. It started with, like we thought, with Fano and then Mauigoa. Proctor's off the board maybe a little bit earlier than we thought. Does it continue with the Rams here at 13, Baltimore at 14, the Bucs at 15? The next 3 spots, we could see another or 2 linemen come off the board.
And I'm curious about like what their evaluation would be in terms of if they think he's going to be a guard. Because if I knew I needed a guard, I'd rather have them get you on.
Yeah,
like
you rather have?
If I know I want a guard,
I'm just saying that to me, it's a multi-year thing.
Right. Well, that's the thing. If they believe,
move on and
if they believe he can play tackle, then that makes a little bit more sense to me.
If I'm starting from the ground up, which the Dolphins are, I mean, we joked about it. They need everything. Like swing for the fences and the guy that could be an insane tackle. And if you have to move him later, that's fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do like the amount of like heft they have outside of Aaron Brewer. Like they are kind of ascribing to the old Eagles formula with Jason Kelce, where it's like, we have this undersized, like insane athlete at center. Let's get 2 330 pounders next to him. Obviously last year they draft Jonas Savaiinaea. Now they presumably are going to put Proctor next to him on the right side. That's a lot of beef to make up for Brewer being like a 280 pound player.
They may not.
Right.
This is a new coaching staff.
That's
This
true.
is a new front office.
Right.
I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if we got into camp. There is no connection or obligation to Austin Jackson
That's
from this
true.
coaching staff
That's
or
true.
front office. The best 5 are going to play in the best 5 spots.
It's worth pointing out that Proctor has only been a left tackle, high school and college.
And that's
only
the one
left tackle.
spot other than center on this offensive line that's like kind of set,
Right.
right? Like I don't think you want to move Patrick Paul based on what he did last year.
No, I wouldn't want to do that.
But I mean, to your point, I do subscribe to the belief that he might be maximized at guard, because you take away some of the area that he has to cover.
That to me is it.
Especially those inside moves that he
Yes.
struggled with so much. That can alleviate some of those concerns.
I think it's a push pull, because I think one of the things that people have talked about is his pad level. He can get a little bit high. He doesn't play with enough leverage all the time. At guard, that only becomes accentuated. That becomes a problem. But the amount of space you have to navigate as a tackle versus the amount of space you have to navigate as a guard, all those inside moves you're talking about, there's just less to worry about. You can weaponize the power. It just, when I watched him, I was like, I don't know, man. It just makes sense, I think, if you think he's a guard, to put him there. But it's hard to draft a guard 12th overall, especially when he's never done it before. I think that's the difference. It's if you can make an argument that Proctor's ceiling as a player is higher than Ioana's is. But the fact that you've never seen him do it, if you're going to put him at guard and keep him at guard, I think that's where it becomes a little bit complicated.
Dane, how much of the challenges you think there are with Proctor, weight, different, is just comes down to maturity?
It's worth bringing up because we know in the past he's, touched on the 400. He's been up there, and so
What did they call his tight end package at Alabama?
you tell me.
They called it Krispy Kreme,
Yes.
did they not? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Counterpoint. By the end of training camp in Miami, he's going to weigh like 310.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the calculus. They're like, oh, it'll come off in Miami.
I've been there in July. He's going to be okay.
Yeah. No, it's like I understand. It's not a bad pick. It's a little bit of a risky pick.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between those two things. And with the Dolphins, that's okay with the situation they're in. If you want to shoot for the fences or swing for the fences, totally get it.
So the Rams are picking here at 13. The pick is in. Makai Lemon is still available, which we've talked about, and that connection's been made throughout this entire process. The funniest thing they could do is draft Ruben Bay.
Yes. And I'm kind of rooting for it now. Like
Jared Verse and Bane. Oh,
And
man.
Byron Young.
Byron
Byron Young is a free agent after this year.
Also, by the way, Bane could kick in and play D tackle. Like,
Yeah, they don't have enough of those either.
yeah, exactly.
I will. Kobe Turner and Byron Young are free agents after this
Yeah.
season. So just something to keep in
That's so many short arms on that D line.
mind. Well, they're open to doing
Yeah,
it.
they're
They
clearly
clearly
doing it.
with
They
their
don't
short
think it
arms.
hurts them. That's really funny.
It almost like we've done this with Makai Lemon so many different times
Would
during
you
this
take
process.
Would you take Sadiq?
Oh, I think that's on the table as well. I think it has to be.
I mean,
Or-
didn't
Oregon
they try to move up for Bowers?
They did,
In his
they did.
class?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So he's not that caliber of prospect,
Right.
obviously, but McVay is at least
better test.
probably thinking about it a little bit. Yeah,
they drafted an Oregon tight end in the top two
Oh, yeah,
rounds
that's
last
right.
year.
That's
So,
right.
You know, it's
reunite him. That was a good tight end room.
McVay's just trying to create whole new personnel groups.
It honestly, it's so
Yeah.
ridiculous. The idea that we spent any time thinking about whether they draft a tackle here is hilarious. This team does not take its vegetables.
just wait till it's Ty Simpson.
Oh God.
Pretty soon we're going to have to start
You know what?
mentioning that
Actually,
name.
I'd be excited because it would be vindicating. If Sean McVay wanted the guy that I like, I'll never shut up.
Hey,
At 13, I should say.
Rappaport reported that Les Snead was one of the reasons that he
Man.
declared because Les Snead said he's a first round
One
pick.
thing about the Rams is they don't give a shit what you think.
Yeah,
Do you
sure.
remember we did the draft together when they took Gurley and
Yeah.
blew
10.
everybody's minds? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll say this though. I think that Ty Simpson, I think that the best situation for him is to sit. And sitting behind Matthew Stafford for a year, like everything the Rams touches turns to gold in our minds, and I know that's a problem. But this is a spot where I do think it would be the best possible development path for him. But I don't think it's Ty Simpson.
It doesn't need to be here.
Or the 6.5 million at Miami.
Or Miami, yeah.
There it is. There it is.
Let's go.
Wow.
All right, Ty.
Wow.
Hey, I mentioned this yesterday in our pod, and
You did.
I was
You
told
did.
no way.
And I said I would be shocked, and I'm shocked, but I'm very happy for my guy.
The only reason I said no way is that I just felt like they would do everything they could to maximize this season.
Oh,
Everything
makes
they could.
sense.
Counterpoint, what else is there to do other than hope everybody stays healthy? I mean, it would be nice if they had a good swing tackle, but other than that,
You don't think Makai Lemon would be an upgrade for them in the slot if you have some concerns about your receiver room a little bit?
Yeah.
It would be. I mean, right now it's like Jordyn
Because this feels like a
and,
luxury here.
But I think at a certain point, it is much easier to do this before you absolutely need to do it. Like if you think that this is your off ramp to like the post Stafford era, and you think this guy can get you there,
Man,
I just
think
don't
there's gonna be
believe that at 13.
I don't.
I just
At
don't believe
13,
that.
I think if you want, you can go take a quarterback next year.
man, whatever. I freaking love Ty Simpson. And Sean McVay loves him too. And
McVay
that's
is-
all that matters to me.
McVay is chasing the high of the one time primetime game he got out of Baker Mayfield.
you know what? Actually, so I will say this: I think Sean really, really has a lot of respect for Brock Purdy. I think he really, really likes Brock
You
Purdy.
can make
as a
some
player.
connections there. Yeah.
And so I remember talking to Sean about watching Purdy play, and he watches him play twice a year. And I think he is incredibly impressed at what Brock Purdy looks like in a pure progression system and his ability to through those options at the clip that he does. I think that there's a real respect for how he plays the position. And if you're making an argument about the best things that Ty Simpson does, to me, it is getting from 1 to 5 and hitting stuff on the backside for a young player and some of the creation stuff that he does. Like a Brock Purdy-esque path to me is the best possible path for a guy like this. And I think that Sean has a lot of affinity for how Brock Purdy plays the position.
If you are shooting, like, I get that. I think if you're shooting for Brock Purdy, I just don't know if that's the way you want to be operating. And what I would say too, obviously Purdy was the last pick in the draft, so we didn't know he would be that. Part of what makes Purdy good is he will stand in there and die to make a throw. And he
played
can
a lot of football when he was at
Right,
Iowa
that's the other
State.
difference, too.
This guy didn't play that much. Some of the concern is that he gets in his own head. I'm not saying you can't undo that. he's a good athlete. I think that's the thing that's probably underrated
He's
about
an
him.
underrated athlete.
Yes.
He also, much like Brock Purdy, will rip that shit. Where like he has got the confidence to make some tight window throws, some very aggressive throws. Like he is not afraid, and that's what made me fall in love with him. Honestly, is like he will rip that thing in there. And to Bruce's point, he is a much better athlete than I think you would get credit for.
It was an interesting progression because in the spring he really struggled, and so they had a new OC who used to be Kalen DeBoer's OC at Washington, then spent a year with the Seahawks. They didn't run the football enough. And then Ryan Grubb comes to Tuscaloosa, and he played really well in training camp and made a huge jump. But they had no running game at all, and people figured that out. And so they got a lot worse in the second half of the season, and kind of the wheels came off, right? He looked awful against Indiana. I mean, everybody at Alabama looked awful in that game. He's going to be interesting to see how he goes here.
Indulge me. And this feels high. And I said yesterday that I'd be shocked if they did it. So I'm not trying to be a revisionist here, but we had a very spirited discussion about whether it was a red flag that Ty didn't win the starting job until 4 years into college, and the list of guys with 15 or fewer career starts it's not very inspiring. I will allow that. But you talk about he needs to go back to school and get another year of seasoning. What about a year of learning football with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford, and hopefully never playing unless it's mop-up duty at the end of a game?
That's it.
That sounds very beneficial to a guy who does have some real deal ability.
If you're not playing,
that is a worthy, because I think he needs reps.
It's not as good as playing, but practicing, running scout team, and hopefully at some point getting into at least a couple of games. You're right. It's not playing a full season, but I do think it's time on task. And again, I would hope Matthew Stafford being the guy that you're in the quarterback room with, as well as Sean McVay, is like a master's course in just learning how to play the position.
Between his last touchdown in high school and his first touchdown at Alabama, it was 1,365 days. There was a massive gap. And I think we saw that lack of experience show up late in the season when the running game wasn't there. The offensive line was faltering, and more was on the quarterback to go make something happen. And so that lack of experience, I really worry about not being on the field, how he's going to gain that. There's just no substitute for it.
Ravens pick is in, and it's Vega Ioane, which this was the easiest. This is a free space on the board in your mock draft if he had been available at 14.
Mendoza won, the Browns trading back, and Ioane at 14 to the Ravens. Yes, that was played out exactly like we thought. I mean, this is a very Ravens pick. They sit where they are, and good players fall to them routinely. And so you plug them into that offensive line, it's a massive upgrade over what they were putting out there last year. And so this is an easy pick for them.
The guard was a mess for them last year between Faulele and Voorhees, and they never figured it out. That line in 2024 played at really an exceptional level given their talent. And it was the opposite last year, where you just saw the holes that they had. And so to go get John Simpson back again, and now you have Vega Ioane, the upgrade at that position specifically for Baltimore from last year to this year has a chance to be massive.
You hope that you get a step from Rosengarten in his second year. Right. And obviously you've got to replace Linderbaum, and that's going to throw a whole wrench in it. But yeah, the guard play last season was pretty bad, like probably as bad as it's ever been in the Lamar Jackson era. And so for them to now sign a veteran who knows Lamar Jackson, kind of knows the system over there, can play really well, and then you bring in Ioane, who not like, Quentin Nelson level guard prospect, but I feel like in terms of, Bruce, you were saying earlier, who do you feel like is the best bet to just like be a good player? If I was ranking it purely on that, I mean, Ioane is like 4th or 5th. Like he's pretty high up there just in terms of we're pretty sure we're going to get on base with this.
I also think it's really important. We haven't really done this a lot just because the Ravens have been such a known quantity for so long. And we just think when we conceive of the Ravens offense, it's just Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson. It's not the same offense. Like Declan Doyle coming in there to bring everything that Ben Johnson has been doing. You think about what Ben Johnson had in Detroit, and you think about what the Bears' offensive plan, the plan for the offensive line was last offseason, where they just heavily, heavily invested in it. That's the world the Ravens now live in. Like they want these dudes up front that they can weaponize. And so to see them draft a guard 14th overall, given the mindset that offensive staff has there now, is not the least bit surprising to me.
While I agree with you that this is a chalky pick, I don't think we expected Ruben Bain to be on the board. And so it's a little surprising they went for the guard over Bane.
I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but we talked about it on yesterday's show where I can't say I'm surprised. Even like his tape is so good, but the league tells us over and over again that they typically care about stuff like this. And I think it's fair to call this a slide at this point. I don't know how many people were willing to say Bane would last past like pick 11 or 12.
I expected him to go in the top 12. That is fair. But I am also not surprised to see him fall a little bit.
I'd be shocked if he fell past the Lions.
Yes, I think. Well,
now, I mean, if you're the Bucks,
it's interesting because Jason Light's a guy that is very adamant about character guys and how do they all their work they did into the car accident. Where does that fall? I mean, we'll find out here in a few minutes. But the Bucks absolutely need edge help. But I agree with you. I would guess that the Lions in 2 picks would be the floor. That would be my guess. But it's interesting, yeah.
The Bucks felt like a no man's land in this draft,
right?
Because it felt like the pass rushers worth drafting in the top 15 would no longer be there. There weren't a lot of other. When you look at the roster, it's not a great roster, but there are also not that many like screaming needs at positions that would have been available here. Like they need an off-ball linebacker. You can't really take one here. And so even if there are concerns, like it just seems like they have to be really, really happy that Ruben Bane is here if they're willing to pull the trigger, because that is 100% the biggest need that they have is edge rusher. Period.
I mean, in plug and play, he's someone that's going to help you from day one. And I mean, let's be clear. I think the reason he's still available is more arm length than character concerns. Yeah. I don't want to paint it like that's the reason he's falling, quote unquote. But it's to your point. It's teams are very unwilling to draft historical outliers in the top half of round 1, just plain and simple. And I think that's what we're seeing with Bane still available.
This is a spot where it makes sense though. Like
it absolutely does.
You get pretty comfortable there real quick if like it meets a need. The tape is there. By the way, I mean, Dane, you've been saying forever that he's a guy that some teams view as an inside player. Like he's got versatility on your front. So I think and I don't know for sure that that's the pick, but I think it's easy to make peace with the outlier aspect of this if you're a team like the Bucks.
You were going to have to make a concession pick here anyway if you took an edge rusher, if it was Akeem Mesidor, if it was whoever. Right. You were going to have to make a compromise somewhere along the way.
I mean, our last show we did before the draft actually started was us saying, well, maybe they just trade out at 15 to go and get a linebacker at 20, whatever it's going to be.
They'd like to, yeah.
Right.
Where would is CJ Allen the guy you take if you're them? If you need a linebacker?
This is I like CJ Allen. This is high,
but not at 15.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
yes.
I was like,
if they traded
back. Well, I think it's Jacob Rodriguez and CJ Allen. It's between those two. Some teams have.
Does anyone you think would take one of those guys in the first round?
Yes, I think it's possible. One of those will sneak into the back half. I think it's possible. Yeah,
I wouldn't have been surprised if CJ Allen. I would be more surprised on Rodriguez, but
linebacker coaches love him. Just love him.
Rodriguez.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Derrik, how you feeling about Yaya Diaby, Ruben Bane?
That's a lot of guys that just want to go through the tackle, which I like.
Stylistically, it feels like it's your type of defense.
I enjoy that style of defense, which is what the Dennis obviously, Ruben Bane is a little bit shorter, and I don't think Yaya Diaby is all that long. But like guys who are just like we are going through the tackle, I just love that style of defensive end. Like it's what the Seahawks have been doing. It's what obviously Dennis Allen has always built his defenses to do, because those are guys that
Dennis Allen would despise Ruben Bane though.
He would. Him specifically, he would. But there's something about those guys that crush the pocket, where we live in a world where so many quarterbacks are good scramblers. It does not give them an escape valve. And guys like Ruben Bane don't let the quarterback just escape. And so him and Diaby would be a fun duo if that's where we end up.
We're in a power place as a league.
Yes,
we are in a power place. And that's why David Bailey is such an interesting sort of player in the modern game. But yeah, Diaby and Bane is a lot of oomph coming off the edge on one team if that is end up the pick for the Bucks, which is in.
There it is.
Yep. If you're Tampa here and you were comfortable with everything, you got to be doing backflips. Backflips.
All the scenarios that you went through, how many had Bane available for you at 15?
It's the perfect scenario for them.
I'm going to give you a weird comp. And I'm not saying this is who he's like in the NFL style-wise, but Bane is Miami's, with all due respect to Calais Campbell, because he was better in the NFL than he was at Miami. Bane is the best defensive lineman Miami's had since Warren Sapp. And Warren Sapp fell for different reasons, but fell to them. And I just think you get a guy here who was the most dominant player in the playoff. Like, he killed these teams in the playoff. Miami did not look like an underdog because he got after people. Again, I get it. I talked to plenty of D-line coaches who are like, yeah, the arm length is what it is, but they think his bend is crazy considering he doesn't look like he should be able to bend the way he does, right? Mm-hmm. And he is really powerful. He plays the run great. I think getting him here is a great value for them. I worry less about it at 15 than I would have at 8 or 9.
Exactly right.
Where, again, like, I think you can make peace with that a little bit more, where it's like, if he doesn't ever ascend into being a special,
because I think his floor is so high.
Yes,
like, he's going to be a useful player. I think the questions about
third downs inside,
and it just the strength against the run, like, he is a piece of a good defensive line. And I think it's not just the arm length stuff. I mean, I told this story, but was talking to an former NFL offensive tackle about this, and he was studying him, and he's like, he wouldn't threaten me vertically. Like, the explosion off the ball, I wouldn't worry about him getting to my edge enough where I think that limits his ceiling as a player. But those sort of like quibbles matter so much less at 15 than they would have at 4, that I think you feel totally fine about that. And again, if you're the Bucs, this could not have worked out any better. Like, every single iteration of this draft, you couldn't have imagined this is how it would have gone. This is perfect for them.
Yeah, any other iteration of them landing Bane probably would have been them going through scenarios of like trading up to where Miami's at, or where Kansas City was at, or whoever it was going to be. Like them getting him at 15, I just don't know how they would have seen that.
I think it's perfectly reasonable to have a debate or skepticism about his ceiling. But I agree about the floor. Like, that's what I keep coming back to. It is hard.
Just a good player.
It's hard to see Bane becoming just a bust. Like, he just is gonna fall out of the league and be an afterthought, because he is such a tone setter against the run and the leverage power and just the effort. Even if he's not a perennial Pro Bowler and double-digit sack guy,
I know his arms aren't as long as this guy. Is he in the Brandon Graham?
That's the compliment.
A lot of people
are throwing out.
Melvin Ingram and Brandon Graham, I think, are the two that make the most sense.
And if you're getting that at 15, that's a really good
Brandon
pick.
Graham was the 13th pick in the draft, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good comp. The guy that, when you were saying that, he's going to stick in the league, he's going to be a rotational piece at the very least, even if the ceiling isn't there. I think Brandon Graham is the high-end comp for him. The low-end comp for me is like what Derek Barnett has been. Derek Barnett is just like a guy who is a tone setter.
Ultra productive at Tennessee.
He was a great player in college, but he never quite hit that ceiling in the league. But you watch him play, and it's like, that's a guy on a good defensive line. And I think at the very least, that's what Ruben Bane is going to be, even if we have ceiling concerns.
Yeah, guys who are, and I think this applies to almost every single position in the NFL now, guys who are strong enough for their position and can give you something on all 3 downs, they'll last forever. Yeah. They will just stick forever. Even if they're imperfect in other ways, they will stick around for a long time.
I love how much and how quickly the draft can change your perception. Because yesterday when we talked about this, it's like, the Bucs need an edge. They're screwed. They're in no man's land for an edge. They don't have enough talent there. And now I look at it, I'm like, okay, Ruben Bane's joining Yaya Diaby, Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea, throw in Ashawn Robinson and Al-Qadim Muhammad. It's not the best thing in the league by any stretch, but I'm just like, all right, we got a stew going here. Like, okay.
But Al-Qadim Muhammad was a starter. Like, they needed it so desperately bad. The Jets pick is in here. We talked a lot about receiver to the Jets. Jordyn Tyson, if he had slipped, obviously he goes much higher than that. But Makai Lemon is still available. And it does seem like receiver should at least be a thought for the Jets here.
And it could be Concepcion. It could be Omar Cooper Jr., whichever one they prefer. A pass catcher that's going to help your offense is exactly what they need. And it is a pass catcher.
And it is a pass catcher.
Sadiq.
Just not the one we expected.
Kenyon Sadiq going to the New York Jets, 16th overall.
And Mason Taylor, who they drafted.
What does this mean for my dear sweet Mason Taylor?
He was great last.
He was good.
He had a good rookie year.
I need 2 tight ends.
Though.
Yeah.
You can play them both.
No, absolutely. And obviously they will, because Taylor is a part of what they're going to be doing on offense. Sadiq, and maybe they look at him as more of that hybrid where
H-back-ish kind of role.
Yeah, you move him across the formation. On some snaps, he's on the outside, some in the slot, some in the backfield. You can be creative with a player like this because he's very diverse with his talent. He can block. He's not as zero as a blocker, but his athleticism as a pass catcher is just unbelievable.
it's not 1-to-1, but it will not be unlike how the Raiders have Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. So where Bowers is like, he can play in line and he's fine as a blocker, especially if he's on the move, but you're going to put him in the slot a little bit more. He's going to be your field stretcher. Whereas Mayer, like Taylor, is he's going to get me the most boring 600 yards I've ever seen.
Colson Loveland. I mean, it's
Yes,
like it's
yeah,
very,
exactly.
very similar. And you wrote this up in the Beast. I think this was a really good way of thinking about it, because his blocking at Oregon, the moments where it really shines through is when he's on the move.
Right.
It's on split zone where he's slicing across formations on the second level. And I think really good offensive coordinators, we can have a conversation about whether Frank Reich is that, really good offensive coordinators, creative ones in the league, are doing a very good job of, if not hiding these sorts of players, then putting them in positions to succeed, especially early in their careers.
And that's a great point. And it's something that the offenses that we see around the league and how different they are based on the personnel and the strengths of the team, like it's just, you trust the coordinator and the play caller to get the most out of them, right? And that'll be the question more than anything with the Jets.
We just are in a world now where we're going to see more and more of these 12 personnel teams succeeding. And so Mason Taylor still has a place here, my friend, even with Kenyon Sadiq
for talking
by
me down.
the Jets.
Yeah, it's the same GM. I mean, it's not like this is a regime change. Like, obviously, they drafted both those players with a plan in mind.
The Raiders, I mean, Komet and Loveland as well. They're a few years apart though, but like Mayer and Bowers in very quick succession, and top 50 pick and a top 15 pick, very similar. I mean, you can absolutely. It feels like a lot to invest in tight end. But with the amount that teams are doing multiple tight end sets and the importance that the position has on offenses, I don't think it's that wild.
And Sadiq was a 59% slot player last year at Oregon, according to what you said in the Beast. So this is not, he could just be your slot receiver while giving you a lot more as a blocker.
Dane, how polished of a receiver do you think he is? Like, just like as a natural receiver, or is he still kind of a work in progress?
He has some drops, no doubt. The routes can be better. Like, I think he'll get there. And this is really his first full year as a starter. So I think you see that inexperience at times, but especially working the seams, like it looks like a mismatch when linebackers trying to cover him. So I think you're not going to ask him to run these elaborate routes, but they did move him across the formation and he had no trouble doing it. So I think that it's not going to be a huge learning curve based on what they're going to ask him to do in that offense.
They still need help at receiver, obviously, but the fact that they have an explosive playmaker who can just do something with the ball in their hands at all three spots, at tight end, obviously now with Sadiq, at running back with Breece Hall, and then Garrett Wilson at wide receiver, the fact that they've got that, the fact that 5-6 years ago, we used to live in a world where like scheme could kind of just print you explosives. And now the fact that you just kind of need players who can generate that for you, the fact that now they've theoretically got it at all three levels, and the offensive line is like pretty good. We just never got to see it last year because this team was never in games.
I also think it's so tempting when we go through this and when these guys get picked and you immediately try to slot them into a role within the offense. The Jets are so far away.
Yeah.
This is about accumulating good players and figuring out what the exact plan for everybody is later, because we joke about it. There's a very real chance this is not the coaching staff that's going to be there for the Jets next year. Like, not everything about the structure of the New York Jets offense needs to get figured out over the next 9 months. It's okay. This is about finding explosive, good NFL players.
Right.
Is it mean of me to say Kenyon Sadiq can do more fun shit without a robust passing game and do like more than just run cardio out there? So maybe it's better in the short term. Is that too cynical?
I mean, look, you're bringing in a veteran like Geno. Obviously, last year did not go like many people thought it would.
I'm
the
back
Raiders.
to believing now. The Sadiq thing is pushing over the edge.
The offensive line is better than it was in Vegas by a lot.
Just when you think I'm out.
And Garrett Wilson's better than whatever the
Anybody
Raiders
they
had
had.
outside.
Yeah. But we knew they needed a pass catcher,
I'm
right?
right back in.
To me, the biggest thing is we have these seasons and we have these offenses that the structure is just DOA from the start.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a quagmire structurally, the play calling, everything about the offense. That's what the Raiders were last year. That's what Frank Reich's offenses have been the last 2 times that we have seen him as a play caller. And so the players might be a little bit better. I'm not sure how much better the situation is with the Jets than it was with the Raiders last year.
My hope, and again, I do not want to buy into the Jets at April 23rd.
You
or
should
whatever
not
it's going
do
to be.
this.
I'm not trying to
You
do
should
this.
not do this to yourself. There's nothing good waiting for you on the other side of this.
When Wright can put stuff mentally on the quarterback, it looks better.
God, I can't
and he
believe
hasn't
it.
been able to do that in a while.
You're just We're picking at 17 here. The Lions pick is in. Just a quick reminder, if you're joining us for the first time, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. We do this 5 days a week during the season, 4 days a week in the offseason. We would love to be your new home on YouTube for your NFL coverage. So if you are just stopping by for tonight, please hit that subscribe button. We would sincerely appreciate it. The Lions selection is in here, Dane, and we had a lot of offensive tackles still potentially on the board here. Monroe Freeling was your 17th overall player.
Yep.
The Lions are picking 17th here. And he's the type of guy that you keep him at left tackle, allows you to keep Penei Sewell at right tackle. Freeling would make a lot of sense here for Detroit if that ends up being the pick.
Freeling and Keldric Faulk is also in this range for me. If they want to add that edge rusher to pair with Hutchinson, that's a direction they could go. But yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, the offensive lineman, we saw a mini run there, and I think it's going to continue here.
So now that Proctor's off the board, we have Freeling, and then who are your next guys after that stacked up at tackle?
It'd be Caleb Lomu from Utah and Blake Miller from Clemson. Depending on, do you want the high upside left tackle or the steady Eddie right tackle? That's kind of the difference between those two players.
Faulk is an interesting one. I mean, they love their long guys on the edge. Love their long guys on the edge. I mean, the Josh Pascal they drafted. I believe Peyton Turner's there now. And then they had Marcus Davenport. Like they just cycled through all the old long Saints guys. And so that is their body type on the edge next to Aiden Hutchinson. He's the short arm guy, and they got the long arm guy on the other side. Blake Miller.
So they do go tackle.
So that tells us Penei Sewell's going to be
Penei Sewell's going to be their left tackle.
All right.
So this is an interesting one. The choice between a Blake Miller and a Monroe Freeling is such a telling choice because with Miller, just so steady. The floor is extremely high. You just feel so good about plugging him in. We compared him to Taylor Decker a little bit, right? I mean, he can play for 10 years as a solid tackle where the Freeling upside was so much higher, and the Lions choose to go with somebody they feel like might be a little bit more sturdy and secure here.
And I think you understand that. Like, not a lot went right for that Clemson team this year, but Miller showed up every single day, and you knew exactly what you're going to get from him. In 4 years, he started 54 games. He missed one practice, and that's because he broke his wrist. And that was it. This is an Iron Man who there's a level of professionalism with him that I think that a team, especially a Dan Campbell coach team, would really appreciate.
If you're trying to think of like trying to poke the holes in a guy and figure out like what are the downsides and stuff, it's like, well, you've got it. He had all the experience, so you're not really worried about that. The tape it's not special, but it's like he clears a lot of the bars where you're like, that guy can clearly play. He's got it. And then athletically, he tested really well. And he has all the frame stuff you want, the length and stuff. And so maybe you're worried a little bit about like, does he have all pro ceiling? But if you're just like, we need a tackle across from Sewell, I'm not worried about it at all.
Here's what I love about it though. Like we look at the draft prospects and we're like, do you want to draft the raw left tackle with upside? No, we have a freak playing right tackle. We have like one of the 8 people on the planet who can seamlessly move to left tackle and play at an all-pro level. I think Penei Sewell is capable of doing that. It reminds me, I mean, some people wrung their hands a little bit when Tristan Wirfs was asked to do that in Tampa, and he handled it flawlessly. I think Penei Sewell is capable of doing it. So if that's the case, just take steady Eddie. Like we don't need to worry about projection here.
Wow. Vikings pick is in, and it is Caleb Banks.
Good for Caleb.
18th overall to the Minnesota Vikings.
That's awesome.
You are a Caleb Banks believer.
So between Ty Simpson and Caleb Banks, vindication all over the place for my half-ass draft takes.
When did you tell me you'd be comfortable drafting him?
I started to say 50 or 60.
Yeah.
But that's okay. But it's all injury related. It is nothing to do with his ability as a player.
No.
But when a guy who looks like this hurts his foot again doing a combine workout, let alone the shit he was fighting through. And for the record, and we can pick this apart, but before we do that, the guy gave it his all to be available for Florida this year. I mean, he got hurt early in the year, battled back, clearly, despite all of the injury concerns, good enough to go in the top 20. And he came back in a shit season for Florida where they fired their head coach and tried to make himself available, did the Senior Bowl. I think the world of this guy's football character. I'm freaking terrified of his health. But if he can stay healthy, Dane, what do you always say about this guy? How many people on
It's the planet theory.
How many people on planet Earth are 6'6",
327, 35-inch arms, 11-inch hands?
And you've made this joke since you've been shitting on LSU all night. I'll keep doing it.
2024.
If you're trying to get sold on Caleb Banks, go watch the 2024 LSU Florida game.
It all makes sense. It's all coming back around. Yeah.
And you will understand what this guy is capable of. Now, I don't think he's gotten close to that on a consistent enough basis for me to love this. But if the Vikings are right, it would be a hell of a pick.
So after seeing him in Mobile, up close and personal, and seeing him get better every single day, the top 100 board I came out with in February, he was 24 overall. And that was after missing most of the year. And then everything happened at the combine where he's hurt again, and those questions popped up, and he just started. It was very similar to Jordyn Tyson almost, where all the issues at the combine really gave you more doubt than you were looking to have for a player like this. But the talent is the talent. It's hard to find guys like this.
But the fact that Jordyn Tyson went in the top 10 despite all of that stuff, and we've talked about this being a draft, especially at defensive tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where there just aren't that many explosive, like otherworldly talents at defensive tackle in this draft,
right?
And so
Him
Peter
and-
Woods
That's it.
maybe, right?
Yeah.
Like in the upside case.
Who is, but like physically is not.
Yeah,
he's
Peter
not
Woods
like
is
built
smaller
like
than this.
Caleb Banks.
And so it just there aren't that many pure upside swings in this draft. And so to see a team draft a guy like this earlier than we might expect to take one of those swings maybe shouldn't necessarily be that surprising.
No, and especially a team like the Vikings that needed defensive tackle. We
Absolutely.
knew that. But I mean, some teams were okay. Maybe like they have him on the board as a second round pick. A lot of teams were not thinking Caleb Banks would be a first rounder. But same thing we said with Jordyn Tyson. If you are confident in the player and you're willing to admit it's a risky pick, then I get why he would be a top 20 selection.
Do you wonder at all? Because I've heard this from some of the coaches. I think there was some question about want to with him.
I think he's a young player, just young.
But he's not but he's just 23, so it's not like he's like
right. I think he's younger than his age would say. I'll put it that way. I had a really good conversation. I wrote a story about him going into the combine. Had a long conversation with him. I really enjoyed it because he's easy guy to talk to. It's just a fun-loving kid, but he does sound like a kid. That's the way he comes off, and I think there's a level of that.
Is this a maturity thing, or is it?
But not something you worry about necessarily. It's more so just you got to teach him to be a pro and what it's going to take. And so some of the things we were saying with Caden Proctor and keeping his weight down and just trusting him, I think that's true with Caleb Banks as well.
I know guys who interviewed with him and were wondering how much does he love football. That was like a real question with D-line coaches,
and that's why I think it's part of the whole package of why we're surprised he's off the board here. It is again. I think this qualifies as not a bad pick, but as a risky pick, a very very risky pick.
It's a reach for a need, right?
Yeah, to what you guys are talking about,
it's a reach for the talent that is lacking at the top of this draft.
Can you get it out of him?
You're saying if this is a draft lacking in freaky players. That's what we've been saying this entire time. Right. Caleb Banks is one of those dudes. There are a handful of reasons why you'd be scared to do this. And the Vikings are making a bet that if they're right, then he will be one of those guys that we said wasn't in this draft.
If you went to the Senior Bowl, the coaches and the scouts, and you see this player, and then you talk to the doctors and they say, hey, we think he'll be okay. Like, we think he'll be healthy.
There was a report this week. I apologize for not remembering who said it, but the report was he's expected to be available for June on-field stuff.
Yeah, I talked to his agent. They feel good. They sent a memo to all 32 teams and feel like he's going to be healthy for going to training camp. And so it's good news. You just hope he's able to stay healthy.
Panthers pick is in here at 19. A tackle, a big need for them. Talk about Monroe Freeling potentially going to the Lions. I think that would make sense here for Carolina, and that is it.
Yeah, that is.
Monroe Freeling going to the Carolina Panthers here at 19. Obviously, Iquanu, devastating injury at the end of last year, also playing on his fifth-year option. So the final year of his deal, they signed Rasheed Walker to a deal that was much lower than we might have expected in free agency to kind of be a stopgap because some injury concerns. But left tackle in 2027 and beyond is a question for Carolina. And so not at all surprising to see them go this direction, Dane.
Makes perfect sense. And I mean, this is where I went in my final mock draft, just because I had a feeling they would go for an offensive tackle. And a guy like Freeling, where he doesn't have to start from day one. He can be your swing, your backup left tackle early on. And then I think if he went back to Georgia, I think there's a good chance we're talking about him as a top 10 pick next year with another year of development and just growth as a player. So I think getting him here at 19 is a pretty good value if you're the Panthers.
We talk about the ceiling for Tate and Proctor. You could make a very serious argument that Monroe Freeling has the highest ceiling of any offensive lineman in this entire draft.
I think if you tell me every offensive lineman in the class hits whatever their ceiling is, Monroe Freeling is the best player. Like he just, I think the way that he moves at his size is kind of freaky.
All pro caliber stuff. If he hits it, all pro caliber stuff.
Like and there's a couple of times where maybe the feet are a little bit heavier than you want, especially like in pass protection, or maybe he doesn't see a stunt coming quite so quickly. But one, it got better towards the end of the year. And then just the way that he punches and latches on, it could be special.
He's huge too. He's a massive player,
and he's long, tested, crazy. Like he checks a lot of the boxes.
He's got some oomph to him too. Like for like a longer finesse athlete, he's got more FU to him than you'd expect.
Interdivision trade.
Philly comes up to 20 here,
which is not
trading up,
which
with
is
the Cowboys.
turning into a theme for these two teams.
Yes, it really is. I'm curious what this is for.
Devontae Smith, Michael Parsons,
Makai Lemon. Okay,
Makai Lemon. Going to the Philadelphia Eagles.
We theorized a receiver could be in the cards here. I don't know if we thought it was Makai Lemon, but
I think it's just because we were picturing guys that could step in for AJ Brown.
Absolutely.
I think that was the reason. But Makai Lemon is your best receiver available, best player available
at this point. I thought like I had him going Kenyon Sadiq because I was told they want a pass catcher. They want a blue chip pass catcher. Sadiq's obviously off the board, but maybe they would have went Lemon over Sadiq anyways because Lemon is a different guy. I think the competitive factor, we talked about this earlier, just the size doesn't blow you away. The speed doesn't blow you away. There's a competitive it factor to him that it feels like it tilts him in favor of him when he's the target. He makes quarterbacks right.
It's funny because when I was thinking about Makai Lemon to the Eagles and thinking like the skill sets in that offense, the way they use the receivers, it's like, how does this really fit? And I forgot that Sean Mannion is the offensive coordinator for the Eagles.
Right.
Like the structure of the Eagles offense is going to theoretically, Derrik, feel different this year than it's felt over the last few years.
It should be different. And also I think when we've seen a lot of the, once AJ Brown gets traded, some people have theorized that like, oh, maybe like there's a way to like they would put Devonta Smith in the slot more. Like if their best options were to find other guys who would be outside. I kind of hated that. Like Smith can do that obviously, but he is a good like outside vertical player when you want him to be. The fact that they can get Lemon here, who can be more of your middle of the field player, I think I'm more curious. Like I think by pick 20, I'm more okay with Lemon going in this range, especially when they have some of the other when they have like a guy like Devonta Smith. I am curious how he fits with Jalen Hurts. Like Lemon's best stuff is all between the numbers. Like he's a guy who's very tough, willing to make a lot of these catches. Jalen Hurts historically just doesn't really throw that area of the field. And so I wonder if Sean Mannion can get that out of him more or how that's going to go.
He's reluctant to do
he
that. He
just doesn't like to make those throws. Yeah. And that's the best way that you would get stuff out of Lemon is him playing with like a Dak Prescott, a Matthew Stafford, a guy who's just like, oh, you're down the seam? All right, I'm going to find you.
I don't want to get ahead of myself because AJ Brown is still on the Eagles roster as of right now.
Is he though?
I mean, okay. Thank you, Robert.
Technicalities.
If he is not there when it's time to go to training camp, what a small receiver core.
I know Derrik hates it.
Don't love it. I'll tell you.
Again, you're looking at structurally though, and this idea of blending inside outside. The Packers last year were like bottom 7 in average formational width according to Next Gen Stats. They played in condensed sets 49.8% of the time, which is like one of the 8 highest rates in the entire league. And so they are part of this world. If Mannion does bring a lot of that stuff over, that blends these roles and allows a player like Lemon to potentially survive in that offense more than he would in the Eagles' old offense, where you're just completely spread out all the time. It's a very different world potentially.
It'll be interesting. One of my favorite things about Lemon is all the hidden yards on his tape. Like he does not go down where he catches the football. He's able to give you a little bit more because as soon as he catches it, he knows he has the proximity awareness to know what's going on around him and how to maximize every touch. It's a really impressive thing.
He doesn't dawdle. That is if there's anything I appreciate about Makai Lemon is that he does help the quarterback make them right, and he doesn't like do the Zay Flowers. Yes,
great word, the SAT
This
word.
is the only man under the age of 30 that's ever used that word in America.
It's an urgency, absolutely.
Yes. He doesn't mess around with the football, and I appreciate that.
So we have the Eagles at 20. We have Pittsburgh at 21 here. And Pittsburgh, we thought might be in play for a receiver. Makai Lemon goes at 20 here.
Yeah.
Positionally, we've seen the offensive line run start a little bit.
Yeah.
So some of the spots that we had kind of paired with the Steelers in every mock draft that you've seen, a little bit thinner than you might like. What are you thinking about with Pittsburgh here?
So if they did go offensive tackle, Caleb Lomu from Utah, Max Ahinachor from Arizona State would be the top guys available. If they went receiver, Omar Cooper Jr., Casey Concepcion.
I actually do like Omar Cooper Jr. with them, actually.
Well,
in terms of skill set, I actually do think that fits.
You think about DK Metcalf and Pittman, and then you drop Omar Cooper in the slot, and how that works. Yes, I think that is a ideal fit.
Almost felt like Makai Lemon would have been a good fit for them.
Absolutely, yeah. I just think about the yak stuff with Omar Cooper, and DK Metcalf can do that in his own specific way, but just split the ball out to him, let him do something. Omar Cooper.
That's all the offense is right now.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Omar Cooper is the perfect 2026 Aaron Rodgers receiver. Derogatory.
Yes. No fault of his own.
Yes, that's not Omar Cooper's fault.
I just want to know. I want to see what this is, because if the answer is going to tell us how to feel about Broderick Jones, if that is a problem, or
that ship has sailed, I think.
Exactly. And so I can't shake the idea that this needs to be tackle if that ship has sailed. But
it is interesting that they felt good about the tackles, that they didn't have to do a mini trade up to get a Freeling,
there's two that we feel, for this range of the draft, I know not everybody loves Caleb Lomu and Inachor's a raw prospect.
But that's all I'm saying. They obviously feel comfortable if that's the direction they go.
They have, that's two pretty solid options to have.
And we'll see what happens. Broderick Jones, you have the injury question, but if you feel like he can play for this year and you're not going to pick up the option, and Hanachor is somebody that you want to bet on long term, he might not have to play for the 2026 Steelers. And that still might make it the right pick here.
They also need a guard.
Yeah.
Basontis. I think this is where we start talking about him.
You're trying to pump up Chase Basontis, the 21st overall pick here. I see what you're trying to do.
The next two picks, the Steelers and the Chargers, I think it's worth considering Basontis at those two spots.
I thought the Chargers would have loved Vega if he could have fought like Jim.
That would have been ideal for them. That would have been the best case scenario.
This is a moot point, but if the Rams liked Ty enough to take him 13th, do you think that could have been a possibility here? Or were the Rams just like one of those teams that's like on an island,
I think they were on an island.
I would guess that's probably right, because the Rams marched to the beat of their own drum. But it's funny to think, I think most people would have expected the Steelers to pass on the quarterback there, and then a team with a less obvious need took the other quarterback prospect 8 spots ahead of them. That's kind of wild.
Mm-hmm. We're probably going to have 10 minutes before we have the pick, because we're in Pittsburgh.
There's a lot of terrible towels that we're waving around here. Do
you think they think about edge here a little bit? I know their room is okay, but Watt's getting a little bit older.
Herbig's a free agent. Yeah. Highsmith's going to be 30.
You can never have enough of them.
Faulk, or would you take Mesidor?
Personally, I would take TJ Parker. That's a guy that I love there.
Derrick's big TJ Parker guy.
We're getting into range.
Big TJ Parker.
I haven't mentioned him a whole lot yet, but this is the range where I think he could go off the board. Mesidor, I think, probably does make a lot of sense for teams like this in this range, and he kind of fits their play style. So I think that one could probably fit.
I think, offensive line or Cooper, to me, make the most sense. But
you had Lomu going around here, right? In the low 20s?
Yeah, mid-20s. So, with this tackle run, which you knew was coming, it won't be a shock if that's the direction they go.
Safety is another one I would throw out there. Sean Elliott's 30. Ramsey's going to be 33. That's just one more that I would potentially
Would you go Thieneman here?
Thieneman's still around,
I don't think it stacks up as high as their other needs, but if you're going a little bit further down the list, it's just a position I would mention.
Well, you can make an argument Thieneman's the best available too.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think that's part of this. There it is.
There we go.
Max Ahinachor.
Okay. Good play.
From an upside standpoint, do you guys think he's as good as any, if he ends up hitting and blossoming, that he's has as much ability as any of the other tackles?
I personally would still put Freeling kind of in his own tier, because I just think physically he's a little bit different. But I do think the difference I would say for where the upside comes from is that with Freeling, it's just he's explosive and he's long. Ahinachor, his feet for his size are pretty quick. Yeah. And there are times where he just doesn't necessarily know what he's looking at and can get a little bit over his skis and stuff, but he's really quick and agile for a guy that his size. And so if it can come together a little bit, he's, not a young prospect, but he's football young. He's the guy that I did like quite a bit.
I actually thought it was funny because it's right in between you two guys. I'm 22 point. I always feel like he's 24 years old because he had a meandering path, and he's not that old. Physically, he's not that old.
Well, he's been playing football for 5 years. And so there are a lot of times where you see that. He's raw. Plain and simple. He is a raw player. Not you can't put him out there, but there will be speed bumps. We saw that at the Senior Bowl where he did a nice job at the Senior Bowl, but there were also a lot of reps where he struggled and you saw that inexperience show up. But you also see the dancing bear elements where it's just the size and be able to move like that, both in pass pro and in the run game. Those guys are pretty unique. And so, it's a little bit of a bet on a bet on upside, but I understand why a team would make it here.
There were so many teams in this range where that's a bet I would make. The Eagles are a team that I felt that way about. The Bears at 25, that's a team I felt that way about, where he was the one specific player because I assumed Freeling would be gone. Where, you know what, in this draft, let's just take a swing. Let's just take a swing.
Well, it's interesting because Broderick Jones, I mean, what position does he play?
Left tackle.
Max Ahinachor is only a right tackle.
Yeah. I think you can move Fano over there.
Because Fano came out of college.
He came out of college,
right.
Tackle.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering.
Guess.
Is that the plan?
I don't know.
Long term.
That's a great question. That would be my guess, just because Fatanu has done it before.
Right.
That'd be my assumption.
I wouldn't want to go, welcome to the NFL. Let's play left tackle.
Right.
Trey Hendrickson's week 2, by the way. Like that doesn't sound great to me.
So the pick is in for the Chargers here. We talk about Basontis, and guard obviously is a huge need for them. Edge is also a massive need for this team.
Yeah.
And if you could bring Keldric Faulk along as your third edge rusher, because you've got Tuipulotu, you've got Khalil Mack, I think that one does make sense here for the Chargers, even if right now interior offensive line is probably the thing that you have circled the most.
And I think now is maybe when we start talking about Jermon McCoy as well. The knee at a certain point, juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
And
Caleb Banks all over again.
Right.
You're
Exactly.
Like, let's make the bet on the crazy talented guy.
We don't have the medical report in front of us. We don't have, the medical advisors telling us exactly, is he a 2-contract player and all those details. But I think at least now is when we start talking about it. Other edge rushers, Akeem Mesidor, TJ Parker,
Is Malachi in there yet, or no? Is it a little high?
No, I think Malachi Lawrence, UCF. I think this is when we start talking about him as well. It's pick your flavor, right? In terms of the type of edge rusher you want. And with the Chargers, they have their edge rushers for right now, right? Like,
yes. Well,
so
if they got to play a game tomorrow,
Tuipulotu and Khalil Mack are free agents after the season, and those are really their only 2 guys.
Their next guy is Bud Dupree,
and he's also a free agent. The other name out here in position, Tony Jefferson is the starting safety for the Chargers right now.
Yes.
Like, safety is absolutely something that's worth mentioning here.
Would make a ton of sense, yeah.
Pick is in for the Chargers. Akeem
Mesidor.
So it is an edge. And they were so thin on the edge when you look at that roster. And Mack is on another 1-year deal. And again, I assume they'll make something happen with Tuipulotu, but they needed a third edge rusher desperately on this team.
The other bonus with him, one of the coaches I talked to, like in the last 10 days, said he thought he was on third down the best inside edge rusher. He was just got a lot of wiggle.
Yep.
He's really polished. And he was like, don't be surprised if he makes the biggest impact, the fastest of all these guys.
With him and Tuipulotu, you have 2 guys that you could potentially do that with and move them aside if you wanted to.
And I think what's almost my issue with him is that at least when I was watching him,
older than you?
It feels like he's older than me. And it felt to me like most of his good plays were when he was bumped inside, which is it's great that he can do it, and the value is really it's really cool. But to me, it feels like those are typically players we see go in the 2nd round or the 3rd round, and I do think that he can be useful. But
the guy I comped him to is Nick Scorton. He reminded me of like Nick Scorton, who was a 2nd round pick.
Exactly, and so I get like them going and addressing edge. I think especially because he doesn't have to start for them right away. I think is nice, and you can never really get enough edge rushers. But I would have preferred a Keldric Faulk or a TJ Parker. Probably.
He's got to start for him kind of fast. He's 25 years old.
Right?
We're not trying to keep him on the shelf for too long.
So much of the conversation with Mesidor has been about age.
Right.
This is a tough hypothetical, but let's say he's 21. Where do you think Akeem Mesidor, the player, goes in this draft if he's 21 years old in terms of impact?
Ahead of Bain. I think he would have, yeah. I mean, when you watch the Texas A&M tape, I know Bain had, I think, 3 sacks. Mesidor is a better player on that tape. So I don't think it'd be a shock. Now, he has some injury stuff in the background as well. We didn't have testing information from him either, but he's 100 miles an hour on every single play. And he also has the production. He was one of 2 players in college football this year that had at least 17.5 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. So production check, tape check. It's just the big things were the age and the injury history. And I know some teams that didn't have him in the first round because of that. But I think if you're betting on the player that you see on tape right now and coming in, we need you to help us. I get why, especially in this range, like the Bucks at 15, that's a little more of is this too early? Now we're in the mid 20s almost. It makes sense.
Did you ever get the sense that he played too fast? Like,
sure, yeah.
It feels like he's a little bit of like gambling and sprinting a lot of the time, and
guessing
like
sometimes.
Yeah, guessing sometimes. Which, like, when you're just a better athlete at that level of football, that's going to work. I do wonder how much of that works in the NFL when, if you're wrong 3 or 4 times a game and you're not, a Myles Garrett level athlete, like it's going to cause a few more problems.
To Dane's point, the Texas A&M game, the Notre Dame game too. Like they took over that game at the end. And like, for all the love that Bane got, Mesidor was right there every step of the way as well. I mean, the age gives me a little bit of pause, but at this point in the, again, like, you start to make peace with that stuff the later you get.
And good for him. He grew up in Ottawa, Canadian, started at West Virginia and then transfers to Miami. He was playing defensive tackle in 2003 and then had the foot injury, so misses most of 2003. Or 2023. Yeah.
He's not that
old. But yeah, I think he's had quite the journey. And so good for him that he's a top 25 pick.
By the way, if you're Dallas and Jermon McCoy's on the board here, and you potentially could come away from this first round with Caleb Downs and Jermon McCoy.
I was thinking Faulk myself, but
my thing with that is, and I mean, Cowboys lie all the time. It doesn't mean anything, but the Cowboys have said multiple times, like, this is not a year for red shirt players. And McCoy seems to be healthy right now, but do you want to take a guy that you're not 100% confident is going to
after Siobhan Arvell last year? I don't think they're interested in doing that.
What do you think the outlook is for Jeremiah McCoy? Obviously, he has the injury now. Like, what is the timeline based on what you've heard for him being ready to play?
It's just, is there another surgery that's needed? And is that a full year missed? And that's, And do you come back the same player? Because again, we don't have 2025 tape.
Yeah.
Do you come back from another surgery?
2 years off.
The guy we saw in 2024, that's a big gamble. And it comes down to your appetite for risk. But I mean, like you said, with Caleb Banks, that's one thing. And this is you want to not paint with a broad brush. Look at these guys individually. McCoy at some point is going to become a value. And we saw it last year with Will Johnson falling to the 48th pick. And he had a pretty good rookie year for the Cardinals.
How many guys can you remember who had to sit out almost 2 years though?
I asked that question during the process.
Sure.
And even a guy like Caleb Banks, and we mentioned some other ones at the time, like Jackson Smith and Jigba, you're still talking about guys who got a few games in, and like to not have tape at all.
So,
right. It's rare. There's no doubt about it. And so I certainly understand some of the skepticism with him.
I like Faulk as an option here.
It fits that scheme.
I agree. Yep. And you look at their edge room right now. I mean, you have Azaraku, obviously, they traded for Rashawn Gary. Sam Williams is still there. Williams is going to be a free agent after the year. Like, they absolutely could use a player with Faulk's upside, the development timeline, all of that stuff.
I mean, we can still talk about cornerback too. It could be Colton Hood.
Yeah.
It could be Chris Johnson. There are other.
Who's your favorite player in the draft?
Chris Johnson. Just like you getting TJ Parker. If I can get Chris Johnson in there, I'm going to. But just because they might not take McCoy doesn't mean they couldn't take a cornerback.
Fair. Cowboys pick is in here at 23.
Malachi
Lawrence.
That's the other one.
Yeah, they liked him a lot.
They loved Malachi Lawrence. I got that name, Dane. I think you and I got it around the same time. Sometime in February. They had a big grade on this guy. He fits a need. So Faulk, I said was one that made sense, but I can't say I'm surprised to hear
You love
this.
him too, right?
I just think there's a tenacity to him coming off the edge. Like you feel that. And there just aren't that many guys at this range of the draft. And we talked about this, where it's a combination of, 6'4", 250, checks every box in terms of profile. And you have the burst as a pass rusher.
Right.
Like TJ Parker's a solid player. Like that's where you're getting with that. But the other guys that have the pass rushing kind of juice that a guy like Malachi Lawrence does are your R. Mason Thomases, your Cassius Hollis, your undersized guys. Like there are very few edge rushers still left in this draft that fit both of those buckets in a way that Malachi Lawrence might if things work out.
Their pass rush coach that they hired, Brandon Jordyn,
now in Dallas,
worked with him a bunch.
Yep.
So he's seen like this guy who lit it up at the combine. He's seen him in workouts and worked with him. So, I think he has a decent intel on what he thinks he could be.
I'm just curious about what they're going to get out of him on early downs. Like he to me on film was a player that just doesn't give you a whole lot there. Obviously, he's a little bit undersized too, but he's a guy where I think in the best of outcomes, you see like a Brian Burns. Like if everything really hits, just that guy who's a little bit longer, incredibly explosive off the edge. And like Burns is a better run defender, but it's a lot of like getting under guys and like kind of swiping, or he's the backside chase player and he does a really good job. And so Lawrence could get there. I think it's probably going to take 2 or 3 years before
it's nice that you do it. He is the third edge rusher, right?
Right.
Like, see, you can't
Does not
use him
immediately need to
situationally
be-
in year one because
Correct.
of what they have.
I mean, stats lie all the time, but like he didn't have over 30 tackles this year. Like he was not a guy you came away from the tape saying, oh, he was a presence in the run game. I don't think he was necessarily a zero in the run game. It just didn't. I don't think he really stood out and established himself as
He's
a
just a third down guy for the first 2 years of his career.
I don't, maybe not 2 years, but at least as a rookie. Yeah. And that's okay. That's what I think they, right. And that's what I think they need right now, but he's explosive. I mean, 40 inches in the vert, 10-10 broad.
And you feel that when you watch him. That's not something where like it doesn't match up
you
with
do
the
see
tape.
that,
You
yes.
see the explosiveness when you watch him.
He
Makai Lawrence.
immediately gets to the arc of the tackle, and like he'll threaten you immediately.
I say whenever I hear his name, the Baylor tape
Oh,
just
it's
pops
just,
in my mind.
It's seared into your brain
Right.
watching those. I mean, those exact moments.
And I will say he's to me a little bit of a riskier prospect. But when your other pick is Caleb Downs, where it's just like no doubt about it, that guy is incredible.
Yeah.
Your risk for like your
It's
appetite
fair.
for risk on the second pick is a
You
little
come,
bit more
you
like
come
whatever.
away from the top with Caleb Downs. I think damn near any name you could have turned in would have been fine here.
All right, so we've had months now since the season ended looking at 12 and 20, 12 and 20, 12 and 20. What are the Cowboys going to come away with?
It's
Now
11
it's-
and 20. What was it? 23?
23.
And, but now it's realized.
Yeah.
Now it's Caleb Downs and Makai Lawrence. How do you think Cowboys fans should feel about that being the haul now that we've come to the end of the Micah Parsons trade?
I mean, obviously, you can't judge that until you see these guys play NFL football. But like I just said, to come out of this with Caleb Downs for where they were picking really feels like a best case scenario. And like you were sitting there this entire time saying, how do you get that guy to come to you? Or if it's not him, then could you get Mansoor Delane? But I really think Caleb Downs in their eyes was the best case scenario. And so to come out of there with that guy who's going to start from day one, he's not going to probably, but like Caleb Downs could wear the green dot for you if you wanted him to.
You might have to.
And
based
I
on the
mean,
current state of the linebacker
yeah,
room.
that's a whole nother problem. You're right.
Overshown. I don't know who else would do it. Yeah.
And so to come out of there with him, who again, he can play safety. He's going to be in the box. He's going to play nickel. That is a home run. And so here, I think you're hunting upside, and I would guess Makai Lawrence is probably going to need some seasoning and is not going to have that sort of impact. But that's okay. Like you just said, Robert, I mean, to be the third edge off the rip, I think Cowboys fans should view this as pretty much a best case scenario. I really
Close to
do.
it.
Yeah.
There's one more thing I want for the best case scenario for Dallas at the end of all of this.
Not to deal George Pickens.
Trade for Jordyn Brooks.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, please. I wanted that pick to be CJ Allen, and that is the 10 times better version.
People
of
have
that.
been asking me for months, what do they, 12, 20, and 92, what do they do? And I say, okay, well, for starters, 92 becomes Jordyn Brooks in my world.
Mhm.
And then we can deal with that. So if they were to swing that, if they and maybe it'll be after the draft and they use next year's capital.
Whatever it happens to be. Yeah.
If they add Jordyn Brooks to what they did tonight, yeah, I'm pretty ready to be excited about the Cowboys.
Miami has 76 picks in this draft.
Yeah.
They don't have as many in next year's draft, and Jordyn Brooks is in the final year of his deal. And so that's a name where I would just keep coming back to it. What I want now with Cleveland on the clock and the pick being in, I want them to pick Caleb Lomu.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that would
Just
be
bring
funny.
him back.
Just have both of them.
Bring him back.
I mean, I think this has worked out great for them, assuming it's just going to be a receiver, which is the direction we thought they would go. Just would it be receiver tackle or tackle receiver? Obviously, they went offensive lineman with Spencer Fano earlier. Omar Cooper Jr. is still here. Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston.
Thieneman, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thieneman,
Yeah.
they loved McNeil Warren too.
They
So
love both,
safe-
they love both those guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
safety very much in play here. Sorry, Shador.
Browns pick is in at 24. Casey Concepcion.
Oh,
Okay.
That's what I had in my
Not
mock.
sorry to
Yeah.
Shedeur.
No, yeah, that's dynamic. I mean, a player who,
I love Casey
I
Concepcion.
kind of do too. Yeah.
and this is what this team needs. Their number one weapon on offense is your second year tight end, which
Whoa.
Harold Fano's a good
That's
player.
okay.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Harold Fano's a good player, but you need more juice, especially.
He's the most explosive receiver in the draft, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could
Get him in there, get some return game from him.
I would say punt return, absolutely. He's just so dynamic, so he will
Smooth
create.
acceleration, just
Yes.
so smooth.
Dane, you so you nailed both Browns picks, huh?
I did. How
Fancy,
about that?
fancy that.
I know we knew that they were going to lean the ways that they did, but it just the board worked out. I think the way they hoped it would.
Yeah.
And so to come away with these two players, you're coming away with two starters from day one and guys that are going to make your offense better.
And I also just think there's a thing with him where because he's not the biggest guy and because he has you see the drop rate and you get a little bit worried. You're like, oh, is he just a guy who kind of gets knocked around? Is he going to be able to play outside? He beats press all the time.
He's
and
bigger than you think.
And he
Derek,
makes
he's
tough
strong,
catches.
yeah.
Derek, why don't you show us a little bit about Casey Concepcion?
Yeah,
and
give
then
me-
what we're getting here with
Yeah,
Casey
give
Concepcion.
me a
as
minute to
player.
pull it up.
It's funny because we don't have a 40 on him, and I think some have questioned what his speed would be, but you see the tape and he's
He pulls
running by
away from
corners. Yeah.
There's that play against South Carolina where he just stacks Cisse and
Cisse.
runs away from him.
Cisse
And
can
it's
run.
It's
when I-
4-0, I think.
when I was watching him, and I think part of this was driven by the fact that I thought Miami might be a landing spot for him, but he's not as fast and he's a little bit bigger. He reminded me of Jalen Waddle in the ways that Jalen Waddle moves. And some of that is that smooth acceleration, but also the punt return stuff is where you see it, but his ability to pull away from people in the open field and yak opportunities, you just see so much of that. Derek, let's just talk a little bit more about Casey Concepcion and what he brings to this offense.
And that's what we're going to get is him pulling away. So he's actually just off the screen here, kind of to the left-hand side, but they're going to run him over on this little short
We're
route.
gonna watch him roast LSU. Just
Yep.
continuing
Back
the
to
theme.
LSU. So he's going to like hit here and stop and go on this little whip route. And the ball's actually going to be like up above him and behind him. One, I think like to be on that whip route where you're going outside, ball's up behind you and you got to snatch that. I think he does a really good job there. And then you're going to see this defender right here, given the position Concepcion is in and where this defender is, this should be an easy tackle every day of the week.
That's
Just
Mr.
easily
Number.
makes
That's
that
Mr. Number
miss.
6 pick right
It
there.
is.
as well.
And then goes and makes a really good play to finish it out. So he's just the guy where, that's not a play where you're seeing him beat press, but just his ability to, again, I think that's a clip where you see him actually track the ball really well and make that weird, awkward catch over his head. And then immediately, as soon as he's ready and has the ball, boom, he can make a guy miss immediately. A guy who that safety has perfect tackle position on him. And he doesn't even touch him. He just makes him miss.
And I think you make an argument, Dane, that that's not even the best part of his game. He might be the best route runner in this draft, especially when you kind of add in the vertical element to it. So the fact that he can do that after the catch and he's bringing what he is as a separator, really his ability to attack the ball in some of the drops is the biggest question with him. But other than that, there's
Right.
so much to like about Concepcion.
It's a combination of his athleticism and a decisiveness that that runs his routes. And going back to, Bruce, you know this, the NC State days where he would line up in the backfield and he was a big part of not just being a receiver, but hey, he's kind of the best guy we have. So let's just manufacture touches, get the ball in his hands. And so there's a lot of different ways you can utilize him in an offense.
I didn't think he was, when he first really showed up at NC State, I didn't think he was like as strong as he was. Because, he's almost running back size. And when you see how fast he is and you watch him in the return game, I was like, oh, I thought he was 180 pounds. He's almost 200 pounds. Again, he's not like, he's not Debo or anything, but I think he's a really fun player. For Browns fans, it's been a minute since you've had any reason to get really excited, and he gives you something like that.
It's a coincidence, but I think compared to consensus, I think my two favorite players in the draft were Spencer Fano and Casey Concepcion.
Huh?
And so for this to work out the way that it did for the Browns, like I personally, if I were a Browns fan, would be very excited about this being the end result here.
And who else is happy is Shedeur. He just got some help. Assuming Shedeur Sanders is going to be the starter, this is a chance for the Browns to see what they have. And as this will be an evaluation year going into next year's draft, as quarterback going to be high on our needs. Shedeur's going to have a lot of opportunities to say why the job should be his.
The Waddle comp is a good one too, because if we remember Waddle's rookie year, the offense was not that good yet, and he didn't have Tyreek Hill next to him, and it was a lot of like, Waddle, run 3 yards, run in, and we're just going to give you the ball 100 times. Yeah. And I think there's a chance that they just do that with Casey Concepcion this year.
One of the other reasons that I made that comp in my mind is that the Waddle on the move and just using him in motion in the way that they did, like that role is just what I best envisioned for Casey Concepcion. And so it wasn't just like their skill sets, but I think deployment as well. I just think there is like a Jalen Waddle sort of path for him in the league, even if he's a little less fast. I am not a Browns fan.
I said, but the Bears are on the clock.
I am a Chicago Bears fan. And so the Bears pick is in here at 25. Pass rusher is what people kept coming back to. I would not be surprised if that is the direction that they went. Keldric Faulk, we joked about Dennis Allen a million times, does check the boxes in terms of the profile. But Dylan Thieneman at 25, it's that they right now, and we'll see what happens with Dio Dangbo coming back from that Achilles. That other safety spot is arguably the biggest single need to play week 1 that the Bears have on their defense. So I think you can make a solid argument for Thieneman here, even if this team just desperately needs some pop on the defensive line.
And because we keep saying all the, the edge guys that Dennis Allen obviously loves, and that totally tracks. But there is like he had some really good safeties in New Orleans for a long time. Like Marcus Williams was playing there. And so like, I think that there's a chance that he really values that at a high level, because almost similar to the Spags things is like he moves his safeties around a lot to get guys who can do a lot of that stuff and have some range. I mean, we'll see if they do it here.
Kobe Bryant, like they would remake their safety room in a big way with these two guys if that was the pick. Bears pick is in at 25. And it is Dylan
Thieneman. Okay.
So I'm totally fine with this. It's like the way that the draft fell, and again, like what they needed on the back end. You think about the range they now have with those two guys at safety, Dane. I think it's pretty easy to get excited about that combination of players.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a big-time athlete who's also the character and makeup's off the chart. And going back to his Purdue days, as a freshman, he had over 100 tackles, and he played single high for them. And you see the range to the sideline, and then he goes to Oregon and becomes one of their best defensive players. Played a different role, but I think it showed his versatility where you want him to play in the post. So, okay, you can do that. You want to play a little bit of nickel? Okay. He only had 2 picks this year, but they were both game-sealing picks. They're showing the Penn State one in overtime right now on the TV. This is a player that gives you versatility in the back end and a guy that's going to do whatever it takes to get the most out of his body. So some of the run game stuff just needs to tighten up a little bit, but it's this is the type of athlete and person and the makeup that you bet on.
Less a criticism of Dylan Thieneman and just an observation about the Bears' thought process, because you take the safety here. We've said for months that this is a great safety class. So the Bears pick at 57 and 60. Common logic to me says take the edge now. A safety you like will be there at 57 or 60,
will
whatever.
Will they be there that late, though? I think that, like, if you think there's 5 safeties, they may all be gone.
That is a risk worth considering. But again, like common logic to me would say, well, the edges definitely aren't going to last, but maybe this is a year where they do. And if there is a year where they do, I think it could be this year.
And I think Thieneman is just maybe that good.
Yeah. I was going to circle back around to the idea that he might and is good enough that you're like, okay, even if that is the way you would typically think about this, the grade's high enough that we're just going to do it.
That's exactly how I was thinking about it. Because in my mind, that's why I wanted them to go with the edge here, because the safety class is a little bit deeper. But if he's just such a good player that it kind of tilts the scales a little bit, which I think you believe he might be, that's not surprising to me.
I think you have a chance to get a B+ safety or a B- edge here. And I think they went with the B+ safety. And I don't fault them for that at all, because if he's not on the board, there's a good chance they probably do go edge. Yeah. They're in a position where they could kind of go with the best available on their board, and I just believe it was Thieneman.
There were guys, multiple safety coaches I talked to, who felt he was as good, if not better, than Downs. They liked him more because they felt like he had more range. He has a little more length, and a lot of the stuff they love about Downs, they also love about him.
you just see the priority that they had in remaking the range specifically on the back end. Like going out and getting a Kobe Bryant to me is kind of a declaration of how we're thinking about this position. And I think you're only doubling down by going with Thieneman here.
100%. And I think one of my favorite things about this, and my experience watching Thieneman was interesting because so much I heard about was like, oh, the athlete, and he's this guy who has range and he plays in the post and all this stuff. And then I watched him like kind of come downhill and hit people and have some decent stopping power.
Like
and
linebacker.
Right. Sometimes his angles can be a little bit, questionable, but he is willing to go just really throw down with guys. And I appreciate
Kobe Bryant's like that.
Exactly.
Like as a converted corner.
But as Dane said, the defense he played in at Purdue was way different than what they did at Oregon last year. And so, from the time he got to Purdue, and it's going to be like, oh, Purdue sucked for a long time. But their old coach, who is now in Washington, was like told people he was the best player in the program from day one.
Yeah.
And there were good players at Purdue. They all like Nick Scorton was there. They transferred out, but it wasn't like there was a bunch of stiffs there. There were some good players, and they felt like from the time he showed up day one, he was the best player.
He had 106 tackles that first year. I mean, he was
that's crazy.
Lightning in a bottle right away. And so for 3 years in college, 2 at Purdue, 1 at Oregon, he had over 300 tackles. And I've made the joke before about, if he found out that Japanese snapping beetles would make him 1% better, he would buy up whatever was available on Amazon. That's just the way he's wired. That's the way I'm honestly surprised he's still on the board at 25.
And that goes back to it a little bit too of like, okay, he's a guy who started from the jump, which is obviously a thing you always want. Super productive in a lot of ways, tested really well, has the size. The fact that he showed it at 2 different schools, I think is also a cool thing in this era. Like it's just, you kind of, outside of a couple of nitpicks on tape, run out of reasons to not enjoy him as a player.
Houston trading up here to 26 with the Buffalo Bills. So Houston moves up 2 spots. We'll see who it's for.
Kadyn?
Oh, please.
Keylan Rutledge.
I love that, actually.
We were talking on the offensive line show. Which one of these guards would slip into the back half of the first round? And it is Keylan Rutledge from Georgia Tech going to the Houston Texans at 26 here.
They now have Wyatt Teller and Keylan Rutledge, who they want to move you off the spot.
So here's my hope. You talked about him snapping. As part of the process.
That's a big part of it.
So with Teller and Ingram are there.
Yes.
At least in the beginning, it seems logical that he would play center.
So now from left to right, you got Ursery, Wyatt Teller, Keylan Rutledge potentially at center, Ed Ingram, who you just re-signed, and then you signed
Braden Smith
in free agency.
Right.
Some big boys.
and this is
I'm into it.
This is one of the toughest guys in the draft. I mean, Brent Key, his head coach at Georgia Tech, called him the toughest guy he's ever met. Like that says something. And so he's a player that has that guard center versatility. And talk about remaking a unit on your roster. The Texans have certainly made that a priority.
The Miami Dolphins moved up to 27 here with one of their 27,000 draft picks. They have traded up 3 spots.
Good for them.
The Niners. Yeah. I wonder if they wanted Rutledge. That's why
that could have been useful for them. Totally.
Well, and that's why Houston traded ahead of them to get him, and now 49ers like, all right, let's get out of there. Interesting.
Rutledge, I just when we think about where Nick Caley came from in terms of having some experience with McVay and stuff, and they built their lines to be pretty big, run a lot of duo recently, and I think if Caley could live in that world, he probably wants to. And now with the line that they built, because some of their success too last year was them getting into like jumbo packages, which obviously that's always a band-aid. And we've seen teams like, the Bills had done that previously, and then they get away from it when they don't have to do it. And so the fact that they now bring in Rutledge, and they really have retooled this offensive line to go from one of the worst in the league 2 years ago to like, you could sell yourself on this thing being pretty good.
He was my 62nd player, so I was not super, super high on him. I think when you get to his edges, he will struggle. I think so I'm not going to say this pick is like a home run, just in my opinion, but you understand the identity they're going for.
Do you think center mitigates that if they move him to center?
But I mean, it's hard because
You've never seen him do it.
He had a few reps at Senior Bowl, but we don't have that body of work to really understand that. But I can understand why they would want to make that bet.
You would not take your number one guy was Slaughter from Florida, right?
Strictly a center. Yeah.
Because he has the value of playing both. It's just a projection, right? To see what he could do at center. Right?
If I felt good about him as a center, he would have been my number one center. I don't have a
Could you do that without him playing it though? Right?
Right. That's tough. But it's just like we talked with Caden Proctor, maybe moving to guard, and Spencer Fano, what he's going to be in Cleveland. With Rutledge, I think having at least some of that based off of what we saw at the Senior Bowl and the fact that I know teams are really focused on that. I thought 25 in the Bears could have been maybe where we're on Rutledge watch. So
when you look at the Texans offensive line, I believe Wyatt Teller has like $8.5 million in guarantees on his deal, which that's a lot for 1 year. Like you expect him to be a starter given him that deal. Jake Andrews was always kind of this makes sense. He had Cole Popovich, their offensive line coach. He had worked with him when they were in New England, so there was some familiarity, but that was more of a marriage of convenience and desperation than anything. Like I do think that him being in the mix at center to get their best 5 out there, I would not be surprised if that's where this thing shook out. Now with the Dolphins moving up to 27, this to me, if I'm making a guess, is Keldric Faulk.
I thought even at 11 it was possible.
I'm surprised he is of the players left the one I'm most shocked. You would think like
it's
20
kind
years
of refreshing for the NFL to not fall that in love with the big traits guy. And I like Faulk. No.
Right.
We talked about him going as high as 11 or 12.
The biggest issue I know a lot of people had with him was the tape was worse this year than it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some of it because people like I'd heard there was like a power struggle and one coach at Auburn wanted him for this room, the other room. And it was like Auburn was a bad deal last year.
Yeah.
And everybody liked his character there. But
it's also the scheme, right? Like that Durkin, that 3-man front where like he just wasn't given as many opportunities to really rush the passer. And so, I know the sack number wasn't there, but his usage was a big part of it.
It also seemed like he got in a better shape for the combine than he was in the season, at least from some of the guys I talked to who played him. They were like, thought he was not in the best of shape when they played him. And again, I don't know how much you put on him and how much you put on the program at that point.
4.67 at the pro day in the 40. And it's 276 pounds with 35-inch arms. So size-wise, athletic-wise, he's a young player. The character stuff is awesome. Like he used his NIL money to help some of the walk-ons.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. There's a lot of, character stuff like you were talking about, Bruce, that checks those boxes.
Pick is in here for the Dolphins at 27. Chris Johnson.
All right.
There you go, Dane.
Is that the second corner?
Yeah, that
is the second corner.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
He's awesome, man. He's going back to the summer and watching his tape. I was like, all right, we got something here. And I remember being really excited because it's hard with a group of 5 teams because if you're good enough, you're going to get transfer up. And so to have Emmanuel McNeil-Warren and Chris Johnson, I was like, all right, we got 2 live ones here. And then getting on the phone with him back in September and talking to him, just high character kid. He's a twin. He skipped kindergarten. That's why he's young for a senior. And then you watch the tape during the year, and the Cal tape is the one that sticks with me where he baited a throw and had a pick 6. And then another play late in the game, he kicked inside over the slot and had this beautiful PBU on a slot fade. So he's just, if you combine everything, the big question was he fast enough? That's talking to scouts throughout the year. It's like, what am I missing on this guy? And he's going to run a 4.55. Really? Okay. All right. And then he goes to the combine, runs a 4.40. It's like, all right, we're running out of excuses why this guy shouldn't be a first-round pick. And with Jermon McCoy was my number 2 corner, but with the knee injury, the next guy up is Chris Johnson. So it's awesome to see him go here.
And this defense, I mean, like the amount of zone Jeff Hafley runs and like his awareness and his ability to kind of play off schematically, Derrik, it feels like Chris Johnson fits what a Jeff Hafley defense is going to want to be.
Totally. This is a defense where kind of like some of the Spags iterations, some of like Chris Ash's defense with the Rams, Hafley can be like this, where like they create scenarios where the corners can just get eyes on the quarterback and go. And I do think that that's going to be a good spot for them. Whether or not the pass rush can actually get home on this defense, we'll talk about that. So that's why we said maybe they should draft Keldric Faulk. But I mean, we talk about how bad the pass rush was there. At least they have Chop Robinson. This cornerback room, if they had to play a game today, was Darrell Baker and Storm Duck on the outside. I don't know how good Chris Johnson will be. I'm confident that he will be better than that from day one.
I really would have loved the symmetry of Miami just picking the 2 biggest dudes in the world to anchor both lines. Like that would have been really fun.
It would be a cool declaration as your first 2 picks of a new regime. It's like, this is what we are.
For the reason you just brought up, I can't criticize them for wanting talent in their secondary.
Counterpoint. The other edges right now are Josh Uche and David Ajabo.
Correct.
This team needs
They need it all.
everything.
That's why they've added more picks tonight than they already had.
Patriots picking at 28 here. They have moved up from 31. The Bills moving down again, and it's Caleb Lomu. And why this is interesting is that if Caleb Lomu is a left tackle only, what does this mean for Will Campbell?
That is interesting. And Lomu's ideally a guy you don't want starting from day one. He's a young player, redshirt sophomore. Like he's interesting. He just got married like a month ago. So like he's young in age, but he's somebody that came in pretty quickly. He was a top recruit, just like Fano. They were in the same class, and like both of them together were like two of the top recruits Utah ever had. And they played pretty quickly, and they formed a pretty good duo. I think you like the balance, the body control, the feet. He needs to get stronger, and it's just that's a big ask at the NFL level, and that's a big question mark. Can he? He might never be a people mover, but can he at least develop that core to a point where he's going to hold up physically? And that's probably going to take time.
But
and
he is really young, so.
We did the offensive lineman, and I watching all the guys who could potentially go in the first round. He's the only one that left me a little cold. With all the other guys, I think you could see a path, and I think there's a mindset thing, there's a mentality thing, and when you watch him play, you want more. I think you walk away from it wanting a little bit more, even if the tools in pass protection are evident when you watch him play. He's very smooth, but that's mostly what he is.
Yeah. Well, and because what I said earlier about, I don't remember who we were talking about. If you are strong enough and have value on all three downs, you'll last in this league. His issues right now are, I'm not sure he's strong enough. And because of that, I'm not sure what he really gives you in the run game outside of like very specific outside zone stuff, which he could do at a high level. But if you're limiting the offense to only that, you start to run into some questions. I also with them, like, does he go to right tackle? Does Campbell go to right tackle? They don't have a guard spot open. They just signed Elijah Vera-Tucker, and Mike Onwenu is still there.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't know how this shakes out.
So Onwenu's a free agent after the year, and Morgan Moses is 47 years old. And so even if he doesn't have to play right away, there is a path for Caleb Lomu being a part of this thing in 2027. And we've talked about this with offensive tackles. It's whether it's a Hanachur not playing this year, whether it's Lomu taking a little bit of a redshirt year, this is where you find them. And even if they have to sit for a little bit, this is where you should be looking for them.
It's interesting. Obviously, from year one, he's going to be more of a swing tackle, more of a 6 offensive lineman backup. But what does that mean for the future? And I guess they don't have to answer that right now. Yeah. I mean, you figure that out over time.
And Moses might get hurt. I mean, like older guys
who came into the league, especially if they're like a first rounder, whether they're late or middle first rounder, where the question was, can they get a lot stronger?
Yeah.
And they actually do. I'm not saying he can't because he's really young, but I'm just saying, like,
it happens at tackle sometimes, right? Can you think of any examples?
I mean, I don't know. Austin Jackson, did he get I remember him. That was a big question for him coming out of USC. Was he strong enough? I don't know that he
enough to stick around, but not command. Right.
I mean,
or are you looking at him as a first round guy? He's serviceable, right? So
yeah.
He's again. We talked about Spencer Fano and like the fact that Austin Jackson might not be the right tackle for the Dolphins this year. So the pick is in for the Chiefs at 29. Derrik, let's talk a little bit about Mansoor Delane and how he kind of fits with what the Chiefs want out of their corners and maybe why they were so aggressive in going to get him in this draft.
That's a good one. Delane is, he's one of the most exciting players in this draft. Let me see if I can find the correct clip here. And we have it. So Delane, Delane, we've talked about a little bit. I think in the Spags defense just makes a lot of sense where, again, you're going to get your eyes on you're going to be able to look at the quarterback and make some plays. And so this is going to be a situation where he's here at the top of the screen, but he looks like he's playing man here, but he's going to end up zone turning, and he's going to get some sort of little out route here, and he's going to turn and do a phenomenal job, I think, so you see he presses, but he's playing cover too. So he's just like, he's going to let this guy go. That guy's going to go there. Delane's going to get eyes back on the quarterback, knowing like, okay, I'm letting number 1 go vertical. I have to be ready for 2 to come out to me. So as soon as he does that, he gets eyes on the quarterback. You don't see the quarterback in this clip, but you see him turn his eyes over. He's triggering immediately, goes and gets hands on the ball. What I actually love here, I'm going to go back just a little bit. I think lesser cornerbacks potentially, this is a really tough ball to pick off. Lesser cornerbacks are probably like, I'm just going to go get one hand in there, try to punch this. You can see right here, he's got 2 hands on this thing. He is so certain that he can steal this one. And I just absolutely love that about him. That is, to me, number one cornerback mentality. And again, in a defense that is going to go and let you do that, I just love this fit.
The guy the Jaguars drafted last year picks that off.
Travis, 100%, which is why I kept saying when they drafted him, I was like, he should be an outside corner. I don't know why we're playing him at receiver.
One of the big knocks on Delane was the arm length.
Right. If he had 1 more inch, he probably does steal that one.
22% of snaps last year for the Chiefs in some sort of cover 2 look, whether that be cover 2 or cover 6, which was a top 7 rate in the league. So he is going to be getting those opportunities in that Steve Spagnuolo defense.
Certainly not comparing them. And like I said, he doesn't have the freaky athleticism that some of the corners that have come out of LSU have, but the cornerbacks DB's coach at LSU is a guy by the name of Corey Raymond. He went to Florida for a little while and came back, but he's coached at LSU forever, 15 plus years. He coached Patrick Peterson.
Brian Kelly ran him out of there.
Exactly.
Let's not go down that route.
And now he's back.
What a night for Dave.
Hey, Corey Raymond's back coaching my secondary. It's fine. But he coached Patrick Peterson. He coached a lot of Derek Stingley. He was there for those years. He's coached a lot of these guys. He loves Mansoor Delane. And not to say it's a comp, but a guy who's coached some fantastic NFL cornerbacks. Like that, there's nothing fake about Mansoor Delane's success at LSU.
Peter Woods going 29th overall to the Kansas City Chiefs.
This is exceptional for a number of reasons. One, obviously, I love Peter Woods. I just think that Clemson was a weird program this year. They made him lose a little bit of weight. He obviously did not show his best tape, especially compared to 2024. I just think the talent is through the roof. Like, he's just a guy where the balance and explosion is crazy.
How high is the Clemson defensive line coach on your shit list? If like Peter Woods and TJ Parker are like your 2 favorite players in this draft.
Everybody at Clemson's on my shit list.
We can push some of that to Dabo if we want to. Like, I don't know who it needs to go to, but
You know what, though? This is a perfect example of what we were talking about. Peter Woods, why wasn't he better in 2025? He was Dane's number 1 guy. I think he finished 35th.
Something like that, yeah.
Going to Kansas City with Chris Jones and Steve Spagnuolo? Okay. Yeah. I feel a hell of a lot better about that than I would have about a few other landing spots.
Exactly. It's one of those like, oh, if Spagnuolo, I think, has a plan for him, then I really like that. And this is also not even just this player and just this class, all this stuff. We have, I think, for basically the entirety of the time that Chris Jones has been there, been like, man, if they just had a guy next to him who could do anything, what would that look like? I have confidence that Woods can give them something.
Where do you land with the Peter Woods that was your number 1 player coming into this, and the Peter Woods that ended where on your top 100 or your top 300?
I mean, part of it was
he was 35.
Yeah, part of it was expecting him to take another step this year, which didn't happen. But when you grade to the flashes with him, you see a first-round pick all day. Exactly what you were saying: the balance, the body control, the quickness that he plays with. I mean, there's a reason they gave him so many offensive snaps because of at that size, the way he can move is different. It's just, why didn't we see it more consistently? And I think there are ways to explain some of it. I just couldn't explain all of it. That was my hang up with him. But you recognize the talent, and it's in there. It's in that body. It's just, we need to get it more out of him. I mentioned one of my favorite stats is he had more rushing yards this year than pressures, and that's just not ideal. But
it's not great.
No, not what you want. But look, there is talent in that body, and you just hope your coaching can get it out of him.
And I do think this is a team that also signed Kearis Tonga this offseason. I think Woods, even if we would like a little bit for the pass rush to come out in a way that it didn't really in 2025, I do think his run defense clips were really good. He just commands space for a guy his size in a way that I thought was impressive. So you add him, Tonga, Jones obviously still gives you that. The middle of their defense is more stout than it was a few months ago.
So 2 defensive tackles off the board in the first round, neither of which is Caden McDonald as of yet.
How about that?
Like I said, we knew that there were going to be some differing opinions here. Like everybody was too closely grouped together for it to be tidy.
Jets are up to 30.
Well,
the Niners are back to 33.
So I think it's probably some of that.
Yeah,
too.
Absolutely. Fit is a big part of that.
Omar Cooper Jr. To the New York Jets.
We thought they might take him at 16.
Yep.
And so they trade back into the first to go get him. Beautiful.
Said they needed receiver help. Well, there we go.
Well, now you get 2 pass catchers
in
the first round for the Jets.
And it's interesting because Cooper's really, you think of him as a slot. And so it'll just be interesting if they believe he's an inside-outside player.
Really good with the ball in his hands.
He is. The lower body, like talked to multiple safeties who said he was the hardest guy they had tried to tackle this year, just because he's so strong in that lower half. He's breaking tackles. The yak is awesome. I mean, the catch he made at the end of the Penn State game, like it's just.
That's the other thing about him, that the yak stuff is obvious, right? Like there was that play he made against Miami where like he takes a glance and just like bounces off a safety and turns into a 15-yard gain. That stuff's all over the place. But he really will go up and get it. And some of these yak guys are not those sorts of players. Right. And the guy again, this is not a perfect comp because he was an outside player all throughout college. He was a really good prospect. He played outside for most of his time in the NFL. But like he reminds me a little bit of what DJ Moore was for the Bears this year. Where like it's schemed up touches, but if you want to have him on some of those big digs where he has to go get the ball in traffic, he can still do that, even if what he does with the ball in his hands is the best thing he does.
I also think they're in a spot too where, I worry that because he played mostly slot this year, people are going to pin him to just that. But one, I think they just did that out of like, well, we have Elijah Surratt and Charlie Becker, who are these two towers that we're just going to put on the outside.
They needed somebody inside.
You need somebody to do it.
The previous year.
Right.
He averaged 21 yards a catch.
And his tape outside is good. Like there are reps where he can beat press. When they wanted speed on the outside in a way that, Becker and Surratt didn't give them, they put Cooper out there. Like I don't know if he'll live out there, but like if they want him to do that, or if Garrett Wilson gets hurt and he's got to go do it, I'm not that worried that he would have to do it.
Yeah, they wanted the ball winners outside, and they wanted Omar Cooper in, but he ran a 4.42 in the 40-yard dash at the combine. Like the speed is not an issue for him.
So the Titans moving up with the Bills moving down again. The Bills needed picks.
Buffalo's out of here.
Yeah,
they moved back 3 times.
They want DeSantis.
Yeah.
And so San Francisco and Buffalo are out of the first round entirely.
Yes.
Am I right about that?
Yeah. So now we have, obviously the Titans picking at 31, Seattle picking at 32. We'll see if anybody takes the offer Seattle's been trying to make to get out of there.
I mean, it's interesting when you look at just my top available, obviously Jamal McCoy, but that's a different issue. Keldric Faulk, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, safety from Toledo, Denzel Boston, receiver from Washington, and Avion Terrell, corner from Clemson. Those would be my top 5 available at this point.
I think Keldric Faulk does make sense for the Niners or for
Tennessee.
That's a Freudian slip that is purposeful, right? Like you compared him to Makai Williams in the process, and where was Robert Saleh last year when Makai Williams went in the first round?
Right.
Do the Titans have any need for a safety?
They do. Kevin Winston and Amani Hooker, they're starting safety. I think Hooker's a decent player, actually, at strong safety, but he's a little bit more of a downhill box player, doesn't have a whole ton of range. So assuming you mean McNeil-Warren, who can play a little bit more in the range in the post,
on the board,
that probably does.
After going offense at 4, it feels like this has to be a defensive player, and I think I just coming back to edge though, because you think of Robert Saleh defense, he wants a stable of those guys.
He told Barganzi, like, look, I let you do the receiver.
Yep.
Come on, give me on the board.
And again, you look at Oladejo right now is slotted to play on the other side from Jermaine Johnson. And I think that Oladejo was such a specific pick for the way the Titans wanted to play under Denard Wilson. And I think that Keldric Faulk is exact opposite of that.
Yeah.
Like he is a 4-down Niners type defensive end in a way that they just don't have one on the other side of Jermaine Johnson right now.
My top edge rushers, Keldric Faulk, TJ Parker, Zion Young, and Cassius Howell. Those would be the top 4 edge rushers available at this point.
Would you fault them if they went offensive line here? Like,
no.
I think if it's Basantis or I guess Pregnon could be the other guy, like I think I would probably like that.
I think that's totally fine. When you look at their current guard situation, I think that's more than justifiable. I mean, right now, they signed Austin Schlottman.
Yeah.
And then who was the
Cordell Volson? Bengals fans could not get rid of.
If this
is why I couldn't justify. It's why the Jeremiah Love thing was driving me crazy. Because I was looking at that interior and I was like, you can't do this to me.
It would be rookie Todd Gurley.
Don't do this to me. Pick is in for the Titans at 31. Roger's thanking everyone, I assume, for being there. The pillars are red now. Oh, they changed colors based on the team, huh? Is that what they're doing? That makes sense. Look at me figuring it out in real time.
Only
31 picks in the draft. Listen, I've been too into the analysis. The aesthetics matter less. I'm going to use this as another chance to talk about Keldric Faulk.
There he goes.
I mean, I think it's a good value at this point.
It's amazing.
It
100%.
Young player who has yet to play his best football. I mean, we touched on it earlier. He's a very traitsy player. When you have a guy that size, that long, high character, you have a good idea of the human you're bringing into the building. understand why you'd want to take a swing on him. I thought he would go in the 20s at the latest, and so to get him at 31,
the cool thing is it's not even a swing. It's
No,
a swing if it's
Sure.
If it's 11,
Yeah.
yes, I 100% agree.
Here, I'm just
No
like,
doubt.
okay, the
Yes.
floor's pretty good, and who knows what the upside could be, and you're getting that one pick from the end of the first round.
There are two things I'd say. One, if it was just like, he's kind of toolsy, but he's never put it together and he didn't have practical utility, that'd be one conversation.
Mhm.
He is such a good run
he's
defender.
instinctive.
Dude,
He is
He rocks.
such a good run
My-
defender.
My low end comp for him was Michael Johnson, who had played for the Bengals for a
Sure.
long time, who consistently was like a 4, 5, 6, 7 sack player. And so you would obviously want more from a first round pick, but that dude could defend the run. He was long, did a really good job of pushing the pocket. I think Faulk, maybe that's kind of where he ends up, but I do think the upside is higher than that. I kind of think if you get him in a defense that unleashes him a little bit and lets him get after it, he could be good.
Is there any part of you guys that think he could grow into being inside?
Situationally,
Sure.
for sure.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, I think you can be multiple with different ways you use him, because he has the body type, and he played basically a 4-eye position in college. So
There's a lot of versatility.
You mean
there.
put on
Yeah.
like 20 pounds and be like Calais Campbell or something?
Like poor man's Calais. Calais
Right,
is like
yeah.
a giant.
Yeah,
I
he
don't
is.
want to say quite that, but
he doesn't get pushed around in the run
No,
game.
no, he
so,
does not at all.
but
Or Eric Armstead is like if he
he
put
could
on a
be
little weight,
6'6",
would be like a similar build.
295,
Yeah.
and, he's not
Right.
even
Yeah, speaking
21
of
yet.
Robert Saleh.
Right. I mean,
Like,
he's 276,
And
and
he's
so
not 21 yet.
Mhm.
well, the
Or he is
age,
21.
yes, he is 21, but still very, very young. But he's somebody that if he's 285 in a year, okay, and then keep building off of there.
We talked about this when we did the offensive line show. Watching him in that Georgia game, where he played a ton of snaps
Right.
and a wider alignment in that game than he had in any other game that I'd watched.
Against Freeling a lot.
Against Freeling.
Yeah.
That was the game where I was like, that opened my eyes a little bit, because if you're going to actually use him as a real defensive end,
Mhm.
he does have the traits physically, and there is like a smoothness to it. Like, I believe there is like unrealized upside for him as a pass rusher.
There's a little more bend than it would that seems
Yes.
like meets the eye with him. Like it's not like the absolute freak shows at the top of that position, but there's a little bit more than a guy who is his size than you would
One
think.
other keynote with him too, I can't underscore, like, the program he was in was a tire fire.
Yeah.
Like, so I think the fact that, he, was playing through it, I think a lot of other guys probably sink to the bottom with some of that stuff.
I remember people were upset. He ran the hoops at the combine, and people were upset that it wasn't faster. And it was like, okay, he's picking that towel up off the ground like at an angle that guys that big shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah.
He's a good run defender. Like, if he never realizes his potential as this freaky pass rusher, I still think he could be a really good NFL player.
He's a
And-
fluid mover.
Yeah.
He's a fluid mover combined with the run defense, where at 31, let's do it. I mean, this is a chance you take, I think, every single time, especially for this team. They needed a player like
And
this.
where do they?
Mhm.
So they moved up. We know what they gave up to move up.
I haven't seen the terms for that trade yet.
I'm sure it wasn't much because they moved up 5 spots. So they originally had pick 35 and they moved up to 31. So not a big jump.
It's very little. I think so. I'm looking at it right now. The Titans get 31, 69, 165. The Bills get 35, 66, and 101.
Hmm.
So it's really that move from 101 to 165. That's the big part of that trade.
Yeah, I think that's a smart move to make. So we have 1 pick left in the first round.
The receiver was in their back pocket too. Anyway, like they already
Yeah.
they did Carnell Tate.
It's fascinating that we had 5 trades just in a row, and the one team that wants to get out of there more than anybody is Seattle,
and they're making the pick.
They're stuck there. So I mean, do we see a second running back?
You know
what?
what's Seattle? Okay, I don't remember the picks you just said, but Buffalo's swapping all these picks. Seattle probably didn't have enough picks to move around to do something like that.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you got to kick us something back if we're doing this. And Seattle's like, we don't really have anything. Sorry.
Well, that's actually a really good point, because when you're looking at a lot of these modern trades, teams are fine moving around the draft. They want the pick total to still hit a certain number. It's like, we'll move down 25 spots, but we still want to come away from this draft making 8 picks. So when you only have 5 or whatever Seattle has,
4.
it becomes more difficult to do that.
They have 4.
Yeah. And a lot of these trades are worked out ahead of time, but still, they're only 8 minutes now between picks. A lot has to. Both teams have to call in. The trade terms have to be agreed to. there's a lot that goes into it. So a lot has to happen.
Talk about running back. The other spot I would throw out there, corner.
Yeah.
Colton
Hood, Jermon McCoy, Avion Terrell.
It's a meme at the like. It can't be Jadarian Price, right? Like that's even the Seahawks aren't that
If
much.
you
of a
take
meme.
him over those corners, that's tough.
I kind of agree.
Can the Seahawks
even
take
there's some
McCoy
edge
and
rushers I would
just-
take here.
Do they need him to immediately play?
That's fair.
No, because
Right.
Job
Yeah.
is like a passable corner.
It would just give you less flexibility, right? If you had to play Weatherspoon outside.
here, though.
Mhm.
John Schneider, he didn't care when they took Penny in the first round.
He doesn't
Like-
give a shit about anything.
Yeah.
No.
Mhm.
So
Especially now.
Yeah.
Now you can't tell him shit right now. Pick is in for Seattle.
We talked about edge rusher. I mean,
That there
they want to add to that
I
edge
would
rush
love that.
group.
Yes, replace
No.
Mafe.
TJ Parker.
Yeah.
Too many.
Hey, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
TJ Parker and a Mike
Replace
McDonald
Mafe, that'd
defense.
be fine with me.
Or Zion Young, Cassius Howell, one of those guys added to the mix.
Corner and edge, I think, are very similar when it comes to like we're just
Right.
trying to refill the coffers in terms of what we had last year. Like those are we could play a game today, but we lose the
Yes.
flexibility and the depth that made us the team we were a year ago.
Right.
It's so funny. We had all these trades the back half of the first round. Seattle was the team that wanted to
Right.
get out, and they're the team
Exactly.
sitting here picking.
I just imagine they were like watching it all happen, like son of a bitch.
Just please, sir. I just need an extra fourth round pick. It's all I want.
I mean, can they wait to take a running back? That's the thing. This is a bad running back class. Plain and simple.
It almost reminds me of like when the Niners had to take Jake Moody in the third round because they only had 3
Oh,
picks.
yeah.
Like, that's kind of what this
They're
feels like.
self-inflicted wounds.
And there it
Oh.
is.
They are a
That,
meme.
that just seems like bad operating.
They are a
procedure.
caricature of themselves.
Wow. I mean, look, I wish we could have seen Price as a running back one for a different team because I think he would have been awesome. He is a really good player, but obviously
he's got a shot to be running back one for at least a month, right?
Well, I'm saying like in college, like a chance to see him.
Sorry, I'm an idiot. Of
be a
course.
starter,
You
but-
mean because he was sharing a backfield with
Yeah.
Jeremiyah Love?
Yeah, and he wasn't asked to, carry the load and be the guy. So, but he's a good player. His ability to weave through the defense is outstanding. He wasn't a big pass catcher in that offense, and so that's a little bit of an unproven part of his game. But kick return, I mean, he's a big time kick returner. Add that to the mix.
When was the last time this happened? Didn't
Two
Auburn
running backs
have
from the same?
Yeah.
Arkansas?
Auburn. Yeah.
Oh,
Auburn,
Arkansas. Yeah, just after
It's
that.
happened
Yeah.
more often than you think, actually.
Right,
But
but just
this-
not in a while.
Yeah.
This is the first time ever the first 2 running backs drafted were from the same school. That's never happened
That
before.
that makes more sense.
It almost happened with Auburn but Cedric Benson was fit in there.
Yeah.
Instead
It
of
was-
Ronnie Brown and
Ronnie
Cadillac.
Brown.
Two,
Ronnie
4,
Brown's in
5?
Cadillac, right?
Yeah. Ronnie Brown went second, and then like
lied.
Cedric Benson was
4th,
4,
and then Cadillac was 5.
Yeah, because Braylon
I
Edwards
just-
went 3.
Shockingly, I remember that draft.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with that draft. Yeah.
Cedric
We
Benson.
had a chance to talk to Jeremiyah Love at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And great guy, wonderful interview. And I asked him about Price. I know he said he thought he'd be the second back off the board, or maybe he even very diplomatically was like, he could be the first. And I was like, okay, Jeremiyah, sure. But he said something about him potentially being a first round pick. And I love the irony of that conversation happening 4 days before the Seahawks won a Super Bowl and they're picking him with the 32nd overall pick.
This is not optimized decision making. Like, I think we can all understand that, right?
Right.
Like, this happens because they have 4 picks, and it happens because this is a very bad running back draft.
very bad.
I still just feel like if I were Seattle, I would have rather signed Tyler Algier to that contract and had more flexibility with this in the back half of the first round.
And then, maybe get Mike Washington in the third or whoever the running back ends up being. I mean, Price played 41 games in college. He had over 15 offensive touches once. Like, that's tough. It's a projection to think he's going to be someone that's going to have more of a role in your offense. And it could absolutely work out because the talent is there. Definitely a little bit of a risk.
This is the problem when you go into the draft with a massive, massive need. You just push yourself to make decisions you probably wouldn't make in an ideal circumstance.
But fair. Okay, cool. But thinking about that Seahawks team and how it just felt like they had 19 rushers getting after the quarterback every time. And Boye Mafe wasn't even the most important one. But wouldn't you? I would so much rather replace that production with an edge rusher and
But that's what I'm saying.
But even if maybe it's not as tidy and maybe Mike Washington's not there for you later. So what? Trade for somebody's training camp cut in August or hold on for dear life until Zach Charbonnet is healthy. Like, it won't be fun, but
You're preaching to the choir, man.
I still think that's a better use of resources. And I like Jadarian Price a lot. It's not really about him. It's just about you just saw what your defense was. And like, I would be doing whatever it took to keep it humming at that level.
And Robert, you laid this out on the running back show you guys did. The guys you take in the top 10, they are exactly as good as you want them to be almost every time.
Yes.
The guys you take after about 20, it's those guys in the first round. I mean, like the back half of the first round. It's
Chris
more
Johnson
of a
is like
wasteland.
a very big success story. There are a lot of massive misses in the back half of the first round at running back over the last 20 years.
Because it's probably teams doing this where they go into it thinking like, this is just the spot that we've got to fill and we've got to take a guy, and you end up overdrafting a guy. And again, Price might be fine, but Colton Hood seems like a starter. Zion Young, like just other guys at these premium positions.
I think you said it best. It's just a set of perfect circumstances coming together with a few draft picks and there's just a really bad draft class at running back. And that's just what really forced this decision.
There's 6 ways you could get competent running back play onto this team, even if you don't draft a running back this weekend. I don't know how many ways there are to replace what you had at edge or a corner.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a continuation of the story tradition in recent years of a team feeling itself in the back half of the first round and taking a running back after winning the Super Bowl.
Where's their next pick? How far down?
64.
64.
It's just
So
like
you
you
could-
think.
Their
you could have
first-
Mike Washington. You
their
could have
first
gotten
3
Mike
they have,
Washington
right.
there
Right.
But
You
or
would
Emmett
think.
Johnson or something.
Mm-hmm. I think they were just in a spot with the 4 picks where like if they had 7 or 8 picks, they could take a corner here, and then if they wanted to move their second pick up into the late 40s and then make sure they get Washington, they don't have the ammo to really do that now.
I'm joking. It actually does kind of remind me of the Jake Moody thing, where like when you only have so many picks, you do things you wouldn't do otherwise, and that is where the Seahawks have fallen here.
If it works out,
Also,
doesn't
again,
matter.
Running back and kicker are 2 positions. I mean, kicker way more so.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but like 2 positions where it's like, I'll find it somewhere. I don't have to do this.
Seahawks fans have been drunk for 2.5 months.
Yeah, we're not gonna,
looks like.
I'm not
Everything's gonna be
crying
fine.
for them. They just won the Super Bowl, but Zion Young or Avion Terrell or Colton Hood on the Seahawks would have been pretty damn cool.
You could have gotten McCoy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like kind of stunned, even though we had talked about him maybe being off teams' boards, that he didn't get picked.
I didn't include him in my final mock just because I got too much feedback from teams that, hey, yeah, we're not going to take him. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, Will Johnson was the 48th pick last year. And so tomorrow, that'll be a key storyline is where does that fall end?
But the Will Johnson part was like, people I think were a little worried about his speed anyways.
Yeah, right.
Like this guy's really fast.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if anybody questions his anything physically off of 2024.
Injury's probably worse though, right?
Yeah,
it's not an apples to apples, but so just to reset my board, best available after round 1, Jamal McCoy at number 1, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, the safety from Toledo, Denzel Boston, receiver from Washington, Avion Terrell, corner from Clemson, Colton Hood, corner from Tennessee, TJ Parker, edge rusher from Clemson, and Caden McDonald, defensive tackle from Ohio State. So a few surprises in there, I think. Chase Pasontis, Zion Young didn't go. We didn't see that linebacker too get in there. So definitely a few surprises at the end of the first.
How many offensive linemen went in the first round? It felt like a lot.
We get 10.
Because you got your center guard from Georgia Tech who went in.
So 9, I think. 7 tackles and 2 guards.
9, which ties the modern record.
Yeah.
9 is we saw 9, I believe it was in the 2024 draft is the modern record.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had plenty of 8s, but only one other 9.
Do you guys think that's a function of it not being a watered down draft after you got out of the top like 12?
We talked about this a little bit, right? Like we talked about this yesterday. I think it's kind of becoming like a self-perpetuating, self-fulfilling prophecy where offensive tackle is the position almost invariably where you need to find your difference-making starters in the first round.
Quarterback.
And so I think, and quarterback. And so I think in a way, it is driving up the prices on these guys because teams are looking at it and saying, well, we have to get our offensive tackle in the first round. And so now you're drafting guys that might have been more developmental second round picks higher in the first round because that's the mindset about how premium the position is.
Because looking at the next available tackle, okay, Caleb Tiernan from Northwestern, Markel Bell, Miami, like there's a
drop off, right?
Yeah. And
It feels like quarterback.
it does.
Where when we have the situation where the quarterbacks get pushed in round 1 and the guys going in round 3 are super developmental players in the same way that those guys might be a tackle.
Yeah, I mean, guard, not as much of a drop-off. There, I think Chase Bisontis, Emmanuel Pregnon, Jennings Dunker, Jalen Farmer, I think the guards are better, but it's still, there is somewhat of a drop-off. And so that, to me, plays as much into this as anything is just this specific class. If you don't get your guy early, you're not going to get your guy.
A lot of surprises, a lot of fun moments on this show. We're going to talk about those on the show, the podcast that we're going to be recording after this. That's going to be available in your podcast feeds overnight. That will be different than the stream you all just watched. For those of you guys who stuck around with us over the last 4 or so hours, sincerely appreciate the time. Please, if you are new to the channel, like, subscribe. We would sincerely appreciate it. I'm sure there's plenty of you out there. We'd love if you made us your new home for NFL coverage here on YouTube. There's a daily show during the season here on the Athletic Football Show, 4 times a week in the off season. Bruce, sincerely appreciate you taking the time to join us again this year.
It's a blast being on with you guys. I'm like, there's definitely some times where I'll listen to you talk about the free agency, the contract status of offensive linemen, and I'm like almost awed by it, just because we're in the middle of like just this draft sea of stuff, and just the fact that you guys have the other parts of it is impressive.
It's the only way to justify my existence with him here.
You have to keep track of the transfer portal, which feels equally daunting.
All I know is I'm glad Dane's cornerback got drafted, because I know that was it.
It's all that matters.
I'm glad Dane's here, and I'm glad the rest of you were, and I'm glad all of you on the other side of this were here as well. Sincerely appreciate the time tonight. We had a blast. Hope you guys did too. We will be back here tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, the 4 of us, breaking down every single pick from rounds 2 and 3. So please come back and join us. It's going to be a good one. For now, that's all we got. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll see you soon.